Hello, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pick a Side podcast. My name is Moran, and I'm here with Andrew Velez, Joe Dehls, John Tortorelli, and this is episode 267. In this episode, we're going to talk about Embiid's comments on Jokic, Mavericks' tough decision, the Wolves being healthy, top wide receivers in the NFL draft, Lamar Jackson requesting a trade, Mike Tomlin on Kenny Pickett, and early NFL MVP odds. It's a jam-packed show today, fellas. Got a lot of topics. We're going to try to do that 4-hour show like the entire audience has been clamoring for.
Oh, are we?
Are we, fellas?
Oh, when's the last time we did a 4-hour?
Don't do this to
I don't
me.
think
we did.
You guys did it once.
40
I
No,
with
we
Drew as
did
the
it.
host.
Facts.
How did you guys
Yeah,
feel
you
after that?
I was dead.
No, I went home and I was out in seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah?
I was dead tired.
So
My
tired.
dad was like, "Are you all right? What, are you stressing about the show?" I'm like, "No, I am tired. I wanted to go to sleep."
Shout out to everybody viewing in the live stream right now.
Shout out
Make
to
sure
someone
to
on the stream.
drop a like. We're trying to get this episode to 1,000 likes.
I'll tell you what, the last episode, the likes up there.
You have to keep on mentioning
That's a
it.
fact.
And we also need some get well students to riff in the chat as
That's
well,
a
of
fact.
course.
That's
No
a
riff
fact.
today. I'm
Shout out to Ray.
fucking up in the suit.
Feeling better, you said that, right?
Every time.
There's a
better?
high chance that Riv is back next episode.
Riv is questionable for Friday.
He is, no, he's probable.
Leaning, I was
Probably.
leaning
He
towards
was
probable.
he was doubtful.
He was
Today?
doubtful.
He was
doubtful.
Doubtful.
You talked a little bit about StreamYard. That wasn't going to happen.
He made the call to me today. He's like, "I can't do it, man." I was like, "I get it."
You know what? We should whenever we have that update for Riv, just tweet it out. Riv is probable for Friday night.
That'd be funny.
Game time decision or?
Riv is a game time decision. Would be very hilarious.
Yeah.
He's a game time decision.
He was game time decision today.
He was. It was a game time
It
decision.
was.
So today, Boom Fantasy gonna try out some picks. And by the way, yesterday we were live on the playback, and the playback was
They've been
very
getting
active.
more and more viral.
Yes, we watched the Timberwolves, the Kings. If you were live on the playback, you probably caught Riv throwing a very nasty fart on the playback.
I missed that.
He goes, yo. Listen to this. He gets up, rips.
John is now guest appearing on the playback. He's coming
Yeah,
on the
dude.
playback more and
Yeah,
more.
man. I got to take some straights by Kings fans as well. Wasn't bad.
You know, John comes in. He pops in the fourth quarter when it's money time. He pops in the fourth quarter.
Can't
John's
worry.
never there when I'm there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Are you
Feels
ducking?
by
Are you,
design.
are you ducking Dehls like Embiid's ducking in Jokic?
A little bit.
I'm looking at these Boom Fantasy picks, and I want to get a night game because most of these games are gonna happen. So
We did have the game started already, but we had a risk-free promo for Jason Tatum. Game started, so we can't use it. But hey, you download Boom, use the link in our description. Whenever you have those promos, you're gonna see it there.
Jason Tate him.
Tate him. You liked it?
I did. I cracked up at that.
Yeah. Thankfully, they picked that one.
So I'm
I
looking
kinda
right
messed it
now. Pelicans versus Golden State Warriors. Brandon Ingram 27.5 points. He's been on the heater recently.
Yeah.
I'm liking that.
Eat your
I'm liking
words.
that.
Eat your words.
About
Who they got
Ingram.
tonight?
You were disrespecting him last night.
I mean, what has he done?
He's been
done
cooking.
nothing.
He had 28 in the first
He
three
puts up
quarters
numbers.
yesterday.
For sure.
I think 29. Excuse me.
They want a little win streak there, didn't they?
They are. And it's annoying me.
Trey Murphy's at 15.5 today.
Yeah, he baited me last time I took it against the Rockets. I want nothing to do with him.
Steph's at 27.5.
What's his threes? I feel like it's always 4.5.
The threes props are not here,
Okay.
and neither for Clay. Clay's line is at I believe I'm trying to get it. I believe Clay
21
Thompson's
points,
line is at 21.5 points.
Yep.
Correct.
27.5 points plus rebounds and assists. Dude,
You know
the
what,
points,
this
rebounds,
is a
and
home
assists,
game.
I never be getting.
No.
Yeah.
Never. Every time. I
If
always
I'm
pick the
taking
wrong night.
points, rebounds, or assists, I'm taking the under. That's really how I function.
I'm gonna be honest, man. I think I'm gonna give you guys a double right here.
Oh, yeah? Cook up?
I'm going with it's a home game. Jordan Poole, 18.5 points.
Okay.
I think Jordan Poole shows up big
Cooks.
tonight.
He stinks.
And Jonathan Kuminga, for some reason, I feel like I don't know at what point in the game this is gonna happen, but I think at some reason Draymond's probably gonna drop to the basket and Kuminga's gonna be in the corner. It's gonna be a pass made to him, and Kuminga just hits a three. So I'm taking the over 1-3.
Yeah.
Just he needs 1-3.
0.5 3-pointers.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You know,
Taking a risk
so
today. What's he on the season? Like 0.5 3-point makes per game?
Probably.
I'm going crazy today. I like that a lot though.
Pelicans
Jonathan
have been
Kuminga.
playing well, but Draymond has been passing the rock a very, very.
No, Jonathan Kuminga in 4 of his last 5 has made a 3.
There we go.
Okay.
He's actually at 35% for the season, making a little bit more.
That's respectable.
Draymond Green, you can always bank that Boom Fantasy has that 0.5 3-pointers for him. It's the most tricky shit ever. But I'm going with Draymond Green, 6.5 assists. He's been passing the ball very well recently. He's passed the ball his entire career very well. But the way that the Pelicans have been playing, I expect the ball to be moving a lot and for the offense to be very high powered today.
So you guys can go and play Boom Fantasy, and the link is in our description. Use code PAS if it's your first time and get a risk-free entry up to $100.
And if you have a lock for tonight, let us know in the chat. We'll shout it out.
First topic of the show. It's unfortunate that this had to be the first topic of the show.
He ruined what could have been a legendary play, although last night's playback was awesome.
Nikola Jokic versus Joel Embiid. We were hoping that matchup, the second matchup of the season, was going to happen. Embiid dominated Jokic in the first one. We were expecting in the second one, maybe Jokic evens the score, but that wasn't able to happen. Embiid was ruled out, I believe, with a calf injury. And then James Harden also did not play because of a sore right Achilles, I believe. Sore left Achilles, my mistake. I don't know about you guys. Joel Embiid looks awful in this. He hasn't played in Denver since 2019. And I don't know. It feels like a lot of the momentum in Philadelphia gained in March is slowly dwindling down. All that momentum that they had, James Harden got injured.
This is gross.
It's interesting.
James Harden got hurt. They went on a little bit of a skid. I mean, Philly was not too far away from the first seed, if I'm not mistaken.
They were the 2 seed for a couple days, maybe a day.
We know how important home court advantage is in the playoffs, especially in this Eastern Conference, when you ultimately, if you go to Game 7, you have to face Celtics or the Bucks on the road Game 7. So, yeah, these struggles have been a little bit worrisome for me. Joel Embiid has talked about nonstop how the MVP doesn't matter too much, yet when he talks, it feels like it matters to him a lot.
Definitely on his mind a good amount.
He had a chance to solidify his case, lock the MVP award for himself if he played in the game, and he did not do so. What's the most disappointing part about all of this is his interview with Shams before the game that came out right before the game. He talked about analytics and basically said, hey, you know, there are some times where analytics show that guys that aren't good defenders are the best defenders in the league. I mean, who's somebody that fits into that mold? It's Nikola Jokic. He talked about the MVP criteria. What's been a hot topic in terms of Jokic's MVPs? The criteria around it. And then he talked about the pressure to win, which was the one that nauseated me the most. When he said, I'm not a 2-time MVP. Why should there be pressure on me to win a championship?
Yikes.
If you're a great player, you want that pressure. If you want to be the best in whatever you're doing, you want to have that pressure on you. You want people to expect greatness out of you. Joel Embiid, and for some reason, it feels this way with a lot of NBA stars today. They just aren't comfortable with that pressure of the expectation of greatness, which is the championship, being on them. I said something similar about Damian Lillard last show. He's somebody else that there has not been an expectation from him to win in the longest. Joel Embiid is now another culprit of this where, he sets his own expectations, but when other people set expectations that are probably similar to his, now it's a problem. Joel Embiid is a superstar player. Joel Embiid should expect not only of himself, but for the entire world to expect him to win a championship. Now, it does suck that for the first couple of his seasons, he had to be paired along with Ben Simmons because that definitely, those teams were not going anywhere. But now you have a shot with James Harden. I just don't like these answers that he made. I don't.
Rubs you the wrong way?
It rubs me the wrong way because he says, I've never won anything. So why is there pressure on me to do something when there are guys that have won 2 MVPs? Well, if you feel like you deserve those MVPs, then you should put that pressure on yourself. If he doesn't win MVP, I don't really care. Because he had a chance to solidify his case and he failed to do so.
Let me go next because I'm 100% in agreement with you. Word for word. Last night could have been Embiid's exclamation point as to why he is the true MVP. No questions, no thinking that Kendrick Perkins completely swayed everyone's perspective of who should be the real MVP. No, he would have went toe-to-toe with Jokic for the second time this season. And where, in my opinion, you definitely outperformed Jokic the first time around, you could have done that the second time around, and now Jokic is home, and really stamped it that you are the undisputed most valuable player. Not playing, and then on top of it, the quotes of you trash-talking Jokic subliminally without really calling him out. Same thing with Giannis. And then you not play against him, and then your team, where it ended up becoming a close game. The team definitely fought back. They ended up losing by, I believe, 5 points. They brought it down to 3 points at one point, but they were losing by 20. So credit to Philadelphia, especially now that they're on a 3-game skid. Was a 2-game skid before last night. It was nice to see them put some life into the team. But Embiid just comes across cringy to me. Embiid was and has been phenomenal all season long. He is definitely deserving to be in the conversation for most valuable player. My personal MVP is Giannis Antetokounmpo, but it seems as if it's a 2-man race between Embiid and Jokic. And Jokic has been phenomenal, but regardless of that fact, the fact that you ducked, not really ducked, but the fact you didn't play, and I say ducked because as fans, what were we looking forward to most? We scheduled an entire event, our playback, to watch Jokic versus Embiid. Not the Sixers versus the Nuggets. We wanted to watch Jokic versus Embiid. And when we found out that Embiid was ruled out, it was a huge sting because a lot of people love narratives. What better narrative than Embiid goes into Denver and hands Jokic the second L of the season to solidify his claim as the MVP? Instead, it seems, hey, Embiid didn't want it. Embiid didn't want to play against Jokic to potentially ruin his chance at being the MVP because he was the odds favorite. The ties had changed. Embiid was the strong favorite to win MVP. And for this to happen at the same time where he is subliminally talking trash on Jokic is cringy to me. It really is nothing but cringy.
There's a couple of different ways you can look at this. Joel Embiid's talked ad nauseum about how he doesn't care about the MVP race, and that's because he wants to win in the playoffs. Would you rather a Finals MVP or a regular season MVP? And I think for any great, you would take the latter. You'd rather have the Finals MVP. And so for him, I'm sure that his injury, whether it was Achilles, so on and so forth, I'm sure it was a real thing. But the issue here is the fact that the 2 leading players are MVP, not the players themselves, not about Jokic, not about Embiid. The top 2 candidates are MVP. The 2 best centers in basketball. That's a matchup that we had marked in our calendars for a month. And the fact that Embiid, the day off, gets ruled out and we had to see Dwayne Dedmon getting cooked by Jokic, that's a problem for the NBA. As a fan, that is a real issue when the 76ers have lost 3 of their last 4 games. There's no other way of really putting it. For Embiid, that would have won him the MVP if he won the game. As simple as that, because we look at head-to-head matchups heavily. Last year, it's what gave Jokic the edge. So much so, he won the award by a landslide, 65-26 first-place votes. So I look at Joel here, and I understand where he's coming from because he had plantar fasciitis earlier in the season, and he's focused on staying healthy in the playoffs. But if there's any game you're going to sit out, that was the last one.
And I believe in that same interview, Joel Embiid was talking about one of these next games, I'm going to need a day off. I don't think it's a coincidence that he kind of planted that quote in there and then took it off, almost saying in a sense like, I told you guys I need a day off, I needed rest. But then you look at the rest of their schedule. I mean, the Nuggets are going to be one of the hardest teams, obviously the best team in the West. They had the Mavs tonight, right? The day after, back-to-back, I get it. But, they played yesterday, so the day off. But then you have the Raptors after that. Then you have a couple tough games against the Bucks, Sixers, and you finish the season out with the Heat. But if you want to
play the Celtics.
Yeah, if you want to finish
Bucks,
off
Celtics, you said Sixers accidentally.
My bad. Celtics. But if you want to sit and beat out, wouldn't it be against the Sixers? Or, excuse me, doing it again. Against the Mavericks, where you have a Mavericks team who is sliding, just lost 2 games to the Hornets. We're going to talk about them more in a little bit. But now we've been talking about not only if we had this on our calendar, but that this is going to decide who wins MVP. Yep. Because it's been this close of a race the entire season, and Embiid taking more of, the catching up later on in the season, but it's been so close that this one single game where, in the NBA, you don't really talk about one single regular season game having really any importance outside of maybe the play-in now, but in terms of an MVP having this importance, and Embiid sits out. From the Sixers' point of view, they do have 2 games up on the Cleveland Cavaliers, so I could understand why, or 3 games at the time, actually. in the loss column. So I can understand from a management coaching perspective, Embiid says he needs a day off. He's our superstar. We're going to give him a day off. Plus, you have Harden out already, so maybe you feel that you're at a disadvantage with Harden out against a great team on the road in Denver. So let's sit Embiid out because hopefully they could both be back against Dallas in this last stretch. But it's a tough look when you're going out there and putting all of those negative, negative comments out there about someone you're going to compete with that day, and you don't even go out there and lace them up and prove yourself, right? So Embiid, his overall goal should be winning a championship, but his comments saying, why is there pressure on me? There's pressure on everybody. You're an NBA player. That's on him. It's on Tatum. It's on Hart. Like, there is pressure on everyone to go out there and win. It's a shame he didn't play.
I'm glad that you mentioned that last part, especially Tatum, because Tatum doesn't have an MVP.
Yeah.
But there is pressure on Jason Tatum because he went to the finals, and he was not the Jason Tatum that we know. Here's the good thing about Jason Tatum. He's made it to the finals. He's made it to the ECF. Joel Embiid can't say that.
You know what's funny is that in the article, Joel Embiid, in response to one of the questions, said that he was talking to Jason Tatum earlier this year when he was on a great stretch and said, don't worry about MVP, just worry about winning. And I found that very ironic given that Embiid hasn't won and he was trying to give Tatum advice on how to win. I was like, who does the guy think he is? When I summarize the article, the Shams interview with Joel Embiid, it's three things. Embiid on why he should have won MVP and the goalpost shouldn't have been moved. Number 2 is Embiid trashing Jokic's defense. And number 3, why people shouldn't put pressure on him to win a championship. I think that he totally victimized himself in this entire interview. And it's interesting because he talks about goalposts moving when it comes to the MVP award. Joel Embiid has missed 14 games this season. If he wins MVP, he'd be the first MVP since Bill Walton in 1977-78 season to win the award. So basically, if Embiid wins it this year, the goalpost is moving. But I don't know why that's such a bad thing. A goalpost should be moved on a year-to-year, year-in, year-out basis. Every single year in the NBA is a different year.
Absolutely.
That's a strong statement in my opinion. I feel like, me personally, the most valuable player should go to the best player that season. Now, Jokic, Embiid have been two of the best players in the NBA. Embiid has missed however X amount of games, but that shouldn't take away from how great he's been. But availability, consistency matters to me a lot. Jokic has been one of the most available, one of the most consistent players that we've seen. And listen, Jokic would be more than deserving to be a 3-time back-to-back-to-back MVP, no doubt about it. But I say that they shouldn't be because I'm still upset that, of course, every time we have MVP conversation, I'm going to bring LeBron James into it. I'm still upset that LeBron James was not back-to-back-to-back MVPs.
In 2011?
Correct.
He would have won 5 straight, technically.
Correct. But it was understood why he did not win. He made a power move to go to Miami. It would have been a bad look on the league to make him the MVP.
Derrick Rose also had a great case.
Derrick Rose had a great year, but he was not better than LeBron James in my opinion.
He was not the MVP.
Derrick Rose is not better than LeBron James, but Derrick Rose led a team to 60 wins, the first seed in the Eastern Conference, with key players injured the entire season.
He won more games in the Heat, but the Bulls that year did not have a top 10 offense. The same way the 76ers with Allen Iverson did not have a top 10 offense when he won MVP in 2001. The same way Russell Westbrook did not make a top 10 offense in Oklahoma City. All of those teams were built off a thicker defensive foundation that was top 5. And I feel like in Derrick Rose's case, while all those players were deserving, it was the narrative. It was the storyline that got them MVP, and not because
it would have been 5 times actually that LeBron won MVP.
I think Russell Westbrook. It was definitely not because of the storyline. Russell Westbrook deserved it in 2017.
You could have went many different ways.
You could have went many different ways.
It wasn't until he had the 42nd triple double and the game winner versus the Nuggets that people said, okay, it's not Harden's award because Harden that year led top 3 offense with a similar support.
Well, no doubt. I think Harden. 2017. I think James Harden definitely deserved MVP consideration. If I was voting, I would have definitely voted James Harden. Am I biased in that? 100%. Was Harden deserving in that? 100%. But
over Russ, you're saying?
Yeah, but we cannot leave out the fact that a top 2 player in the world left Russell Westbrook, and he still led a team to the playoffs and averaged a triple-double for the first time in 50 years.
Yeah, that's a storyline, too.
Exactly.
That's a storyline, but that's also his PER. He has one of the historically his PER that season was historically great. It's not just the triple-doubles.
They were 16th ranked offense in the NBA.
Their winning percentage when he had triple-doubles was phenomenal.
John,
so
let me also
give
you something that's similar to that, right? In baseball, we haven't seen a Triple Crown winner in years, but Miguel Cabrera did it. The first time that we've seen it, I couldn't tell you the name off the top of my head, but it'd been like 40, 50 years. If you want to look it up, I appreciate that. But this entire time while Miguel Cabrera is putting up the Triple Crown season that he had, right there is Mike Trout with an amazing season of his own. So good that we're even having the conversation of, hey, is he going to beat out Miguel Cabrera for the MVP? But because he did something that we haven't seen in God knows how long, he was the obvious choice to an MVP in this situation.
History matters.
History matters.
Yeah.
History matters. Where Russell Westbrook did something that no one thought would ever be done again.
John, why was Steph Curry the unanimous MVP in 2016?
2016, his team won 73 games.
Historical. That's
and
it.
He was also
and his shooting was unbelievable.
Yes.
the best player on the best offense, and he was the engine of that
The
offense.
best team. It's usually
and I think,
No doubt.
Let me just clear this up right here. Russ deserved to be in the MVP consideration, same way Allen Iverson and D Rose did. All I'm saying is that they were not the most valuable player. Well, they had a case because those teams were built off a deeper defense opposed to a top 10 offense. Like, they weren't leading top 5, top 10 offenses. And if that's your side of the ball, if that's where you're going to drive performance, you've got to be at the elite level status.
You also have to have the players around you to do things like that.
But Jokic last year, top 10 offense with his second best player being Will Barton or Aaron Gordon. That, to me, that level of driving performance, that is a lot more impactful than the 16th ranked offense in Oklahoma City's case.
I agree with that statement, which is why in 2018, look, we're just going through MVP years. I think LeBron James was the most valuable player. Look at who his second best player was.
Yeah, you
right?
got a case.
James Harden was phenomenal. That Houston team was phenomenal. Without LeBron James, this is the number one overall pick in contention to be.
But let's just be straight. Let's just be honest here. You're talking about Russell Westbrook leading the top 10 offense. The starting lineup was
not good.
Russ, Oladipo, Andre Roberson. Does he have an offensive skill that you can?
Did
you
Victor
can
Oladipo
recall?
the most
Corner
improved
three.
the next season, averaging 23 points per game?
Okay, isn't Jalen
Oladipo
Brunson
was a solid player, but we can continue.
Isn't Jalen Brunson doing something similar when he plays without Luka?
We can
I mean,
continue.
come on, play styles clash. We know that.
It's true.
Taj Gibson was the starting power forward. I mean,
And then
are
Steven
we
Adams.
serious?
And then
Steven
Steven
Adams.
Adams.
Yeah.
Like, come on, bro.
It was a one-man
made
show.
for defense.
Those are
I get it.
three.
It was a one-man show.
Those are three inept offensive players, and Oladipo is like an offense player and a half.
And he
like,
still averaged over 10 assists. Like what he did was absolutely unbelievable.
But it's more so the storyline than anything. If he had 9.2 assists, he's not getting MVP.
No, he needed to
He
average
needed to,
a
he needed to have
No
10.
doubt.
Exactly.
He needed
so,
to do something historical.
Yeah.
And that's why Jokic averaging a
And he
triple-double
also
right
had
now
the most
is not
triple-doubles in
really
a
viewed
season.
as
Yeah,
right. That was
he's
insane.
Well,
by far
Jokic
and away
would
the
be getting it
MVP.
because, like Drew said, he's consistent and available, and they've been the number one in the West for the entire season. No one's even really been that close to them.
But you know what I can appreciate about James Harden is James Harden, every single year in Houston, there would always an interview would always come out with Malika Andrews or something like that. I remember, I think it was his last season,
It's always
2019.
Malika.
James Harden always in his interview said, "It's about winning the championship. We're gonna win the championship. We're gonna win it." He put that pressure on himself to say, "We're gonna win a championship this year. This is the year we're gonna win." I would have liked that sense of urgency from Joel Embiid. I feel like Joel Embiid sounded a lot like internally he wants to win a championship and he's putting that pressure on himself to win a championship internally. But Dehls, if you tell me I have to win, no. Why are you telling me I have to win? I'm not an MVP, but internally I feel that way. It just doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
Doesn't make
It's,
sense.
And for one of the best players in the NBA who had a legit case to do it, like, I just don't understand what you would gain from those comments. And it's not like Embiid's going out there looking for an interview, trying to, up his reputation. It's not like he needs any of that. But as someone who wants to be respected with those guys, obviously you would assume Embiid wants to be one of the best players in the NBA. I feel like all of those guys have very similar mentalities. Like, even if they're not as vocal, like Tatum isn't a vocal guy, but you saw in the interview after the season ended, I think it was with Malika or Taylor Brooks maybe, but he said, like, that hurt. Like, I was not sleeping, like it kept him up at night. And the fact that you could just hear that from your superstar, especially coming from a Celtic fan, I can only imagine what that thinks for Philly fans, how that resonates with them, because they've been itching for just the Eastern Conference Finals appearance. Now you have one of your best players in franchise history saying, like, it doesn't really matter to me. Whatever happens in a sense.
Yeah, basically, I don't want you guys to have that expectation of me.
Yeah.
So if I come up
loser
short,
mentality.
if I come up short, I don't want you guys to criticize me for coming up short.
Don't you think part of that's also Embiid just being tired of the BS From Ben Simmons to James Harden last year being a no-show, not even getting the ball in the second half, to Doc Rivers always crumbling in big-time moments, just throwing stuff, whatever is throwing it off the kitchen sink.
He could be tired,
He's
but
had a lot
there's
of
a better way
issues.
to go
I
at
understand,
it.
but
you
is
could
it-
say like, I'm just focused on the playoffs, or like, I just want to win a
I
championship.
think
But
he's
John,
learned, though,
are you
there's
not-
a lot of uncontrollables and a
Of
lot
course.
of things that need to go
you
right.
just say it. Just
But John, let's
look of it.
also be fair when it comes to Joel Embiid. We look at the Jimmy Butler team, 18-19 season. Who's the one that played poorly against Marcus Gasol?
Joel Embiid.
Look at the
Play
next year
safe
in the second round versus the Hawks. Who's the one that in over 3/4 of those fourth quarters was not good?
He was playing through a knee injury, though.
No, he
he's been
was,
banged
and I
up
give him.
multiple-
That's why
multiple
I
playoff
understand
runs,
he was
though.
playing through an injury, but he also did not raise his game either in those moments.
He wasn't being elevated or supported. I mean,
He
his point
wasn't.
guard
He
is
wasn't.
masquerade,
He wasn't.
power forward masquerade as a point
Listen,
guard.
he
that can't
wasn't.
look
I
at the rim
understand
and
all
foul
these
shot.
excuses you're giving him. I understand, and I'll
But
take
that's
them
the
into
type
context.
of BS that not many other players have to deal with, but Embiid has perennially. And so while he hasn't went to the conference finals, there are few players that have had to deal with as much nonsense as Joel over the last 4 or 5 years.
I don't know about that. I mean, Kevin Durant has 2 championships, and people are still questioning his legacy, me included. You understand what I'm
Because
saying?
the
Like,
way
you
he
can
won the
prove your
chips.
you can prove your greatness, and it still not be enough for people. That
Kevin Durant got
situation
criticized
here,
for 5 overtime
the
minutes.
situation here is that Embiid has done nothing to have people support him consistently, and I mean that in not the most extreme sense. He's obviously been one of the best basketball players in the league. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, he's done nothing in the sense of no championship, no ECF appearance. That's what really gets me more than anything. Jokic at the minimum, you could say, hey, he's got this pressure on him, 2 MVPs, first team All-NBAs, but he at least made it to the WCF. He got past the first round 2 years ago last year, when his guys were, I think it was 2 years ago,
years.
that they beat the Blazers and the boys were still healthy. I think that's when Jamal was hurt, MPJ was healthy, but nevertheless, still should not have gone past that first round. Not many people had picked the Nuggets to get out of that first round. But because Jokic is so great, he still elevates his team.
Is there
John, question: what are you expecting out of Embiid in the playoffs?
this year?
Mm-hmm.
I'm expecting them to finally get over the hump, get the monkey off their back. Anything less than a conference finals appearance is a failure to the extent someone has to go. I think that's Doc Rivers, but if Joel Embiid plays poorly, now we're questioning the entire franchise because Joel is the face of the franchise.
Has Joel Embiid played great in the playoffs?
Yeah,
You know, I really like to think about this, though. That's a great question.
I'm asking.
Has he played great?
Like, do you look at his complete playoff experience and say, has Joel Embiid been great?
I think in the 2020-21 season when he faced the Hawks in the second round, he was great that playoffs. He had bad fourth quarters, but he was great that playoffs.
That Wizards series was easy.
Yes.
They should have got past that one, no doubt about it. Against the Hawks, he had some really great moments, I agree. But in the grand scheme of things,
Last season wasn't great.
no, last season was
That
not good by
probably
any
his-
means.
probably his
He had
worst.
a
He
weird-
some
broken
first-
face and the other injury and the other injury.
And then
In
the,
the
But
19
in
in
year
the
against
19
Toronto, he was okay. That defense was great, to be
That's a
fair,
fact.
but he was okay.
His best playoff series came the 19-20 season when Ben Simmons was out. He averaged
That was
30 and
against
12.
Boston, right?
Yeah,
That was he
he had no help. He averaged 30 and 12.
got swept. There
That was in the bubble.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
But then
facts.
the year with Jimmy Butler though, he averaged 20 points and 10 rebounds in that playoff series,
Yeah, that's just not Joel Embiid.
I
and
mean,
he shot 42% from the field.
That's
here's
not
the
Joel
thing.
Embiid.
Versus the Raptors in 2019, Game 7, 21 points, 6 of 18 from the field, 1 of 6 from three-point range, 4 turnovers. His other Game 7 versus Atlanta in 2021, for as much as I will give him the kind of the veto card, he was hurt. He had 8 turnovers in that game. And all I remember is Trae Young just again and again cooking them in pick and roll.
Yeah.
So that, like, a lot of people are saying, well, Joel Embiid plays defense and Jokic doesn't. Well, what Joel Embiid struggles with defensively is the same stuff Jokic struggles with. We saw that versus Jordan Poole the other night, where in today's day and age, because of how perimeter oriented it is, how many 7-footers for 40
fact.
minutes are going to
There's
keep
not
up with
many.
these
You
guards?
can't.
Almost,
You just
almost,
can't.
no, almost
And
none
third
of
level
them.
Do you
scoring.
think that
So
there
I
are-
think
Mobley, and that's
Do you think that there
very short
ever
list
becomes a rule change the NBA implements?
with pick and roll.
What?
No, they'll never ban it.
Because
Pick
you know
and
in
roll?
soccer they have like an offsides when the
Yeah.
ball gets through a certain point. Do you think that the NBA can like ban something?
Why
where,
would they
like-
want to do that?
They'll
I
never
don't know.
ban it.
I'm just
I feel
like
like that's
this
too
is what they
important to
want.
the
They
game.
want-
I-
No,
I
then
think
you
just
make
they want-
centers OP.
They
You
want
make
to
them broken.
They want to get scoring. They want to have these centers look like they're pulp and pick and roll. That's the point.
like,
then
like
Gobert
if
becomes
centers,
elite again.
If centers pop out to guard the pick and roll, the roll man cannot roll
I
until
think
the
it's just the
center's in a
foul
certain
drawing.
position.
Nah.
You know
The
what I'm
foul
saying?
drawing is less entertaining, while that
Yes.
leads to more scoring. So maybe you take out when the defender's on your hip, he's tracing you from behind. You take that part out of the game, where with Austin Reeves, our guy, he's gotten the benefit of the whistle as of late.
King of it, right?
And if Austin Reeves was on
Shout out to
the
him.
2017 OKC Thunder, probably a top 10 offense.
Yeah, and Q
the last
Bogavelli
piece.
made the point. It was Domas started 66 games a year. Taj started 16. Fun fact.
Okay.
Yep.
So it's a
Domas.
bonus. Yeah.
Yeah.
DeMontis?
For real?
Yeah. Back when-
Domas started more games that year?
yeah. Fun fact: when people thought
The
his
year
number
after,
one
that's
skill
when
is
they
gonna be
traded
three-point shooting.
Oladipo and Sabonis to the Pacers for
Wow,
What a
you're
trade
right.
that
I don't know.
was.
He gets forgotten, man.
Yeah.
Sabonis.
He averaged 6 points.
Oh
Yeah.
god.
he
No,
averaged
really-
six-
he really blossomed in Indiana.
Facts.
he shot 39% from the field.
It's crazy that's
Three
actually
times.
a decent trio in
In hindsight.
not anymore because Oladipo's okay, but Russ, Oladipo, and Sabonis. Those are three.
I guess
solid
all of them
ball
at their
players.
absolute best. Yeah.
Facts at their absolute best. That's a very good trio.
That still would not result in the championship.
Yeah,
No.
no, it wouldn't.
You know, it would be a very fun idea to go back to certain teams and just like these players at their absolute best. Like, what do they do?
Mhm.
Maybe that's be a next TikTok idea.
Yeah, that could
No
be a
one better
TikTok.
Yeah,
fucking
look at the
steal it.
Cavs 2018 team. That's what I think.
Derrick
of.
Rose at his
Derrick
best,
Rose,
Dwayne
Darren
Wade.
Williams, Kevin Love.
Isaiah Thomas.
Darren Williams was
D.
not
Wade
in the
on that
league
team?
then.
Darren Williams was on that team.
No way.
Yeah, bro, he got
D-
no
wait,
burn.
wait,
Wait,
D. Wade on the
2016
team?
had to have been his last
No,
year.
Darren Williams was on the team
2016.
with Kyrie and K Love. Yeah, they signed him. Like, later
Maybe
in the
maybe
season.
you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right. I'm
People
I'm
thought
getting
that
my-
was like the X factor for them, and like, we got KD, we got Darren Williams.
His last season was 2016-2017. I apologize.
That was that.
Yep.
The Dallas Mavericks, 37-39 at the time of this recording, 11 seed. They are now 4-8 when Kyrie and Luka play because they beat the Pacers. Pacers did not play Tyrese, Miles Turner,
Buddy Hield,
etc.
Other team.
And they have I guess a question that they have to answer. So back in 2018, I believe it was, Kevin O'Connor just recently wrote an article on The Ringer posing a question if the Mavericks should tank. Because back in 2018, Mark Cuban actively tanked the season, and that resulted in Luka Doncic. And this year, they have a top 10 protected pick. So if they finish with a bottom 10 record, that pick now most likely goes to them. But if it falls outside the top 10, it goes to New York Knicks. So basically, should the Mavs try to compete? Now, the question I'm going to pose is it more beneficial for the Mavericks to secure a top 10 pick and add to the young core of Luka, Josh Green, and Jaden Hardy, or maximize this window and convince Kyrie Irving to stay?
It's a no-brainer. What will be more beneficial is tanking to get a lottery-level talent. What's going to happen is they're going to push for the play-in tournament, because if you tell Luka, okay, we want you to set the last 6 games, here's the ticket for the lottery, have fun, he's going to lose his shit. That's as simple as that. When you have a 23, 24-year-old that's a top 5 player already, and you have Kyrie Irving as an unrestricted free agent this offseason, you're making a first impression. So for the Mavericks, quite clearly, 11th currently in lottery odds. They're right below the Bulls with the 10th spot and right below Utah. They can climb up to about 8 or 9 where Washington is as those morons go for the play-in tournament. So they can get a top 8 or 9 pick, no doubt. But ultimately for Dallas, they have to compete for the play-in. Knowing, hey, look, in the first round of the playoffs, if we get a 1-8 matchup with Denver, with Luka, we have a chance in that series to make it competitive. And that is why it's a no-brainer here.
And so it's a no-brainer to tank, what you're saying.
It's a no-brainer to compete for the playoffs because you're trying to get the right and first impression for Kyrie this summer when you want
Are
to
we
extend
not
him.
too far down the train with Kyrie? Do you think making the play in, losing either in the playing game or the first round, do you think that really matters if it's a playing game where they just miss it altogether?
The
Well,
truth of the
don't
matter
you want
is,
to keep Luka happy?
Yeah, but I'm saying for Kyrie's
That
sake,
is the
I don't know.
smiling
I don't
part.
know if a playing game changes anything for Kyrie.
it's Lucas smiling.
The way you started your monologue, I thought you were leaning towards tanking. It's not more beneficial because I believe you said it's more beneficial to the team. Am I incorrect or no?
Adding a lottery level talent to this team would be huge long term because you're not a contender now.
It would be huge if Kyrie does decide to stay. It would have to be a conversation where Mark Cuban is like, listen, this is better for us next year. Kyrie and Luka are on board, and they just let it happen. We're not sure if that is going to happen
That's
or
a long
not.
shot.
And the answer to the question is this: are you banking on a lottery pick, a top 10 pick, to be more impactful right away than what you could be with Kyrie Irving staying put on your roster? And that's going to happen by winning games. There's a difference between the Mavericks and other teams that we usually beg to tank. I begged for the Bulls to tank. Their best players are Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan. We know nothing's happening there.
Respect. Keep sleeping.
We've been begging the Wizards to tank. They keep on making mid moves. It's unbelievable. They're about to miss a play-in again.
You were smart to move off of
They're
Zach
being the
LaVine.
Celtics right now.
You were smart. You were smart.
With the Mavericks, they don't have this issue. Their top best player is not some guy who will at most get you a first-round appearance. Luka, as your top guy, can get you an NBA championship. Kyrie Irving as his second option. If things click eventually, because the issues on the Mavericks are far more than just these two.
Is that this season?
It's not this season.
So then what are we doing?
But if you win games, Kyrie Irving stays, you give him the contract, next season they can make a couple moves, mostly at the center position to get a starting caliber one. And I think they're in good shape.
They could. It's not that far away. And I know a lot of people put this on Kyrie, but you can't say this is really a Kyrie problem when he's coming to Dallas and put up better numbers, better efficiency than what he did in Brooklyn with the Nets. But I mean, the biggest issue with this Mavs team, listen, if you want to tank, it makes sense for the team. Luka and Kyrie, I find it very hard to believe they're going to agree with Mark Cuban, front office, whoever, and say, yeah, we'll sit out these last 5-6 games and get a pick. It's just not going to happen. But this Mavericks team, I don't think it's all like, dim and glim for them, right? I know we had a poll out there, like, whose future are you worried about the most? And it was like the Wizards, the Bulls. I think the Mavs were in there. The Mavs aren't as far off, I think, as people think, because you already have Luka, obviously one of the best players in the league, Kyrie, who, right up there, one of the most efficient players, perfect number 2 for Luka. But it really just is getting defenders, because DFS obviously is not this shut down elite guy, right? But he was probably one of their best perimeter defenders, if not the best perimeter defender. So, and that's saying something because that roster is not great. But you really look at this team, and it's not offense that they're missing. And Kyrie was just to get there to enhance their offense. If they're able, like you mentioned, Joel, to bring in a defensive-minded center, which for whatever reason they don't play JaVale McGee, beyond me, and bring in some more perimeter guys that could actually guard and hopefully hit 34% of their threes. I mean, you get a couple of those guys and hope Kyrie just doesn't go crazy. You're going to be in contention next year.
Shit, 34% is like Josh Richardson.
You want a consistent 3-point two-way
I want
player.
a Kevin Herter.
You want
Well,
that.
that's not always going to be available.
I want a Desmond Bain on the team.
I mean, we got Luka,
I'm sure they would
no
kill for
state
Desmond
income
Bain.
tax.
No, but I like
some
what you said.
cap
I think
space.
it is easy to say that it's been Kyrie's fault, but it has not been
It
Kyrie's
hasn't.
fault.
No, it's defense, and we've been saying that. I wish Riv was here because that was our biggest gripe when we came to the Kings and Mavs, because the Kings aren't a good defensive team by any means, but the Mavs have just been so bad that you really cannot sit there and say they're going to be able to get past a 7-game playoff series. Although the Kings can't either. Like, that's exactly what I said to her. Says I trust them just a little bit more. And I think they've proven that.
And you know what part of the Mavericks' problem is?
What?
It's Luka Doncic
Trade them.
in 2 different ways. Now, Luka is far and away the greatest player you can build around after losing Dirk Nowitzki. Number 1, Luka's doing it again. He's not defending. And it's a matter of when your star player's not trying, he's bringing no energy, that rubs off on the rest of his teammates. And so when you don't have the personnel and you don't have the superstar at least giving some level of energy and focus on that side of the ball, everybody else is falling out of order. So you see they're 30th in total rebounding, 30th in offensive rebound. They don't get anything on the glass. They're terrible in transition. But the other problem, it's the LeBron effect with the Mavericks. The LeBron effect is what is killing them. Luka Doncic was so great by year 2, bringing them to the playoffs. They couldn't build around him a team with lottery-level talent. Most young guys 19 years old get a couple of years with younger guys on their timeline, and that's what allows them to build a thicker foundation. Think of Boston with Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Oklahoma City with all of their young entourage, and even a team like the Portland Trail Blazers that's stuck in mediocrity. Those teams funnel up a bunch of young players. With the Mavericks, the only lottery picks on this roster are Luka, Kyrie, Markieff Morris, and Frank Ntilikina. Only one of those guys the Mavericks drafted. So when you trade a first-round pick, which became Cam Reddish or Luka, you trade 2 firsts to Kristaps, you trade a first to Christian Wood, you trade another first in the process for Kyrie Irving. There's not much young talent here, and you're relying on guys like Josh Green taking in the 20s of the draft, and you're never getting these high-level players. So when you lose a Jalen Brunson and you have to sacrifice a first-round pick, your only point of attack defender, and then also a key rotation guard, everything falls out of order. And I think that's the issue here. Because of how great Luka is, it really thinned the Mavericks' margin for error in the roster construction, and clearly they're not capable enough to then figure that thing out, which is just clutching up here and not fucking up the way they did, pardon my French, by letting Jalen Brunson go for nothing.
Yeah.
I'll say this. A lot of what you said there is accurate. The only statement in that whole thing that I disagree with was the Celtics in their rebuild, where it was more so the
was the
Nets
Nets picks,
yeah.
blessing them
Yeah.
while they already had a
Situation.
decent
they were
foundation.
in the playoffs. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they had an ECF appearance prior to drafting Jason Tatum, and then they go again, and then obviously you have the duo of Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. That's just going to continue to have success. But the Mavericks situation is a lot easier if Kyrie Irving was not an unrestricted free agent next season. If it was locked and loaded, Kyrie is signed in for that 2023-2024 season, then this becomes a no-brainer. If I am the Mavericks, I tank to try and get the best pick available. But because Kyrie's situation is so up in the air, and it is not signed and sealed by any means that he will be back in Dallas, it makes things difficult. Because the best way to convince Kyrie Irving to want to continue to be a Dallas Maverick and continue to play alongside Luka Doncic is to win. And I agree with you guys there. However, I look at this Dallas Mavericks team. They are not a good defensive team by any means. They do need a little bit more size. You mentioned their energy is not there really at all. This team is not meant to win an NBA championship. And I say this very consistently. You are failing the season if you do not win an NBA championship. And this current team, the way that they are built, are not meant to win an NBA championship. You have Luka Doncic, and for that, you get a lot of respect from me because you're good enough to win a playoff series. You're good enough to win a playoff game. You're good enough to, if you put yourself in that play-in situation, Luka's good enough to get himself into the playoffs. He's that type of player. And, of course, Kyrie Irving's there with him. The two are an amazing scoring duo together. They've been that since they played together. But the issue has been in these last 12 games where they're 4-8, Luka's missed some time. Kyrie's missed some time. It's not a Kyrie issue. Kyrie's come into Dallas and played amazingly. He is a 50, 40, 90 player since joining the Dallas Mavericks. He's been phenomenal.
He might not be that anymore. He's had some inefficient games. I'll fact check.
Kyrie?
Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
Kyrie, he's had a handful, but
'Cause I was gonna
overall
say-
with the Mavericks, he's been more efficient than what he was with Brooklyn.
The only
Yeah, he's at 39% from three now.
Okay, well,
Yeah, 1% off.
okay.
Montreal.
I know, screw me, but hey, it's pretty close enough that he is a 50, 39, 90 type of player. He's been
shooting like
unbelievable.
94% from
It's
the
just
line,
versus
too.
the Hornets. The 2 games
The
versus Hornets, he was
yes.
not good.
Yeah.
So for me,
Dennis Smith.
again, if I'm the Dallas Mavericks, I'm with you, John. I'm trying to put my team in a better position for next season. Is it unfortunate that Kyrie Irving is not signed and sealed to be on the team next year? Absolutely. It sucks really badly because you didn't trade your best defender in a solid role player in Spencer Dinwiddie and a couple picks to get Kyrie Irving for him to unfortunately leave this offseason. For me, though, the main point is to build a solid core around our guy, the franchise, Luka Doncic, the guy you know is going to be there for a few more seasons. You need to try your best to put your best effort forward to put a solid core, a solid foundation around Luka because they failed to do so far. The LeBron effect, perfectly said. He is too good, and right now it's speeding up the Mavericks timeline. The way that OG was talking about OKC and SGA speeding up OKC's timeline, that is what Luka has been doing for the past 2-3 seasons. Exactly. He's too good right now, and it's costing the Mavericks where they have failed to put together strong role players, a strong foundation around Luka Doncic. But it also doesn't come with the fact that Luka's hard to play with. Let's just be transparent. He is hard to play with because he is so ball dominant. The offense completely runs through him. Now that Kyrie is there, the ball's a little bit less in his hands, a little bit, but even still, his usage is still one of the highest in the association. So it'll be very interesting to see what the Mavericks do or decide to do for the remainder of this season. But for me personally, I'm looking for next season because this is not a championship team.
You know, I still think they're capable of winning multiple playoff series this year. I do.
Multiple
What do
playoff
you want?
series.
At least 1 or 2 they can
No,
do
they're
it. With
not
Luka and
fucking
Kyrie
well.
in this wide open West, this West is wide open.
All right, very simple because there'll probably be the 8th seed or the 7th seed because of how close it is. So are they beating the Nuggets round 1?
No.
Are they beating the Kings round 1?
No.
They can. There's a chance.
Are they beating the Grizzlies
Still
round
three
1?
points back.
I think they can beat the Grizzlies.
The Grizzlies' defense is a lot better than.
It's the best in the West.
Obviously, it's amazing, and the offense has gotten better.
John
It's
Morant
gotten a
would-
lot better, and that's due to Jaren Jackson breaking out.
John
offensively.
Morant would pulverize Dwight Powell possession by possession.
It would
No,
get
Sure, Luka would do the same to them.
no.
Doesn't matter.
Jaren Jackson, Steven Adams coming back.
No, Luka's gonna get his. You can't say that
For
he's
sure.
not, but they
He's
will.
gonna make it hard,
They
though.
will
They're gonna
make it hard
Yeah.
on Luka. They will make it hard on
I just
Kyrie.
don't think that the season is just washed. I don't.
It's an incomplete roster. This is not a team that
listen,
can go
John,
into the playoffs
and
with
listen,
and
John,
think it's going to
I'll
win
let
a
you get
series.
away with what you just said because I was thinking about your statement and it was not perfectly said, Drew. I'm sorry. I disagree with what you said. In comparison to LeBron, sure, but the roster building has more to do with the front office just being inept. Jalen Brunson was not a lottery pick, but the way he played, oh yeah, he's a star player, right? Yes. We look at the teams. The Milwaukee Bucks, was Giannis a lottery pick? No, he's 15th overall pick. Chris Middleton, was he one? He's second round pick. What about Jrue Holiday? He wasn't lottery either. They got him in a trade. They're not lottery guys. 76ers, most of that team has been built by moves. They've wasted their picks with Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz.
But all right, to say that it was made by moves, but Ben Simmons, #1 overall pick. Joel Embiid, #3 overall pick. They tanked for how many seasons?
got
Your
nowhere.
margin,
They got
your
nowhere.
margin for error is wider when you have an influx of lottery talents. The Mavericks
It's wider when you
don't
have
that.
a good front
And
office.
Daryl Morey,
Yes,
he
that
finessed
as
by
well.
trading
But
Ben
they
Simmons and
found
getting
Jaden
James
Hardy with the
Harden.
37th
Let me
overall
ask you,
pick.
the Memphis Grizzlies, we praise them for the roster building. The 2 lottery picks are Ja and Jaren. Dylan Brooks is not that. Desmond Bane is not that. He was a 29th pick in the draft. Steven Adams was a trade. Look at their bench. Tyus Jones, was he that? No. It's about just the front office being capable.
I agree
That's
with
it.
you. I don't think Nico Harrison has any track record of building around a player, but I'm also saying that it would help. Like,
It wouldn't help because
Sixers had Elton Brand in the front office paying Tobias Harris above Jimmy Butler, but because they had a million first-round picks, their margin for error was more wide. So there's
why
gonna be a
was
lot
it
of
if Ben
in-depth
Simmons
decisions.
did not pan out?
Ben Simmons,
great for
they
a couple
flipped
seasons, though.
and got
Yes,
James
and they also got
Harden.
Harden.
Yes, which that was a fleece.
One of the best
what
finesses
But what I'm
we've
saying
seen.
is that ultimately it doesn't matter if that team has a top pick because they're probably mess it up anyway.
I'll
Still
tell you
gotta
what,
hit on
Joel.
the pick.
Joel, there is some validity to your statement. I'm not disagreeing with what he's saying.
Like, if the Mavericks
similar to
would've-
how the Cavaliers could not build a team around LeBron, that they were inept in that
Yes.
right. Similar here. I'm not going to
And
disagree
also,
strongly.
I heard this take. I was with John Carlos yesterday. We was chilling. And he told me about LeBron, I think in 2007 or 2008, the year they won 60 games. And it was a take by Fluent that year the Cavs were the highest in payroll. They gave out the most money to free agents that offseason. That doesn't mean it was good decisions, you know. And that's the point that I'm making about the front office is that the Mavericks. I mean, they botched the Jalen Brunson thing. They could have had him for 4 years, $56 million.
Yeah,
that would have been a steal of a contract.
Yes.
They botched that move. Kristaps Porzingis trading him wasn't a botch
No.
because Dinwiddie was good. But Dinwiddie was good when he was backing up Brunson.
Right.
But the Bertans contract is absolutely
Egregious.
horrible.
It's egregious.
And they tied themselves to one of the worst contracts. I think if you're Dallas, Brunson, Luka, KP, if you have that now, it doesn't sound too bad. It sounds
At all.
it's
Sounds
a better
amazing.
situation.
like what we call a contender.
It sounds amazing, especially what Luka's shown you in the playoffs. It sounds amazing the way that Jalen Brunson played in the playoffs last year and how amazing he's been this season.
And they would have still
Kristaps
had
Porzingis, same thing.
And they would have still had Josh Green, who's not a lottery pick, but is a good player.
The front office
and
has had
Jaden
good
Hardy,
picks.
who they've drafted well.
Harden
late.
plays- Harden's been
Porzingis
cool.
move pisses me off, Joel, and I'm sorry for cutting you off, King. The Porzingis move pisses me off because the Mavericks saw how great KP and Luka were that first series together against the Clippers in the bubble. Porzingis obviously gets hurt, completely changes the series. Then the year after, they struggle and they give up. They struggled together and they gave up on the Porzingis-Luka plan.
I don't blame them.
It was already boiling
When
up. though.
Cuban, but why? Because it's hard to play with Luka.
It's also
Porzingis'
Porzingis has a little
injuries
bit of an
history.
ego to him that he should not. he
No,
doesn't
it's
want.
more injuries
because
than anything, bro.
Porzingis was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah,
But
you're,
they
you're a
don't-
7-foot big man who has lower body injuries. You're not going to get healthier with time.
Yeah,
But he's been on the Wizards and he's been great for them.
They're not doing
on
anything.
an NBA
They're not.
backwater.
They're not. But regardless of that fact, Porzingis has played well, and next to Luka Doncic, they should have been able to do
But
something.
KP has similar numbers to Washington that he had in Dallas. It's the same
it's
numbers.
just a matter of expectations. Don't you think that the Mavericks eyed up Porzingis and said, okay, his value will never be higher, so this is the time to move him and get a little bit of flexibility?
They
with
got
Dinwiddie?
Spencer Dinwiddie and
They don't make it to
Bertans.
the
And they
conference
flipped
finals
Dinwiddie
without
for
Dinwiddie.
Kyrie.
Dinwiddie was huge.
That was a finesse.
Oh, we did that sometime. Yeah, they did get Dinwiddie for Kyrie.
And Kyrie leaves, you got nothing.
True.
Well, no, you got Davis Bertans short.
Right? How does that make you feel?
Listen, honestly,
I'll
I'm
you
just-
rather
I'll
a
take the
punch to
chance
the
with
stomach.
Kyrie and
If-
the chance he resigns over Porzingis.
all I'm saying is that if the Mavericks would have kept Brunson, then the KP trade is
The only
looks
reason
very
why
good.
that also upsets me too is because Cuban came out and said, "Hey, I had Steve Nash and Dirk Nowitzki, and I lost that too quickly. I'm learning from my mistakes. I'm going to try and keep Luka and KP together."
KP's not
and gave him
Dirk,
2.
bro.
No one's saying he's Dirk.
But it's just the injuries are going to pile
We knew
up
where
with
it's
him.
going.
You know,
Did you?
Porzingis is
Yeah.
not going to be an elite player.
Here's the
for
thing
4
that-
years.
his
here's the
defense
thing
got
that-
very, very bad.
Okay, but
Couldn't
I
move
mean,
for
it
it.
really wasn't great. He was just a solid rim protector because of
He
his
was-
size.
he was an
Nah, his
awesome-
New York Knicks tenure, he was a phenomenal defender.
He was an awesome rim protector.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially
rim protector,
for
no doubt.
now
That was
they're
never in
rim
question.
protectors. Now they're rim protectors.
But
to
honestly, if
White House.
Porzingis was their second best player and say they still screwed up the Brunson deal, do you really look at this team any differently if it was Luka
Absolutely.
and
I would.
Porzingis?
without a
I
doubt,
would, 'cause
because
they-
they'd have
they-
some
they-
rim protection.
they
to
would.
clean up a little bit. Yeah.
But
And
the
then it at
overall
least makes
outlook,
sense that they're
I don't
not
think
playing
changes
Christian
much.
Wood. Then
They
at
still
least
wouldn't
it
have
makes
any
sense.
perimeter
Now you
defense.
can
They'd have
play
rim
with a little bit
protection,
more.
but it wouldn't have. I guess maybe they'll
Spacing
trade
with
DFS.
Christian Wood, Kristaps Porzingis, and now Luka. What more do you want?
Well, they barely don't really play.
Wood's
Christian Wood
best
enough.
playing center.
that's what I'm
That's
saying.
the issue. Wood's not best attacking power forward.
No.
Yeah,
People also forget that the Mavericks at one point had Seth Curry.
they did.
He was very good for
And
them in
traded
the
for
bubble.
Josh Richardson.
Yeah,
That's L.
that was a bad move too.
What
No,
happened
this,
to him?
this front office
No.
is not good.
No,
Okay.
they do find gems though. Josh Green took him a while.
They've hit him.
But Jaden Hardy, he's-
Josh Green and Jaden Hardy have thrived the most when the Mavs have needed it.
And
Where
Jaden Hardy
Kyrie and
could be a
Luka were not
starter.
playing.
It's hard
But then
to
when
get-
Kyrie and Luka come onto the court, they're so ball dominant, they're so isocentric that it gets hard to incorporate in them the offense. What do they do mostly? They wait for the ball to be passed to them in the corner on the perimeter, and hopefully that's their 5-6 shot attempts. That's not a way to construct a
Jaden Hardy's
consistent
taking on
offense.
that early Brunson role for Dallas right now.
He could be more than a starter at this point. Like he could be one of the better shooting guards in the league.
Hardy.
Yeah, without a doubt.
All right, I think his potential
Very,
is
small sample size.
right
but-
now. I don't know if I'm going to say that.
He was like a top 3 recruit.
No, he was. I
A
know he
lottery
was.
level talent. 6'11" wingspan. He's got strength.
Jalen Green's
6'4"
not a
guard.
top shooting guard, and he was a better prospect than Hardy coming out.
It's a potential.
I said one of the better shooting guards.
Is Green one of the better ones at this point in time?
He's trending that way.
He's trending that way.
Just shooting guards.
You
Kind
just
of
acted like Hardy would just step into a situation and be that. though.
I think for a 20-year-old that's playing minutes right now and showing a lot of promise, yeah, in 3 years when he's 24 years old,
But
Jaden
is
Hardy
he gonna
could be a
is
top
he gonna
15
get
shooting
the
guard.
opportunity if you have Luka there or Kyrie?
Listen, I think
Most
right
likely
now
not.
he's
Well, it's
in
hard.
a perfect role for him while he's developing his game. I think that he's going to take on that early Brunson, Dinwiddie last year role where he's the bench guard and he runs the offense. I like that for him a lot.
If we redraft that class, he might be a top 10, top 12 pick.
But Josh Green is also better with the ball in his hands as well. Although he can
doubt.
spot up well, but he's very phenomenal. He's a great slasher, and when Kyrie and Luka have not played and he's had to step up. He stepped up.
Yeah.
No doubt.
He's done his thing.
Same
Before we
thing with
go
Hardy.
on, before we go into our next segment, which is going to be ranking the wide receivers in this upcoming NFL draft, a quick word from Athletic Greens. If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then Athletic Greens is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. You can go to athleticgreens.com/pickaside. That's athleticgreens.com/pickaside. Drew's going to go home today with some nice travel
Thank
packs
God,
from
man.
AG1.
Thank God. I've been asking Joel for them, and I just completely forget after the podcast, but finally, because my stomach has been feeling the lack of AG1 in it.
So you need AG1
Yes,
for your
yes.
stomach not to act
My
up.
lack of regulation's insane.
Now, how do you use AG1? Tell the audience how you use it.
In the morning, every single day for breakfast, I have my protein shake, I have my powder, but I ensure that I have my banana, I have my peanut butter, I have my regular whey protein, and I need that AG1 because that AG1 just gives me all the vitamins, all the supplements, the extra supplements that I need because I don't like taking pills. It's just not for me personally. Pills in the sense of vitamins, the chewables, it just gets too much for me, really. I just like to simplify everything, and I feel like putting everything into one thing, putting it into my shake, that's just the most concise for me.
Mr. Do-It-All.
That's me.
I love how the chat is just going back and forth about
About
Jokic.
Yeah,
Still,
bro,
this
they've
whole
been talking
time.
about it
It's
for,
been an hour.
for God
Yeah,
knows how
I look at the
We're-
chat and they're not even talking about the
They're
current
not.
topic.
They're not.
I'm just like, wow, it's still on topic.
Yeah, I was looking at my phone.
Russell
and I
wants to
saw
arm
that-
wrestle you. I get
That's
it.
how
Yeah,
it gets.
I saw that.
This
Do you want to
is-
do that?
This is what it's turned
Fortunately,
into.
I'm confident I know you kick my ass, but yeah, maybe one day.
Maybe one day. Let's read some super chats before we go.
Hot.
NPC Santos, just a reminder that Lakers fans are clowns.
Santos has been extremely rude to me recently, and I understand. It's because I've been rude to Jordan Poole. I get it. But Santos, we got to let bygones be bygones, man. I'm not one for beef. Not with you.
Kill moves. Y'all see Jordan Noah 25-point quarter for the Pacers. I see Noah like Riv sees Reddish. He's a hidden gem for Indiana and a Louisville legend.
Most
He's
points
been
ever
playing
by
well.
a Pacer in a quarter, man.
He's been playing
More
well.
than Reggie Miller.
Again,
Was that
just
today
comes-
or was that yesterday?
This was like earlier last week. I think it was on what day is today? Tuesday.
What did he finish
This was on
with?
Saturday.
Whenever I go verify the stats, I'm putting like Jordan Noir did what? Like, damn.
What did he finish with, though?
I don't remember. He had a good game
He
though.
had 20 in the first quarter, you said?
25.
25.
He finished with 33 versus the Hawks.
Oh, that's... Come on, bro. You had 25 in the quarter, you finished with 33. Should finish with 50.
Celtics are down 20? Is that why you turned the game off?
Yeah.
Got
that
it,
shit.
got it.
Oh, to the Wizards.
We'll let the
Yeah.
Wizards
We're getting this. We're getting the subs in.
How's Porzingis doing?
I don't know.
He's frying y'all?
He might not be playing.
Porzingis is playing. Beal isn't.
No.
We have everyone playing too.
I guarantee you
today.
Kuzma's the leading scorer. This from Q Bugavelli.
Kristaps has 27 points, 12 of 17 from the field. How about you guys supposed to put fucking
12 of
respect on his
17.
name?
Sabonis
Please?
started
you gonna give him
overtimes, but
120
point still
million?
stands.
Say it one more time?
Oh yeah, we talked about
Yeah,
that.
Q Bugavelli.
Got it.
He also says he was rookie. This is from Josh Rodriguez. Better playoff run, Dirk or Joe Flacco? Also, Dirk stays keeping my Panthers. We're gonna be solid and better than people think.
I'll
Joel
take
was
Dirk
right.
or
Terrace
Joe
Marshall Jr.,
Flacco?
wide receiver 2, CJ to MJ.
That's an amazing question.
Dirk or Joe Flacco?
Joe Flacco had one of the better
Yeah.
postseason
Yeah.
runs in memory. He beat Peyton. He beat Brady. He goes to the Super Bowl. He almost chokes it. The team almost choked it realistically, but he still was able to come out with the W. What was he, 11-0 in terms of
No
touchdown to
interceptions.
interception? Was it
No
9-0?
Yeah, something.
Something
He was
zero
8-0.
interceptions.
8-0.
Mhm.
Dirk also, what was it? He beat Kobe, beat OKC,
Man, that's.
beats LeBron.
No, he was 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
I mean, you really think about it, and Raven Zeitgeist, that's.
If
That's 4 times as many
here's the
playoff
thing.
wins as Lamar Jackson.
Here's the thing. People that actually put thought into it will understand that this is a very close question. Those that really just look at things on surface value will
No, it is
scoff
close
at
question.
you for not saying Dirk Nowitzki
So-
because he beat the big 3 Miami Heat.
So I just pulled up some websites to help me out with this question because we're gonna need it. So, better playoff run, Dirk Nowitzki or Joe Flacco? Now Dirk or finals run, my bad. So, better championship run, Dirk Nowitzki or Joe Flacco? Dirk in 2011 beat the Blazers. B-Roy was on his last legs. Lakers second round swept them. Conference finals beat KD and that young OKC team, and then of course the finals they beat the big 3 Miami Heat. Joe Flacco, wild card, beats Andrew Luck. Second round beats Peyton Manning. In the AFC Championship game, beats Tom Brady. And in the Super Bowl, beats Colin Kaepernick and the 49ers.
We cannot overlook the fact Dirk swept the back-to-back defending champs in the second
Yeah.
round. That's cool.
I'll say this again, like I just said, this conversation for those that actually put thought into it, understand that this is very close. But for those that look at things on surface level, if you don't say Dirk Nowitzki, they're going to have a stroke because Dirk Nowitzki did the unthinkable, beat the Miami Heat big 3 in the first year that they were together. Joe Flacco was unbelievable. 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Throws 2 touchdowns in back-to-back drives against the Broncos to put themselves in position to just go into overtime and wins it in double OT against the Broncos. The Broncos were heavily favored, should have won that game, and then beats the Patriots and then wins the Super Bowl. Again, that was Ray Lewis's last year. That was phenomenal. I think I have to go Dirk Nowitzki because of how improbable it was. Not that Joe Flacco's wasn't, and he was perfect 11-0, but beating the big 3 Miami Heat, that is just one of the best accomplishments in basketball.
Now, I'm going to be honest, man. I'm going to go with Joe Flacco.
I don't blame you.
11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He beat 2 back-to-back GOATs.
He did.
He beat 2 back-to-back GOATs.
One of the best performances I've ever seen.
And the reason I'm saying Joe Flacco, and I understand the Ravens defense was elite at the time.
It was.
But I look at Dallas Mavericks and Dirk Nowitzki. Dirk was phenomenal offensively. But when I think about what the Mavericks did to OKC, what they did to the Heat in the finals, I think about the terrific scheme defenses by Rick Carlisle. I think about Jason Kidd defensively, Deshaun Stevenson, Tyson Chandler being a rim protector and anchor.
Peja had a moment too.
Peja did have a moment. I think the Mavericks, their defense won in that
I
championship.
don't disagree.
And their defense, we know that that's not Dirk's strong
It's
suit.
not his call.
Even though he did what he had to do
Did his
offensively,
thing.
defensively is what I think ultimately took them over the hump. Where in football, historically, the quarterback has to elevate you for you guys to win Super Bowl.
That's fair.
You know, I got a Joe Flacco autograph from my brother. I threw
That's
it
tough.
out.
Oh,
Oh
why?
my God.
My goodness, Sean.
Joe Flacco
He
got
is
a
a-
bag
he
for
is
that.
a
But Joe
Listen.
Flacco's shout out to Joe Flacco, New Jersey born and raised, because his brother
Went
played
to Delaware?
baseball. Yeah, in Pittsburgh. Yeah, his brother is playing the state tournament versus my brother. No, I actually kept it for a while, but to be honest with you, when they won the Super Bowl,
That was Flacco's contract year. He bet on himself and got a fucking bag off of that, and probably not the best decision the Ravens
and he was
ever
about to lead
made.
the Jets to the playoffs.
well, it led them to get Lamar Jackson. So
That's a fact. I mean,
Well,
last pick in the
now
draft, but
it's, you
kind
know.
of got lucked into that.
Dirk and Joe Flacco. Now this
Yeah,
from
that's a great
Salo
question.
Marti Tedora. He just donated $10.90. Thank you. We appreciate that.
Wow.
NPC Santos. That was for the Lakers fans who keep saying we're 3-1, by the way.
Yeah, no, Santos said the same thing on the playback yesterday. Because, listen, it's true. Y'all can't beat us.
Who are you talking about?
He's talking about people that are saying whenever the Warriors fans like to talk shit
Oh,
on the
you're
Warriors,
3-1
that
against
we're
the Warriors.
3-1 against them.
Calm.
No, it
3-1
is
too.
calm, especially
you're
when
missing
yeah.
Bron a couple of games, or AD,
Yep,
right?
That's a fact.
They missed Steph.
No,
one of those
AD
games?
played.
You played all 4.
Game 1, first game of the season is
Yeah.
when they came in and smoked us.
Salo Marti again. Ant or Mello. By the way, I'm going to make y'all blow up in Brazil. Shout out to Salo.
Ant-Man or Melo? I'm taking Ant right now.
I'm taking it as well.
Yeah. The upside's higher. I think defensive upside's higher.
Who has the
We
higher
know it's- we
ceiling?
know Anthony
Who
Edwards
has the
clears.
higher ceiling, though, is the real question.
No, it's
I think
Edwards
Ant.
easily.
That's what, if we're just going off what they are right now, I'm going with Melo. But of course, Ant-Man can become
Huh?
potential top
Why do you
5
think
player.
Melo's better right now?
Carmelo, we're saying Carmelo Anthony?
No, we're
No,
saying
no.
LaMelo.
Oh, see, that's different. Because I respect the game and I'm an OG. I'm thinking Carmelo Anthony.
Right. Well, no, I wasn't. I was like, there's no way we can.
Well, when
compare
you say
Ant-Edwards to
when
Carmelo.
you say Melo, what players should we think of? And I think
Should
it's-
be
I always think
Carmelo.
Carmelo,
Should be
but I know
LaMelo
they're
now.
not asking Ant Edwards versus Melo. That's kind of a weird.
I know. That's why I was like, what are we doing here?
So I assume LaMelo. Maybe he was talking about Carmelo. Who knows?
Just how in a couple years when somebody says Braun, you're going to think about Bronny,
No.
No.
right?
Nah, I think he's always going to be known as Bronny.
I think of Bronny. That's
Yeah,
what it's going to
he's
be.
always going to be Bronny. Bron, because
What's
Bron is just
Michael
Bron.
Jordan's son's name?
Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
Oh, is it actually?
Yeah.
He's not. They're not
I didn't
NBA
know.
players though. Bronny's like a Drew Holiday type.
He'd be a good player.
Ronnie's been moving up the
Nah, he is.
the
Good
ESPN
player.
The
100.
dunk contest.
turning me
runner
up. Yo, you
When's
saw that he
making
dunked over
his college decision. You know?
Bryce
Bryce.
still hasn't made it. No.
No,
Do we know
but
when I know?
it's probably gonna be Ohio State.
Over USC's not going to stay home.
I would stay home on it. I think that'd be the best.
Just for
move.
the fact that that's just what LeBron has always talked about, how much he loves Ohio State.
True.
So I
Good
would
one.
not be surprised if he
Yeah.
didn't go there. I
Now
would
this
be
is from
surprised if he
Chris
didn't go there.
Bass. Dehls Celtics are looking sorry today.
We are.
As hell.
My
That's how.
goodness, Dehls.
Before this, since March 8th, we were the best team in the NBA, but, can't win them all. Hopefully, maybe we're getting blown out so much we could rest some guys in the fourth, lock back in. I don't know who we play next.
Good attitude to have.
Next topic: NFL draft wide receivers 2023, the best ones
Go.
in the draft.
Here we go.
And before we give our list, we have to start this topic off with some credibility. You know, why should we listen to your draft wide receiver takes? What were your opinions last year? It sucks we can't date back 2 years ago because we probably would have had those ready. We only go back 1 year. So top 5. My top 5 last year. Number 5, I had Christian Watson. Number 4, I had Drake London. Number 3, Traylon Burks. 2, Jameson Williams. And 1, Garrett Wilson.
Amazing.
So definitely Chris Olave is missed on this list. I'm thinking about somebody else that's missed on this list
George
as well.
Pickens.
I pick it.
And
Who you
Jahan
got?
Dotson.
Nah, he's not top 5.
Alec Pierce. I know you're
He's,
a big
he's
Alec Pierce
definitely an
fan.
honorable mention.
If I'm redoing the top 5, I'm going Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Christian Watson.
At 3?
I would take London over Watson.
Really didn't miss anyone.
Number 4, I'd go,
Olave? Did you say Olave already?
yeah,
Yes.
I'd go Pickens or London. I think one of those. You know, those would be my 4 and 5 for
You're
sure.
not as high as London as I thought you would be. I'm still really high on London.
Yeah.
No, London is
speaking
going
at
to be
quarterback,
savage.
man.
He had almost no drops this season.
I just think Traylon Burks being number 3, that's definitely right now because
He
of
was
injury.
to go into
Oh,
mine. He
Jameson
was,
Williams.
Jameson Williams too.
He was
we
just,
don't know yet.
We don't really know
He was two for
Jameson,
Yoka.
but in his very limited time, he looked great. Last year, I had Burks number 1. Was a big Burks fan. Garrett Wilson number 2, London 3, 4 I had Jameson, and 5 was Pickens. I was really high on Pickens. Olave is obviously the biggest miss by me. Coming out, I was just worried because he was a senior at Ohio State and he was getting outproduced his junior season. This was, a senior with Garrett Wilson and Olave or JSN, who were both younger than him. And then after the catch, he really didn't do anything in college, and he really hasn't done a ton after the catch in the NFL either. But his just route running technician ability to be able to beat man or zone coverage in his hands are great. But I'm still high on Pickens at 5.
My top 5, I have 6 because I needed to include Christian Watson. Christian Watson was my number 6. Number 5, Treylon Burks. Number 4, Chris Olave. The only one to have him in my top 5. I was really high on him. I had him as high as 2, but then watching Garrett Wilson, watching London, I had to have those guys. So I had Drake London number 3, Garrett Wilson number 2, and then number 1, I must have said it 8 episodes in a row, Jameson Williams, my number 1. I still believe that he could definitely be one of the best wide receivers in this group. Top 5, no doubt. Top 3, no doubt, in my opinion. But, of course, that's put on hold. Garrett Wilson showed that he's a potential superstar in this league. Olave put up stupid numbers in his own right for a rookie season. But I'm very impressed with my list, to be completely honest with you. Treylon Burks, that's the one that I look out that stands out. But other than that, I have every other player that broke out this season.
Treylon's going to be healthy and show y'all.
Don't
You're
sleep on
right.
him.
I'm not sleeping. I'm not sleeping.
When he was
Jameson
healthy at the end of the
Williams,
year, he was balling. Man.
I'll be honest, Jameson Williams is what I'm worried about.
Yeah.
Later in the season when he was back and healthy, the Lions always ran a play to get him schemed wide open for a touchdown, and it was either Jared Goff just kept missing him.
They would get called. Someone got called back.
Yeah.
There was a couple penalties.
Jared
and
Goff
weird
kept
stuff.
missing him though.
But when he
and for
touched the
most
ball,
part.
he was fucking gone.
No, he was. So I think Jameson Williams definitely has that big playability.
Yes.
I just want to see it all materialize because
Understand.
I'm not the highest on Jared Goff.
It's just going to be tough. Perfectly said. It's going to be tough to incorporate him in your offense when you understand that Jared Goff's your quarterback. You're going to have to design plays for him, whether it's him getting it out of the backfield, screen passes, getting him time to create something with his legs. But I feel like that combination of route running, possession in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and his big playability in his own right, mixed with the combination of the deep threat, the ability to just take one at the line of scrimmage and crib it, just how fast Jameson Williams is, that'll be a great duo. But Jared Goff definitely could be the reason for concern with Jameson.
Yeah, I agree.
I
was going to mention
Lions
something.
fans thinking that Jared Goff's the franchise guy. I've seen a lot of people.
I think it's
don't
that.
tell them that.
I think
Goff
that
is
it's
throws.
that they're comfortable with Goff,
Yeah.
and they don't want to move 2 first-round picks to get Lamar Jackson when Goff is just good enough. He was a game away from making the playoffs against the Seahawks.
He's the ultimate bridge quarterback.
He is.
Listen, listen. When it comes to Jared Goff, and I'm gonna make this point about Jameson, DJ Chark going to Carolina is huge. He started 11 games. No, he played 11 games, and he had 502 receiving yards, which is solid. It's okay. It's solid production.
Role play receiver.
Now, not every receiver is a star, Dehls. I'm sorry. How many 1K receivers do we have, Dehls?
I said he's a
My
role
goodness.
player type receiver.
I feel like Dehls, this is the same thing that happened to Dehls last offseason.
I was on your side.
No. It's because I'm tired of it, Dehls. I'm tired of you thinking just because the receiver doesn't hit the 1K mark, they just get thrown in trash.
I was just saying 500 yards for DJ Chark is solid. He's a complimentary
Joel,
piece
that
to
is
an
what you do,
offense.
though. 1,000
What?
yards, you're not sold unless they have it.
He had 900. The wide receiver 2.
I would like 1,000 is just a pretty number to look at.
I couldn't agree more, though.
It is.
I'm with him.
But I know what you're saying.
The best receiver's got 1,000
But you
yards.
made that mistake with
Like-
the Chiefs, remember?
Why?
I said, the Chiefs, they have Kelsey, though. You're like, okay, but did they have a 1K receiver outside of that?
Did I
And I
say
said,
that?
you don't have to have it, Dehls.
Did
You
I say
have
that?
Juju.
Okay. I
You
probably
have
should get
MVS.
Mahomes.
What
Yeah,
you should have
just
just said
the
was
field.
they have Mahomes.
Yeah, that's
Then I would have been like, yeah.
you got it.
Well,
You're
I did
right,
tell
you're
you that
right,
all offseason, Drew. I'm sorry. You just said he has to prove it. That's what
He
you
did
said.
have to prove it. He did.
But I'm so Jameson Williams, now DJ Chark leaving, he now gets into that. Now he should
have been the
guy.
deep threat regardless if DJ Chark's stayed or not. You do not select the 10th overall pick, was it on Jameson?
Oh, yeah, no
to
doubt.
play DJ
But
Chark.
DJ
over him.
Chark and him are definitely similar play style.
Yeah.
DJ Chark's a good receiver, man. He
solid.
had 1,000 before.
And he's Jags, right?
Yeah, with the Jags. Yeah, but I agree. Jared Goff, I think, is a bridge quarterback, and we'll see how soon Lions fans actually figure that out. Right now, they're kind of in the honeymoon stage with him, so we'll see when they actually figure it out. Draft wide receivers.
You want me to go first?
You can go first, or yes.
All right, hot. So, of course, since I know what I'm doing here, I'm going to start from 5 to 1.
Ball nowhere. Is that so hard?
I was gonna literally
No,
do
you
that.
weren't.
I doubt it.
There's
I swear to
actually
God, I
not a
was
chance
gonna
in
do that.
God's name you can
You know
do
what?
that.
Actually, I was surprised to hear you go from 5 to 1 now. This is probably the first time you've ever gone 5 to 1
No,
reading
it's
your
not.
list.
Listen, before you go, Drew, I'm sorry because you were gonna go in 30 seconds, but Mojo right now. These are their top 5 wide receivers in the NFL draft. So we're going to see how our list basically compares to them. Number 1 for them is JSN. So JSN is number 1.
Rightfully
He's
so.
priced at $10. Jordan Addison is number 2. He's priced at $10 as well. Number 3 is Quentin Johnson at $9.50. He's teetering to that $10 price range. Number 4 is Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers in the past week, and this is my Mojo investment of the week, is up 18%. And there's been growing buzz around the league that he might be the first wide receiver taken. And Mojo, when it comes to projected value, they take that into account. So if Zay Flowers is indeed the first wide receiver taken, his price will jump up to $10, which would be a huge increase for him. Right. Number 5 is Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee.
That's my dog.
And those are the top 5 that Mojo has. 6 and 7 is Josh Downs and Marvin Mims. And then 8 is Keyshawn Boutte. Okay. Yep. So how does your list stack up to that, Drew?
So I have the exact same 5 players in my top 5. I just have it in a different order. So honorable mention, I want to make sure I throw this name out, how I threw in last year Christian Watson. I want to throw in Cedric Tillman out of Tennessee. Now, Cedric Tillman is a big body guy, 6'3", 215 pounds essentially. The issue is that he missed a lot of time last season. He stayed for an extra year. It was his 5th year at Tennessee because the year prior, he was phenomenal, had over 1,000 yards. The issue was that that was really his only year of solid production. And he decided that he wanted to stay an extra year because there was such an exorbitant amount of talent at the wide receiver position that this year's draft class, it's a little bit more up in the air. There's not really any true locked-in star potential how we saw it last season. So he said, hey, let me take one more year. Unfortunately, tried to bank on himself, and unfortunately, he ended up getting hurt. But he has great physical attributes. He ran a 5.45 for 6'3", 215 for a guy that physical. That is very solid. 5.454. Excuse me. That's what I meant to say. 5. Oh, excuse. Oh my God. 4.54. Yes. Jeez. And then when he was targeted, he had a quarterback rating of 155.8. He is one of those guys that I think that is just does nothing wrong. He has a very all-around skill set, has some very solid hands, has a great frame, and I think that he'll definitely be useful to an NFL team this upcoming season, especially late in the draft, which I think is where he will go. He will be one of those steals. So number 5 for me is going to be Quinn Johnson. Now, I understand that Quinn Johnson is high on John's list. We were going over the list prior to the show. I won't say where he is because I don't like to spoil things, but I have Quinn Johnson, number 5. And the reason why is because he did not have the crazy production. I understand I just vouched for a guy in Cedric Tillman, but Cedric Tillman is not my number 5. I have Quinn here because I understand the physical attributes. He did not run the 40 time at the combine, which is something that I would have liked to see. I don't believe his pro day has happened yet either, but the idea is that he is a 6'2", 213, 214-pound guy that could run a 4.4. 6'4". No, that's the thing. He
came in at
6'3".
6'3". Okay.
He came in at 6'2" at the combine.
He came in at 6'2" at the combine.
He's 6'2" in like 7/8, bro. You know what I'm saying?
If it's 7/8, then I'll give him 6'3".
He's basically 6'3".
If it's 7/8, I'll give him 6'3", no doubt about it. But the issue is that he had a bad drop problem this past season. And again, the production was not there, but because of the physical attributes, I have to throw him in my top 5. I see people having him as their top 2, number 1 even. For me personally, I just need to see it on that next level, but regardless, I'm going to trust his physical attributes, so I have him number 5. Number 4, and I was tempted to have this guy number 3 because I am so high on what he can be at the next level, is Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt is a burner. He ran a 4.4 at the combine. He is extremely fast. The one concern could be that you are not the most confident in his route tree. All he ran in college was the go route and slants, and then was whatever you can do after the catch. He is just insanely fast. And in the NFL, speed kills. And teams will use extremely high draft capital on a guy that can change an offense because of how fast they are. Ever since Tyreek Hill came into the league, all any team has tried to do is replicate that. And because of that, I expect him to still be drafted very high. I am very high on Jalen Hyatt to be 6 foot, to have the speed that he does. The one thing is, I would love for Jalen Hyatt to have a little bit more weight to him. He is on the lighter side. I think he's 174 off the top of my head, especially at 6 foot. You want to add a little meat on his bones, but other than that, He was great. In 12 games, 67 catches, 1,267 yards. He had 15 touchdowns, and when targeted, he had a quarterback rating of 156. I believe in Jalen Hyatt's talent. If he goes to a team like the Chargers, I am scared. You don't want to give Jalen Hyatt to a team that has a quarterback that can sling the ball down the field. He will be a strong threat to that team. Number 3, and I was convinced on this, is Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers, the one thing that did 2 things that concerned me. His size and his drops. And the one reason why I'm overlooking that is because of the versatility that he brings to the football field. He is a high-end gadget guy, and I don't want people to take gadget guy as an insult. It's not. It's a great thing if you're a gadget guy because that means you provide versatility, and that's exactly what he does. I look at him, and I see a smaller Deebo Samuel with his ability to do things on the football field that not many can. He can run jet sweeps. You can take a screen. He can take it to the crib. You can run design plays for him out of the backfield, and he can still make things happen. At 5'9", he still makes strong contested catches. I mentioned the drops, but after watching the tape, I see that he still makes strong contested grabs. He is a burner. He is the second fastest in this of my top 5. He is the second fastest. He ran a 4.4240. He is a phenomenal athlete, but he is not in my top 2. My number 2 is Jordan Addison. And I have Jordan Addison as my number 2 primarily because of the unbelievable season that I saw out of him his sophomore year, 2021 with Pittsburgh. Put up over 1,500 yards. He had 17 touchdowns. This is when Kenny Pickett was his quarterback. So I'm here for the argument. I can understand. I already know what the comment section is going to say. Hey, Caleb Williams was his quarterback. How did he not replicate that production at USC? I really couldn't tell you, really. It's a mind-boggling thing to me. But watching that tape 2021, he was special. He really was. His ability to separate, his ability to get open, his ability to have contested catches, his ability to create after catching the ball. Jordan Addison is one of the 2 guys that I am most comfortable with in this draft. And number 1 is going to be JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. Now, again, this is similar. And I understand with the comments. Why is this guy's top 2 players that this past season really were underwhelming? Why? Is because when I was watching the tape last year on Olave and Wilson, the guy that stole the show was JSN. I'm watching the tape. I'm like, who is this number 11? He's in every play. He's making something happen. Who is this? All it took was a quick Google search to see that this guy put up over 1,500 yards. In the biggest game of the year in the Rose Bowl, had 15 receptions for over 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. His route work is by far and away the best in this draft class. He ran a 4.5 at his pro day, and another. I spoke to Joel about this, and it's a fair issue to say that the 40 at the pro day is not always the cleanest. Because of the combine, they use lasers. It is more accurate than the pro day as opposed to just the hand stop watch. But regardless, I don't think that his game is predicated off speed. His game is predicated off of his route running ability, his great hands, his great footwork, and I think that with any football team, he will have success. So that is why I have JSN my number 1. So just to repeat, honorable mention, Cedric Tillman. Number 5, Quinn Johnson. Number 4, Jalen Hyatt. Number 3, Zay Flowers. Number 2, Jordan Addison. And number 1, JSN.
So I think definitely next week when we do running backs, we'll just go 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Just to make it more of a conversation. Nothing against your list.
No.
It's just like I noticed it like when you were on your second receiver, like this would be better if we just had a just flowing conversation. Yeah. So we can each give our honorable mention if you guys want.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with your list. I think your list is good.
I thought it was good too. I already know what one of your honorable mentions is going to be, so I won't take that guy, brother of someone on the Jets, not actual brother. Mine is Kayshon Boutte. Yeah. Not because I think he's going to be great in the NFL. I really don't know what Kayshon Boutte is going to be, but I wanted to bring him up just because coming into this year, really it's been 2 years, but his freshman year at LSU, he put up over 735 yards, 18 years old as a freshman, and dominated. This is after Jettis had left and Jamar Chase and them guys. But he went out there and dominated his freshman year. These last 2 years, all the hype has been Kayshon Boutte, wide receiver 1 in 2023. And then these last 2 years, he's had really bad ankle injuries, I want to say, lower body injuries. He's had a few issues off the field. And I'm like, all right, well, this is all, kind of spiraling out of control. And then he goes to the combine, has a pretty bad combine too, as the athletic scores do not match up. but his raw talent, I still believe in from he was that 18-year-old freshman. I'm just curious to see where he gets drafted because I do think the off-the-field stuff might get into this, and he might end up being a day 3 pick who has the talent of a day 2 or maybe even first-round pick.
So that was your number 5, not honorable
Just honorable mention, yeah.
Okay, honorable mention, okay.
All right, and I'm going to comment on all of these just so I'm not completely out.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to comment on your list first.
Cool.
Because a player that made your top 5 is not in my top 5.
And when we spoke about this, I was still shocked, but go ahead.
I'm low on Jalen Hyatt.
That's my dog.
He's a speedster. He's very fast. Tennessee's offense worries me. Tennessee's offense.
It didn't worry about with Hooker.
Hendon Hooker, to me, has some
upside
red flags that I don't like a lot.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I have to overlook it because I do like his character a lot. But with Hendon Hooker...
Hendon's your quarterback 4, correct?
Quarterback 4, yeah. Just above Will Levison. I don't know. I'm not the most confident in that because Hendon Hooker is very flat-footed. And at Tennessee, most of his reads were half-field reads. He wasn't reading the entire field. He didn't really do much. And it's a good thing and a bad thing that when there's pressure barreling down in his face, he doesn't really care and he just throws passes anyway. Mm-hmm. But that's a bad thing because, I mean, he's not navigating the pocket.
Yeah.
His pocket navigation, it's non-existent. It's either he's choosing to take off and scramble or he's just sitting there flat-footed, not even with his feet kind of like, bouncing and staying ready. It's just like this, a statue, just waiting for a guy to hit you or just waiting for your read to come open. With Jalen Hyatt, what worries me is Jalen Hyatt. What worries me about Jalen Hyatt is that he's not a good route runner.
He's a one-trick pony.
He is.
He's a one-trick pony.
He's a goal ball guy. He's a slant guy. If he gets space and somebody misses a tackle, yeah, he can take it to the house. If your safety's playing a little bit too tight, he could definitely burn you, no doubt about it. But at the next level, to me, he projects like McCole Hardman. He projects like just a deep threat guy. Yeah. And in his tape, even when he had the ball in his hands and he was a ball carrier, he doesn't juke. He's not shifty. He's straight line, and that to me shows me that the route running might not be there anyway. Like the route, he might not develop route running if he can't at the NFL. He's not 4.3. He's not high. He's not low 4.2.
His play speed is faster than that 40.
No doubt. I think that he could have definitely. I thought he was going to run in the 4.3s.
Is still great though.
It is.
I thought he was.
People in the comments were making a good point. It's not a burner because people are getting caught up in the 4.28s, the 4.3s. I get it. We've seen some crazy athletes these last couple of years.
Even
but
the fastest 40s are not usually good receivers.
No, that's a fact.
The thing about Jalen Hyatt though is that just route running, short, intermediate, non-existent. One trick pony.
Who knows?
Yeah. And on top of that, he just lacks strength. He gets rerouted very easily.
He's 180 pounds. Yeah.
Because of that, that worries me a lot. Josh Downs to me is smaller. He's 5'9", 171, but I trust his route running ability more.
His footwork is very good. And I will say his ability to separate off the line is obviously one of the main reasons why he's able to get open down the field. You have to get by. You're saying the press is an issue. Understandable, 6 foot, 170 something. That's not the most ideal, but his ability to get open is still very adamant. It is very present against Alabama, one of the better defense in the country. Over 200 yards, 5 touchdowns. Yeah, it's just what he's capable of.
The production is going to be there, Drew, and that's the thing for me. Like Jalen Hyatt, you can't argue against the production. The Alabama game was ridiculous. I've never seen that happen to an Alabama defense. But in that, it's just Jalen Hyatt running straight, and that's it. It's nothing like him beating defenders with his routes. And even Hendon Hooker is a victim of that. Hendon Hooker, like we mentioned on last pod, first in QBR in the country before he got hurt. He wasn't first in the country at the quarterback. Yeah. It's very system reliant. That's my thing. But number 5, I have Jordan Addison.
Who's your honorable mention?
Honorable mention is Josh Downs at 6.
Oh, I thought you were gonna do Marvin Mims.
No, he's in my top 5.
Yeah, he is in his top 5.
My bad for spoiling.
Yeah.
My bad.
Number 5 to me is Jordan Addison. He had phenomenal production at Pitt. That's probably due to being in the ACC versus the Pac-10. I get the Pac-10 isn't known for defenses, but the ACC is a weak conference. He's a good route runner. I like Jordan Addison a lot and how he projects as a wide receiver number 2. He's slippery out of the catch. To me, it's just about his frame. And if he's going to get rerouted consistently at the next level.
Is he 5'11"?
6 foot. 6 foot.
Okay.
Yeah, he's 5'11", 173 pounds. So that to me, the strength I'm not too comfortable with. And almost half of his catches at USC came off of screens.
Can I ask, is weight starting not to be a factor? Or is it
It's
dependent
still-
on your route running?
It's
Which
still a factor.
I agree.
Because Smitty's still an outlier. Even
Yeah, he
Waddle,
is an outlier.
Waddle came in late, but he's stocky, and he's just a special type of athlete.
But exactly because how
But
blazing
it's
fast he is.
it's definitely still an outlier for most guys, 170 around that range. But I think Addison can break that mold because he has a lot of good, other traits.
And just for the rule changes that we've seen for the wide receiver position that have only benefited them, I feel like this is another thing that is especially, you really can't get as handsy as you once used to at the line of scrimmage. You really can't.
At the line, yes. Past like 5-10 yards now.
Facts.
But at the line of scrimmage, they can definitely jam you. And
can.
yeah.
yeah, there's ways to get around it
Yeah,
though.
facts.
It's
Jordan Addison, though, I like him. He's a good route runner. I don't see him beating like top corners in the league, but
You don't see him as number one.
nah.
See him
I
as a
think
good
he's
number
the one
two
thing
or
about
a great
him.
number two?
I think right now I would say good.
The thing
Good
about those
number
wide
two, though.
receivers is it's not last year's draft class. It's not the year before's draft class. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I'm still higher. I'm high on Addison, though. I will say that.
Jordan Addison, yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah.
He did. But like I said, like a little less than half of his catches last year were screens. They weren't asking him to do much. But,
yeah, but
at Pitt, he did more.
We know what he can
No
do.
doubt. No doubt.
He also
That's
had an
my
ankle injury in October that caught him, I think, a month last year at USC.
Yeah, he only played 11 games and still had 900 yards. I'll go with my number 5 here. We just talked about him a bunch, so I won't go into detail, but I have Jalen Hyatt at 5. I don't love this wide receiver class, really.
No.
So Hyatt being 5, it's like I like Mims, I like Downs. Boute's probably not in there, but I like his upside. But Hyatt at 5, what we talked about, it's really just his speed and his big playability. He averaged 19 yards per catch last season. I mean, just some really silly shit. He did win the Biletnikoff, which is for best wide receiver in the class. Just his combination of size and speed at 6 foot 180, which isn't a big guy, but for this class, 6 foot is one of the
6'1"
bigger. Yeah, exactly.
feel like
6
it.
foot in this class basically is like 6'4". But the concerns are definitely valid and real. He is a one-trick pony. He's just going deep. That's basically all Tennessee's offense was, and which is why I had some concerns with Hendon Hooker. But I have less concern about receiver translating than I do a quarterback, especially when you have his top-end speed. I know a 4.4 isn't ideal for a guy who wins basically just on speed, but as I mentioned, I think his play speed is a lot faster than that. And to go off the whole press coverage thing, he only faced press 62 times his entire collegiate career. That was from PFF. So he, seen it a couple times a season. To be fair, if you're a defense, I don't know if pressing him is the best idea, because if he gets one step on you, it's game over and he could take it to the crib. But there's definitely some issues with facing press. Then after the catch, he only forced 8 missed tackles all of last season. He's a guy that's going to go deep. He could take the top off of a defense. Drew tweeted this out. The Chargers are a team that is desperate for speed and kind of has the possession guys with Keenan and Mike Williams being a contested ball type of receiver. So really depending on team fit and how creative the OC can get, that's going to determine how great Hyatt could be in the NFL.
To add to Joel, of course, number 1 in terms of touchdowns on 20-yard
20
plus
plus, yeah.
targets. He had 677 yards, which was also first among those targets as well. The guy is a deep threat, one of the best deep threats, are probably in this class, the best deep threat in this class.
It seems like he's one of the premier boom or bust guys, where there's a lot of Mike Wallace comparisons where, the speed is there to be a big time deep threat.
Johnny
but
Knox.
I've seen Will Fuller get comped to him a lot.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. My honorable mention
It's a
is
shame, man. Too fast for his own hamstrings.
My honorable mention is Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. One thing about my Steelers, they like receivers. They usually hit on them. Mike Tomlin's been working with him a little bit. He doesn't have elite speed, doesn't have elite size, but at 6'1", he has the physicality to play in the slot, but also the short area quickness to get open quickly. I think Xavier Hutchinson's probably going to go in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe like early day 3 or early 3rd round. He's going to be a really good player, I think. I think a lot of people overlook the players that don't have the elite physical tools, but do happen to be really good football players. One of my favorite guys, Juju Smith-Schuster, is a great example of that, where Juju doesn't have that elite
That's a
level
shame.
skill, but he does all the little things. He has
For
the
him to be one of your
hands,
favorite
he can
players?
block. I love Juju.
That sucks.
He's a great player, great teammate, Super Bowl champion. I know your Broncos haven't had too many of those recently.
What are you talking about?
You
We
heard
just
me?
won them in 2016. What about the Steelers? You said you weren't even alive to watch.
I was 5 years old.
Oh, got it. Go ahead.
But I think Xavier Hutchinson is, he's going to do a little bit of everything on the next level. He'll be one of the better receivers in this draft class, no doubt. Number 5 for me is so weird. I went between Josh Downs. He seems like he's just going to be a slot receiver at the next level, but at 5'9", he has a 3-sport background. He's a little bit like more athletic. He plays bigger than 5'9". I have Hyatt at 6, Josh Downs at 5, and then I went back and forth between those two guys.
That's fair.
Number 4 for me, I have Quentin Johnson. I think his potential is he has wide receiver body
So
type.
you moved things around after our conversation.
Quentin Johnson is number 4 for me. 6'3", 208 pounds. He was second most athletic wide receiver at the combine. Given he didn't run a 40, so that probably inflated his thing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
He has long strides. I'll be honest. I don't see top end NASCAR speed with Quentin Johnson. I think he's fast. He has long strides. He can definitely get away from defenders, but I don't see that top end speed with him. The negatives with him are just that he's below average at stacking corners. He's inconsistent at finishing catches through contact.
For sure.
He's a big receiver. He doesn't play like a big receiver, and I think that's going to be the biggest challenge for a coaching staff to try to get out of him is to play a little bit bigger. On Twitter, I had a draft take that I think the Giants are going to trade up to draft Zay Flowers. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Thinking back on it and just looking at the profile of wide receivers the Giants currently have,
They have all slot receivers.
they have Paris Campbell. They have Darius Lane, who's like a deep threat.
Isaiah Hodgins.
They have Isaiah Hodgins.
Guess that's your
Shepard came back. To me, it feels like the Giants are missing a big body receiver.
For sure.
And that's why I wouldn't be mad at the Giants taking him because I think that's what they lack. They have Waller, but if we can have Johnson and Hodgins and a guy like Campbell or Slane to, just stretch the defense vertically, I think they'd be fine with that. But he's athletic as hell. And that's why I was disappointed watching his tape because he has a 40.5-inch vertical. He had an 11'2" broad jump.
Yeah,
I mean, this guy is a freak athlete.
He is a freak athlete.
So if he puts together, he's the one that last draft, we talk about the Traylon Burks of the world and how physically imposing someone like that is. This draft version of it is Quentin Johnson. And if Quentin Johnson hits on all of those check marks and he gets better, he can definitely be you could arguably say he's the best receiver in this class. Because he's the only one that profiles as a legit wide receiver 1 in terms of his profile and his body.
His physique, no doubt.
What do you think with Quentin? So he's 6'3", doesn't play like a big receiver. I think of one comparison I see from is Demaryius Thomas, who also struggled with that, but got a little bit better and then became a wide receiver 1. Do you think that that could be an outcome for him?
When I think a lot of the comps that I've seen for Quentin Johnson have been a Martavis Bryant.
Seen that too.
I think that's fair. I think Martavis Bryant is a good comp for him.
Bryant was more smooth though.
Yes.
He was a really smooth route runner with his strides. Johnson has the long strides like him, but he's much more like mechanical almost. Like he's not as smooth when he's running his routes. But you want to talk about Quinn? I'll talk about Quinn more, but I'll go to my number 4. Zay Flowers. Seems like you might be a little bit high on this guy as well. Out of Boston College. His number 1 concern would get out of the way. He's 5'9". 5'9", 180. So him and Josh Downs I see very similar. The only difference is Zay Flowers does have 10 pounds on him. And going from 170 to 180 is a big deal for me. 170, you're in a lot of weird outliers where it's really just Smitty in that 170 category. Deshaun Jackson was like 165. Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson, one of the fastest players the game's ever seen.
So you have very small sample size of guys winning at 170 pounds. But Zay Flowers at 180, I think the comps are a lot better. That's the kind of the Waddle territory he gets to. He ran a 4.42 at the combine, 35.5 vert, and a 10.7 broad jump. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a crazy good athlete. And outside of the speed, he has great ball skills. I think in terms of releases, him and Downs, I keep comparing them because they're very similar. They have some of the best releases and footwork in this draft class. I think tracking the deep ball as well, he's really good at doing that. And after the catch might be his best trait. His ability to make guys miss with the ball in his hands, mostly doing that, with finesse moves rather than power, being a smaller guy. But you could also use him in jet sweeps and the screen game. It's really just the size at 5'9". You're probably going to be looking at him as a slot receiver. He doesn't really, a prototypical X receiver is not going to be 5'9", 180, right? So depending on where he goes, I've said this with Hyatt as well, but really depending on the team and the offensive coordinator spot. Like if he ended up with the Giants with Dable, I'd feel fantastic about it. If he ended up with, I was going to say the Steelers, but even
Patriots
how bad
or
Matt
Chiefs.
Canada is, you guys develop receivers. Patriots, I would look at this and but this might be another bust for them. But I'm high on Zay Flowers. I'm getting more onto the route running, smaller guys who could win with their feet and their route running over the more physical guys, kind of how I did with Treylon last year. So I like Zay Flowers in this draft.
This draft is filled with those.
Exactly.
It's the majority of that. Who's your fourth?
A lot of
John?
Elijah Moores in this draft.
No.
A lot of Elijah Moores.
Trying to think where he was. Okay, where
Ole
my
Miss.
4 was also Zay Flowers. I think he has a lot more, especially he is 5'9", but I think he's a lot more upside to being X with his big play potential at Boston College. He slipped a little bit under the radar. 4-year player there, just had his first 1,000-yard season, if memory serves. But I think Zay has a lot more upside to be an X, whereas with Jordan Addison, in my tier 2, I kind of look at Addison as the pure slot guy, but with Zay Flowers, I think he could be a little bit more of an X. While he is undersized, I think he can overcome that to some degree at the next level.
Yeah.
My number 3 is Marvin Mims.
Here we go.
He's 23. He's 21 years old.
Moved him up from 4 to 3 after our conversation.
He turned 21 10 days ago.
Young.
So he's a young 21 years old. I don't know why more people are not talking about Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is 5'11",
Tape's clean.
183 pounds.
Bigger receivers.
He ran a 4.38. He's very fast. He
Nah,
ran
the
a
tape was
better
clean.
40 than Jalen Hyatt. And just like you mentioned with Jalen Hyatt, Marvin Mims averaged 20 yards per reception.
Yep.
He was a big play threat. And Joe, you're very high on receivers that perform at a young age because
very high.
you know it projects to the next level. Marvin Mims broke out at 18 years old at Oklahoma.
Freshman.
This guy was a staple of that offense.
And not only, sorry to cut you off, but he still has the Texas State record for receiving yards in a single season and in career. We know how many great players come out of Texas. So he's been doing this since he was fucking 14 years old as a freshman.
So he's physical at the catch point. He's a very physical receiver. There's a bunch of highlights of him just making crazy contested catches.
No doubt.
He's great against single coverage. He has game-changing speed. He had 1,000 yards this past season in Oklahoma
Playing the
and
slot
6 touchdowns.
outside.
Yeah, I just like Marvin Mims a lot, man. You know, I think the same things you can say that are positives for Jalen Hyatt or Josh Downs are also positives for Marvin Mims. He's somebody that he's going to be a steal for a team in day 2, day 3.
Yeah.
I think he's
What's
going to
his
be
weight?
He's 183 pounds.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's tougher than that.
yeah, he is going to be somebody that in the
His
third
His
round,
contested catches are great. Now, he had some nuts highlights.
like in the third round, Chargers snagging him. That would be
Chargers
like an
getting every
ideal
receiver.
fit. Yeah, you know, every
The
guy
Chargers
wants full
desperately
forward.
need a
do.
receiver. That's
They
why we
do.
continuously bring them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, Marvin Mims to me, I think he's really good. I think he's getting underrated in this draft.
Yeah, Mims
process.
was going to be my honorable mention. I should have known after talking to you that he would not be an honorable mention to be in your top 5.
Yeah, of course.
And I wanted to give Joel credit because we're having the conversation. He's like, yo, look up Mims highlights.
Yeah.
Do yourself that favor and do some research. So I did. Unbelievable tape. And that's the reason I decided to not over exaggerate, put him in my list because I definitely think he's gonna be a solid ball player in the league.
Yeah, like Joel mentioned, I love the guys that break out early, 18, 19 years old, has a very strong history of translating to the NFL.
So if Mims balls out, I'll be on air saying, Joel put me on.
Okay, that's
And
fair.
before you
Kind
go,
of like Anthony
Dehls,
Black.
there
No,
was
that's
there was
different.
before you go, Dehls, there was this thing on Twitter. He tweeted it. It was from Marcus Mosher, and it was talking about Marvin Mims. 4.38 speed, 9.13 RES score, athletic score, which is a great score.
Yeah.
99.9 PFF grade versus single coverage, 96 percentile breakout age, 96 percentile A dot, 91st percentile burst score, and 20.1 yards per reception. He
naughty
feels
stuff.
like somebody that, you know, should be higher. I understand the weight issues are a bit of a concern, and he probably has to bulk up a little bit. But yeah, I think he's a cool
He could be a better
third
route
round
runner,
guy.
and that's
You know,
another
and
reason
this
why
is what I'm
he's
saying,
not that
like,
high.
I'd rather draft Marvin Mims, and I hope this doesn't age poorly, but I'd rather draft Marvin Mims in the third round than drafting Jordan Addison in the first round. Just in terms
Better
of
value
value, That's what I'd like to do, and watch watch Jordan Addison now become like Justin Jefferson and
Gotta
shit.
watch more.
And then Marvin Mims is like Jalen Rager.
Mims is solid.
He's good.
Mims is solid. I'm gonna go with Addison though.
I respect that. Number 3, I have Quentin Johnson here. I couldn't get him in my top 2, but I also really couldn't drop him out of the top 5 just because of his upside. The floor is low, but the ceiling is high with him.
Agreed.
The positives, size, speed combination, 6'3" or 6'2", I guess, 210. It's something that this is a one of one in this class. There is no other guy built like him in this class with this speed who's actually going to be an NFL player. I mean, you're going to have guys, in the 3rd round that have this size and speed combination, but not with the productivity as well. 40.5-inch vert, 11'2" broad jump, huge catch radius. He could put pressure on defense, create big plays at any time, and is really good after the catch. But there are some real concerns with him. I think number 1 is his hands. He had a 12% drop rate, which is going to be the highest among basically all of these guys. 12% is out of this world high for a drop rate. If you have 60 catches, that's like 7 drops, right? That's not ideal.
I think he had 9, which was tied for, I think he was like 10th most in the nation. Not great.
And this season was a bit inconsistent for him. I think as a guy who we're projecting to be a possible wide receiver 1 in this class, the fact that he had games where he disappeared isn't ideal, especially with Max Duggan, who I don't think is going to be a great NFL quarterback, but he's not a scrub, right? He might get drafted on day 3. He's a guy that you can't look at the quarterback and say that's the issue why Quinn Johnson didn't produce. And it's not that he wasn't productive this year, but you just expect maybe more than 6 touchdowns from a guy with this size, especially when Duggan threw over 30 this past season. But he has the size you just can't teach in this class with the speed. Like I said, the floor is low with the route running, the limited route tree, with the drops. There's some glaring concerns on tape, and I don't want to just throw that away. But I think his upside is so high, especially when you're talking about a lot of guys who are 5'9", 5'10", 170, 180. It's hard for me to not have Johnson in my top 3.
We're gonna have this. I feel like Dugan missed a lot of different shots. And he didn't hit
wasn't
them. He
perfect.
missed reads. So while he was it second Heisman, something like that? Great year.
Yeah, he was in a finalist.
I just
TCU had
felt
a
like
great season.
Yeah, they did have a great season. I felt like there was a lot more that could have been unlocked with Johnson, where he kind of missed some reads. That was my point of view.
That's fair.
Who's your 3rd?
My 3rd was I was torn between Addison and Flowers, where I think Flowers has a little bit more upside. But with Addison, you know that you're going to get someone with quick twitch. He's 6 foot, right? Yep. He doesn't have elite speed, but as a slot receiver, I think Jordan Addison's going to be really good at the next level. He'll project as a perfect number 2, maybe the ideal number 3. I know a lot of people mocked into my Steelers. I don't view him as number 1. I don't think he will. I wouldn't take him in the top 15, but I do think Addison is the right type of receiver with the short to intermediate game, with the ability to take a top over defense. He has that in store. We saw that in his sophomore year at Pitt to be one of the 2 best receivers in this draft class. The floor is higher with him, but I just don't think the ceiling, the upside is there as much to take him like the top 15 picks, like I said before.
Number 2, I'm going with JSN. Speed, lack of top speed.
You're losing me.
Is not a concern, but you'd like him to have it. I will say that with JSN.
What happened to prior to the show? We all have JSN number 1, right?
Anything for the internet.
With JSN, JSN 6'5", 7'3" cone. He didn't test it at the 40. He didn't run the 40, so he was the 4th most athletic wide receiver.
His combine showing was
in the combine
good, though.
because of all the other wide receiver oriented drills that he's great at. And I think the role he played in college, and this is not the case for every receiver that comes to the draft, the role he played in college is where he's going to play in the NFL. He is going to be a slot receiver.
Yes.
And he's going to be one of the best ones in the league at
Absolutely.
it. Like, there's no doubt about
I'm
that.
with you.
I struggle thinking about him playing on the outside. I don't know if that's going to be his game, and that's why he's not number 1 for me, because I think Zay Flowers can be that. But yeah, I mean, elite shiftiness, agility. The ball is in his hands. He tends to have a second gear that he can get to, and he runs faster, it seems like. And he just has a knack for making guys miss. The separation issues, for me, come when he plays on the outside. Will he be able to separate against a Sauce Gardner?
No.
One of the top corners in the league.
That's unfair.
I mean, these are the top receivers in the league.
He's not going to match
They're
up with
the
Sauce
top.
either.
They're the top
But
receivers in the
that's
league
what I'm
that
saying.
get locked up by Sauce.
But that's what I'm saying, though, is that on the outside, when you're facing NFL level corners, and I understand he's the elite of the elite, but when you're facing a Jamel Dean on the outside,
Okay, thank you.
Are
Maybe
you
lower the level.
can you win that matchup? So for me, JSN, I think in the slot is his perfect role.
Yeah.
he has said that he can play on the outside. I want to see it because
6'1", 2 something.
195.
I'll look it up.
Because second year of college, you have Garrett Wilson and Olave on the outside. That automatically makes you getting the third best corner matchup. You know, guys are paying more attention to Garrett and Olave. I understand he had better stats, but he wasn't getting paid as much attention to. And then this past season, hamstring injury. Does that zap his agility, quickness a little bit? Not sure. And hamstring things tend to, sometimes they linger on. You never know.
But it's
So
been
for
a
me,
minute.
Don't do that.
All I'm saying is JSN, I think it's close. I think these are tier one guys for me. Zay Flowers, I'll just he's my number one because Zay Flowers is legit, man. He is a lightning rod, 4'4", 140.
Joel,
when you talk about his route running,
merchant,
he had. I'm not a Chris Sims.
number one?
he had Zay 1.
No. A lot of people have Zay Flowers number one. Brett Coleman also has Zay Flowers number one. Yeah, Zay Flowers.
Before you go on, JSN 6', 196. Good.
There's a reason why Zay Flowers is moving up on GM's radars in the draft.
Yeah.
And the concerns about his size, I am not concerned about his size. He's 5'9", yes. He put on 13 pounds of muscle. He has on his Twitter a comparison before and after. He's 5'9", stocky built.
He's Aki.
If Tyler Lockett can be a consistent 1,000-yard receiver in the NFL, Zay Flowers, who has more mass than him and is probably as explosive as him, can do the same thing. The reason why Zay is number one to me is because I think he's more than a slot. I think he can play on the outside. He had some reps in college where he went against Sauce, and he got the best of him on some of those reps. And if his quarterback wasn't dog shit, he would have beat him for a touchdown.
Yeah.
So Zay Flowers has shown that, and in college, he's run every single route in the game. It's not like a Jalen Hyatt who is 2 routes, go and slant. That's it. Zay Flowers has run every route.
Michael Thomas made almost a Hall of Fame career off his slant. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a false narrative. And Zay Flowers, he ran every route precisely and great. And that's the reason why I have a number one. But JSN, I'm not mad at it. I just think Zay Flowers can be an outside guy.
I get it. I'm just joshing.
That's fair. Number 2, and these top 2 guys I have in tier 1 of this class. Number 2 is Jordan Addison. First thing I think of, and the only thing I think of, he might be the smoothest receiver in this class, in and out of breaks. When he runs, everything just seems so smooth and fluid and come easy for him. Unlike JSN, I think he does have better top-end speed, and his ability to get in and out of breaks, I think he does with more burst than JSN, who I'll say now is my number 1 wide receiver. But I think for his size, being only 6 foot, 170-ish pounds, I think he's above average in terms of being a 50-50 ball kind of contested receiver type of guy. I know last season he dealt with some injuries. He played 11 games at USC and still had around 900 yards. His previous season is when he won the Biletnikoff Award with Pitt, with Kenny Pickett there. That's when he put up 1,500 yards in just a stupid season. I think he could play in the slot or outside. At Pitt, he lined up out wide just 32% of the time, but at USC this past season, he lined up out wide 75% of the time. So he has the ability to go on both sides. I know in the Pac-12 isn't the fiercest of competition when it comes to defenses and playing physical. Those guys on the West Coast aren't exactly the same as the Alabamas and Georgias of the world, but he did enough to show, to his defense, though, or I guess to his benefit, having Kenny Pickett and Caleb Williams helps a lot. 2 first-round picks. Kenny Pickett has done a good job with the Steelers, and Caleb Williams will likely be the first overall pick next season. So I really like Jordan Addison, what he could do at the next level. But my number 1 is JSN. It's been my number 1 receiver for a year now. Like Drew mentioned when he was going over his top 5, when we were watching Garrett Wilson Olave last year, JSN looked like the best receiver on tape. As a true sophomore, he put up 95 catches for 1,600 yards and 9 touchdowns. This was an Ohio State team with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, 2 first-round picks, Marvin Harrison Jr., his freshman year, but probably the first receiver selected in 2024, Jeremy Ruckert, who was a 3rd, 4th-round pick by the Jets, Emeka Abuka is probably going to be a first-round pick as well, and you also have Travion Henderson, who might be the running back one in 2024 class. So this Ohio State offense last season was one of the best we have ever seen, or 2 seasons ago at this point, and JSN was by far the best wide receiver on this team. I just don't really see many weaknesses. I understand the size, and he does he is the prototypical slot receiver. But I think, offensive coordinators and head coaches and teams nowadays, it's not about what your weaknesses are. It's about what are your strengths and what can you do best. And I don't think there's really anyone in this class that could be as good at JSN being in the slot, being able to break down defenders. So he's my number one.
JSN reminds me a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yep.
Two guys their junior year missed a lot of time. I mean, JSN played 3 games this last season, but the sophomore year was beyond special. I talked about Addison, how he can be a really good slot receiver. With JSN, you know exactly what you're getting. There's not a receiver in this draft with a higher floor. I don't think there's any chance because I don't think many teams, any team would draft him in the top 10 to put him on the outside. Like, I don't think any team is doing enough to do that. But if you put him on the inside where he's most comfortable, he is a natural by every count. I mean, like you said before, Marvin Harrison on the team barely played as a freshman. Yeah. That was because of how great that receiving core was. Yep. JSN was a huge part of that. My number one, though, is Quentin Johnston. Quentin Johnston.
Your number 2 was
JSN. TCU.
Got
Yep. Quentin Johnston, I know especially the short game is not there quite, but his acceleration in and out, and also his intermediate game, his run after the catch ability. If you get him the football, he's going to make plays on the next level. And I think there's not a receiver in this draft with a higher ceiling, higher upside. Because at 6'3", he definitely has to work on the contested catch stuff. He can improve the hands. But I think if you put him in an offense with a really good quarterback that's going to involve him heavily, he'll make big-time plays. You just got to give him an opportunity. And I think Max Duggan last year didn't do enough quite exactly down the field when he was open, great separation with his acceleration. He is just, by every measure, an absolute dynamo. You talked about how Zay Flowers, he's a lightning rod. I think with Quentin Johnston with that size at 6'4", the Martavis Bryant comparison on steroids type of comparison is what I would equate it to. And a little bit Demaryius Thomas out to the catch as well.
I'm trying to get these Zay Flowers before and after because it's pretty remarkable.
Nice pin tweet.
Yeah, of him. He put on a lot of weight. He put on 13 pounds, like straight muscle.
So his lack of production is not a worry for you?
By lack of production, lack of touchdowns?
A little bit of both.
I think his quarterback, while he'd had a productive season, he was very limited and missed a lot of reads. So I think a lot of that does go on the quarterback. While TCU was great, the offense was awesome. They didn't involve him again. Didn't give him the football enough.
How many receivers would you take in the first round? The guys we mentioned.
This draft?
Yes, because I think that's the better question. Because I love JSN and Jordan Addison, Quentin Johnston, but those might be the only 3 I would look and have a first round grade on.
I would take those top 4. I would take Quentin Johnston in the top 15. I wouldn't take him in the top 10 because there is a low floor there. Zay Flowers, I think he has so much upside. I'd take him in the first round, top 15. JSN, I'd probably take in the top 20, top 15-ish.
4 guys.
4 guys. The 4th being Jordan Addison, I would take in the top 20 for sure.
Zay, with how versatile he is and the way that he's been climbing up draft boards, no doubt. Jordan Addison deserves to be a first-round pick. JSN will be a first-round pick. I'm hoping that my prediction is right. He will go 12 to the Texans, and then Quentin Johnston will be a first-round pick as well.
That's fair.
There's the before and after.
Yeah, hey. He got bigger.
Drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
He got bigger.
I think I'll just screenshot it, and I'll just maybe put it on StreamYard right now.
Just show everyone.
Yeah.
You know what?
Show everybody
right.
Zay Flowers.
Let me open YouTube real quick.
So I'm going to drop it in the chat shortly, just getting the picture to add it.
This is an interesting wide receiver class. The tight ends are honestly more talented than these receivers. This tight end class is...
Oh, this tight end class is special.
It's
I'm
going to
excited.
basically...
This is
reset.
Zay Flowers before and after.
Yeah, you just
You
put
can
it up.
see there.
Yeah. That's Zay Flowers before and after.
All right, here's the difference. He's smiling. His upper pec is definitely more defined. His abs are just, honestly,
His
they look
arms.
exactly the same. His shoulders are a significant difference. You see him be a little bit more broader. His
He just
traps,
looks
no
bigger all
doubt.
around.
Yeah.
He had a 13 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, 13's
Yo, they're breaking
13's
down
strong.
this man. This is kind of crazy.
I mean,
Hey, bro, that's what you got to
physique, bro.
do. That's what you got to do.
Zay Flowers' ability to change direction,
What's your comp?
accelerate, decelerate.
Do you have a
My
comp?
comp.
Putting you on the spot. If you don't have one, you don't have
What was Brandon Cook's 40 time?
I think Brandon Cooks is a fair
4-4,
comp.
Yeah.
probably.
What was it?
That's what I would say.
4-4, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Oh.
Brandon Cooks is the guy that comes to mind.
for like the top scouts. He has been compared
4-3.
to Steve
Break it
Smith.
down.
Compared him to himself.
Okay.
Steve
that's
Smith
high praise.
has said that he believes he's special, and he believes that he can be just as good as him, if not better. Like, he has everything he has and a bit more. So, I mean, obviously Steve Smith's one of the best receivers to ever play the game, but that's lofty praise. And, you know, Chris Sims Merchant, definitely him being number one, I was like, you know what? I'm comfortable making him number one then.
Okay.
You know, I'm comfortable.
I was just joking, obviously. You know,
A lot of people have him number one. Brett Coleman does. Steve Smith probably has a number one as well.
I saw
him
I
kill
could
at
have
the
sworn
Shrine
that
Bowl.
he was saying JSN was number one, but Zay deserves high praise.
Steve Smith talked about him being a great slot, and JSN kind of took offense to it because
Oh, really?
Steve Smith was like, "Oh, I don't, you know, he's a great slot," and JSN responded on Twitter by saying, "I can play on the outside too."
Him.
So I think that Steve Smith was praising the slot ability, where Zay Flowers is kind of all over the field, and
He is.
he just has, it's just his deceptiveness with his route running. It's just really awesome. I think that he's going to be a big time player. That's why if the Giants draft him with Brian Dable, this guy might be an offensive rookie of the year if he goes there.
Over Bijan?
Look at this sick route, Dehls. Like, come on.
If Bijan goes to the Cowboys, I feel like that's his reward.
anywhere.
Out of this year's
Look at
wide
that
receiver class, what player would you be least surprised by completely breaking out into a superstar? I'm talking a 1,300-yard guy.
Least surprised, I'm just gonna go JSN. I'd
He's
be
my
least
number one
surprised.
receiver, so
yeah.
I feel like it's hard not to.
I'd be least surprised.
Least
Johnson
surprised
for
of
you?
what?
That would be
To
the
absolutely break out into a top 15, top 10 receiver.
It's
in
hard
3
for me to
years.
see any of these
Yeah,
guys, really.
I don't know.
JSN has a
JSN's
chance.
dog.
I'll be honest. I think that being comfortable with the take, JSN is the first wide receiver drafted, even though I think there's a big chance Zay Flowers gets drafted first.
I think the
Zay
Patriots are taking that
Flowers,
14.
Zay Flowers will be the second wide receiver drafted without a doubt. Number 3 is going to be Quentin
Jumped over
Johnson.
him?
Quentin
drafted
Johnson,
over
due
him.
to his frame and size, I think a team's not going to pass on that. Jordan Addison 4. Number 5, I think I'm going to go Josh Downs before Jalen Hyatt. Then I go Jalen Hyatt.
Okay.
And you think
I thought
Mims
respect
falls
to
to
you're
the
my
third.
guy. You're gonna shit on mine?
I just really, I just don't
Nah, I'm
think
just
Jalen
joking.
Hyatt's all that. I don't.
Understandable.
I just think it's too much
He's
of
got
a
some.
one-trick
He's
pony.
got some glaring weaknesses.
I just feel like it's, I'm drafting McCole Hardman.
I hear you. I hear you. Well,
What
Cole
about
honestly
him, too?
might be in a better prospect too. Didn't win the Blenikoff actually.
Nah, I
Put
don't
some
think so.
respect on his name.
McCole had
Hardman
like
was a second-round
500,
pick.
590 something yards.
Yeah, he was a second round pick though.
Yeah, it's because they thought they had Tyreek Hill 2.0. They folded.
They did fold.
Going on to the next topic, Lamar Jackson requesting a trade. Now, he went on Twitter to say he requested a trade on March 2nd. So this trade request has been
In the works for
in the works for a while, and no team has really made a jump at Lamar Jackson. And I think it's a combination of a couple of things. I think that, yes, we can acknowledge Lamar Jackson is a great quarterback, but we're not sure what his demands truly are. We're just not. Lamar Jackson wants a fully guaranteed contract, and I think this is just bad timing for Lamar Jackson. Given what's happening with Deshaun Watson and his guarantee, listen, if Deshaun plays an elite level this upcoming season, then all of that is thrown out the window. But to this point, it kind of looks like the Browns might have made a mistake. Russell Wilson's huge contract in Denver, I mean, that is really the biggest disaster, and why
What do you mean?
nobody really wants to pay that.
I disagree.
Lamar Jackson, I'm not sure how much guaranteed money he's asking for. And I think that him having an agent really just hurts him a lot in negotiations, because when an agent represents you, that agent usually is representing other high-profile players. So if you make their one client unhappy, that has a trickle-down effect where Lamar is negotiating as himself. I think that is hurting him a lot. And also, there is no negotiation involved. Lamar Jackson is simply saying, I want this, or I'm a great quarterback, come and get me. Where when you have an agent, Daniel Jones' agent is probably telling the Giants and giving the Giants all of the Giants' numbers when he's not the quarterback the last couple of seasons. And, he's doing a great job at putting a sweetener in there. And even by doing his best, Daniel Jones only got 2 years guaranteed. That's how the Giants are really hesitant on Daniel Jones long term.
He got $80 million for 2 years. Respect him.
Yeah, guaranteed. Yeah, but the last 2 years are basically no more guarantees. An agent helps you a lot in these type of negotiations. That's why it's important. Lamar Jackson's lack of that is why no team is really trying to reach out to him, because it's a risk for some teams. Like, for example, I understand the idea of Lamar just going to Detroit. It makes a lot of sense, and I would love to watch it as a fan. That's something I would do in Madden. But if I'm within the Detroit Lions organization, am I saying, you know what? yeah, forget these picks. That could improve your defense from maybe being bottom 15 at the half of the league to maybe a top 10 defense if you really hit on the player. And I'm going to have to pay Lamar Jackson. So now the window, we know we can only win in these certain amount of years, and no team outside of Patrick Mahomes-led teams have won at the highest level when they've gotten this type of contract. And Lamar Jackson has only one playoff win so far. The Washington Commanders feel like they're in a situation where they can make the type of move. The Atlanta Falcons feel like they're thinking Lamar is gonna like just fix everything.
They said they want to start Ritter too.
The Indianapolis Colts, I mean, they're in no man's land as well.
4th overall pick, you have to give up.
Yes,
Defense was really under the radar last season. The
But the
offense
same
was so
receiver-
disastrous.
the same receiver problems you're gonna have with Matt Ryan last
Oh, I
year. You
thought
have
you were
with
an
Lamar.
Alec Pierce guy,
I am an Alec Pierce guy.
and Michael Pittman's like that.
It's
So what
Pittman
do you
and
think?
They
Pierce
did
number
lose
one.
Paris Campbell.
I'm
They don't have number 1.
Paris Campbell was good.
I know.
They have
He's
a
your
2
guy.
and a 3.
And then the honorable mentions are like the Titans. I actually like the Titans fit a lot. Like for me, my top 4 destinations are Detroit, Washington, Atlanta, Colts. Washington, because I've mentioned Detroit already, so I'm not going to go on a spiel about them. I like Washington a lot. I actually think that Jacoby Brissett is going to have a really good year this year. And I think that
Respect Sam
he
Howell.
will beat out
Just waiting
Sam
for that.
Howell. Eric Bieniemy has something to prove. Even though he
Or it's a little bit.
has led top offenses, Andy Reid, Mahomes, okay, let's see what you can do with Brissett, right? Let's see what you can do with Howell. I think Bieniemy is out to really show the league that he can really coach offensive football. The receivers are there with McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel. They're there. Brian Robinson, I love him. The offensive line is solid. Their defense is good. That's a team that I think if Lamar goes to, I mean, we're talking about an MVP candidacy with Washington, I believe. But they have owner issues, and really, they might not get something like that done. Atlanta, I like it a lot, but they're not in the running, so that's an unrealistic destination. The Colts is intriguing, but I like the Titans more than I like the Colts. You know, what if Treylon becomes what you think he can become? You know,
He will.
Chige is really good.
You like the Titans situation better?
Derrick Henry, the 1-2 punch between him and Lamar would be deadly.
Yeah.
They would have to draft receiver
That's all
because
that intrigues
it,
me.
it feels more like Lamar going to Tennessee feels like Lamar in Baltimore Part 2 because they have a lack of offensive weapons.
Perfectly said.
And they don't have a guy like Mark Andrews
And
either.
the offensive line's bad.
Yeah, so
Bad.
but I like it just because I trust Mike Vrabel and their front office historically has been
Fair.
good the last couple of
Fair
years.
point.
The Patriots are a really good fit as well. The Patriots scares me a lot because if he goes to our division, that is going to be the best division in football. And this is the last one. It's the 49ers. It's unrealistic that it happens, but if I was the 49ers, I wouldn't go into season with Brock Purdy or Trey Lance or Darnold. I'm going
Do the
to get
Niners
Lamar
have a first
Jackson.
this year? They don't, right? They gave it up.
They gave it
No.
up to the Broncos. Had it. Broncos
Yeah.
gave
Gave
it
it up to
to.
the-
So they even have, I wonder how that works. You have to give
Yeah.
Trey Lance would probably go to
Saints.
Baltimore. Ultimately, Lamar's staying in Baltimore because what he wants, the contract demands, no team's going to give that. And so I look at Baltimore. John Harbaugh was asked about it. I said, like, Lamar, I expect him to be the week 1 starter. The Lamar situation is so sad. I mean, the guy's always using laughing emojis on Twitter, but the only person we should be laughing at is Lamar because the way he's handling this process has been a joke. Going into business negotiations, trying to get the largest guaranteed contract in NFL history with your mom as your agent is wild.
And one playoff win. And
With
missing
one
practices.
playoff win, 55%
Joe Burrow
completion
doesn't miss
percentage in the
practices.
playoffs.
Are we gonna mention his MVP?
75% of his games.
His MVP in
If you're paying
2018.
a
We're gonna
quarterback
mention that he has
240 to
29
record for most
260
rushing yards in
million.
a season by quarterback.
If you're paying a
We don't know.
quarterback $250 million guaranteed, you want to see he's won playoff games on a
You wouldn't
rookie
pay Justin
contract.
Herbert?
He's in year 3. You know, it's a little bit different with Herbert. You can
I wouldn't
project-
give Herbert the biggest contract in the NFL.
It's different with Herbert because in November he wasn't regressing in many years. Whereas with Herbert, his offensive coordinator the last couple of years, and Joe Lombardi was one of the worst in football. With Lamar, Greg Roman maximized him. We don't know if Lamar is ever going to get back to that level.
Or they could have limited him by just being run heavy. The weapons weren't there, obviously, but
And in today's NFL,
won MVP.
we all know that Justin Herbert, especially as a thrower of the football, clears Lamar in many ways. You would feel a lot more comfortable paying that quarterback long term into his 30s
doubt.
than
I
Jackson.
don't disagree. You
who
just,
has
you just brought
athleticism.
up, I'm not paying a guy who has one playoff win.
Yeah, I feel
Herbert
like
has
Herbert,
0.
Herbert's the caveat, not Lamar.
He's
because
the
of his skill set as a thrower of the football, and also how poorly the Chargers didn't maximize him. Lamar was maximized. Herbert was never because of the personnel and the head coach, or just the coaching in a whole. And then the other thing, too, I said the only person we should be laughing at is Lamar because he's went into this process and it's backfired bad. And now he's going to Twitter saying I requested a trade. But ultimately, I think the Ravens might be the best fit for Lamar because they have the roster and the 22nd overall pick that they could use on Jordan Addison or some sort of receiver. The other uses Zay Flowers. What if they trade up the Zay Flowers? And then you add Zay Flowers into that receiving core. You look at Baltimore's defense, which is top 5 in Roquan Smith, and what they have. Hopefully, if the running backs can stay healthy, that's a pretty good Lamar destination. And I feel like that would be the smartest decision for both sides.
I think you make a great point because if let's say Lamar Jackson was say he was on the Jets, and we're talking about best Lamar situations, and Baltimore is on that list of these teams, it possibly is the best situation for him to win games.
For sure. And you could also use that 22nd overall pick, maybe for Bijan, a running back who can stay healthy. And now you have, once again, the dangerous running back room or just, backfield in the NFL. The Lamar situation, I'm not going to go as far as John saying we should be laughing at Lamar.
I'm not laughing at him saying if there's anyone we should be, it'd probably be.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Clean yourself up. Yeah.
You're cooked. Wait till I talk.
But I do think you have to look at it with a side eye. Listen, Lamar, for the most part, for really his whole career, it's always been team first. He cares like fuck about football. He loves winning. That's all he cares about. And I don't think that has changed one bit. And I don't think this past year's injury history that, people are saying he's sitting out for a new contract. I think that's bullshit too. I think if Lamar was out there, he's playing in a playoff game against the Bengals. You're not convincing me otherwise. But this offseason's been kind of weird. Just the way he's handled the situation, not having an agent like you mentioned. And the tweet he had the other day was like 2 minutes before John Harbaugh was about to go and talk to at the owners meeting. So he knew deliberately what he was doing to put that out there to make it harder for his head coach to go and basically get blindsided and bombarded with questions saying, hey, Lamar just tweeted this. There's no way that Harbaugh had a chance to look at this tweet. So now he's going up there unprepared. It's not a good look as a team first guy to put your coach under that type of pressure. But to talk about Lamar's potential destinations, this kind of just feels like his last shot to go out and say, get me out of here, until he eventually re-signs with the Ravens. I think he ends up wanting to go somewhere else, but the Ravens were smart with what they did. They said, we're giving you a contract we feel like is fair. We're going to put the tag on you, and now we have an opportunity to, whatever contract you agree to, we can match it. So if we like the deal you got, we can match it. If we hate it, we'll get 2 first-round picks out of it, and for a franchise quarterback, that's basically what it takes, 2 first-round picks. So I think from the Ravens' point of view, they're handling it pretty well. I would be paying him as much as he wants because without him, even with the draft picks and the Ravens being a great organization, throughout the years, whether it's Flacco or Dilfer, just mid quarterbacks and being able to win Super Bowls with them, I know you would have faith in that organization, but you just look at this AFC and how talented it is at quarterback. I have a hard time believing that whatever quarterback, I don't think it'll be Tyler Huntley, but whoever it is not going to be Lamar Jackson. And without one of that superstar quarterbacks, it's going to be really hard to compete in this conference. And the division too, with the Bengals and Joe Burrow going to be Super Bowl contenders every year. Deshaun Watson gets back. That Browns roster is loaded, and the Steelers, we're going to talk about in a bit, are definitely building a solid roster there too. So the Ravens need Lamar. I think Lamar needs the Ravens as well. I think this is just a last-ditch effort, his trade request to get out of there. Eventually, he re-signs with them.
You could have said the same thing, though, back then. I mean, the AFC with Joe Flacco had Tom Brady.
That's facts.
Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger.
That's a fact.
Like, nobody expected that either.
You're not wrong.
Tim Tebow.
Mark Sanchez.
Let's hear it.
Sanchez, baby.
We have never seen this level of disrespect on an MVP ever. John, you had a cute line, right? You try to be cute, and I respect it. We're up on...
I disagree. We had disrespect for Matt Ryan last season.
Enough. Let me say MVP in their prime. All right, that's fair. Is that better?
16 touchdowns is prime level. Passing touchdowns last year.
Talking this past season when he got hurt.
That's prime.
How about his rushing
like 5
stats?
games.
16 touchdowms. 16 passing.
6 games. How many rushing? 8?
I don't know.
Last
Tell
year
me,
it's
you're the
17,
Lamar guy.
before it had
The
16.
fucking numbers in your head.
Yeah, no, that was whack. Anyways, I respect it. Let's get a good laugh.
My bad, 17.
Lamar Jackson is one of the only reasons, and let me not say that, is the only reason why this Ravens offense is able to stay afloat. You said Greg Roman elevated Lamar Jackson. I'd argue that he limited Lamar Jackson because he was so reliant on his rushing abilities and was adamant on making the Ravens a rushing team. he failed to utilize Lamar Jackson and another one of his abilities, his ability to pass the football. Yes, you could say that the skills position players outside of him in the receivers room were lacking. Regardless of that fact, the NFL is about evolution, and you cannot progress if you don't progress with the rest of the league. It was very adamant very quickly that if you were to remain a run-heavy offense, it was not going to lead to playoff success. But they refused to change. They refused to put a supporting cast around Lamar Jackson to continue to elevate. And now where Lamar Jackson, it's his time to ask for his money and his fair share of compensation because he's the only reason that this Baltimore offense is relevant and good and playing so well that it's able to win ball games. It's disgusting to me personally. I'm most definitely not laughing at Lamar. I most definitely respect that he is advocating for himself. He is very adamant that he wants to be the one to negotiate his contract. Who better than yourself? I get it. I, at the same time, Joel, you make a good point about agents and them having relationships and their ability to maneuver contracts. That's fair. But I will never disrespect a man for trying to do it on their own. Lamar Jackson deserves his money. Regardless of what he wants, he deserves his money because he is an MVP and he elevates his team. You see what happens when Lamar Jackson's not on the field. You could say this past season the defense was amazing. No doubt about it. This team was very good. But the difference between that is Lamar Jackson playing, they win that game. They potentially beat the Cincinnati Bengals that went to the AFC Championship game. Lamar Jackson is a ceiling raiser. He is a floor raiser as well. Not many players at the quarterback position can do that. Lamar Jackson is so versatile in his game that why are we here finding out that he put in a trade request March 2nd and that no real rumors have been put into place? I agree with you, Joel. I think he was very smart to do that, his timing of it, so that when Harbaugh now is in this owners meeting, that now the questions are being brought to their attention. I'm more than happy with that with Lamar because he's trying to be tactical. He's trying to be smart.
Do you think it's a bad look, though? If that's your head coach.
I'm fine with it, man. I'm fine with it because end of the day, again, he's his own agent. He is fighting for his own money.
No,
how would it backfire?
No one's
It has
interested in
backfired for
For
sure.
that reason. Because teams, if you don't have an agent, like, you don't have to feel regretted. Like, oh, I regretted not giving this contract because, I mean, it's just Lamar. But with one agent, you screw over an agent, you're screwing over all of his clients.
To me, it's very personal. It's very simple, I should say. Excuse me, not personal. It's very simple. Lamar Jackson is the most important player to the Baltimore Ravens right now as we stand 2023. He is that important to the team. You take Lamar Jackson off this team, they're not in contention to win the division. They're not in contention to make the playoffs. Tyler Huntley is not making the playoffs. I don't care how great this defense is. It's not happening. Without Lamar Jackson, there is no playoff success, or there's no aspirations for the playoffs.
There's no playoff success.
Okay, there it is. That's why I said aspirations.
It's just not, bro. His last playoff game, 162 yards, 1 interception, 61 passer rating.
Go the game before that.
He was good. But then he scored 3 points against the Bills, bro.
Bills
3.
were very good that year.
And not to mention, his second playoffs when he faced the Titans, he had 500 total yards. He did his thing. The stats to me, though, I got to rewatch the game back because watching it live, it felt like a lot of those stats came in the moment of the games where it just didn't feel like they were going to win anymore.
They were the 1 seed that year and just came out flat.
Yes, but you look at
Derrick Henry took over that game.
You look at that year. They were first in offense, third in defense, and
MVP.
I disagree with this notion that Lamar was held back in Baltimore. He was to an extent. He was also maximized too, though. I think that his skill set, Greg Roman maximized it, and Greg Roman is one of the best run designers the league has seen.
Sure.
Truly has seen. His passing concepts are very elementary. He was definitely limited in that aspect. But the Ravens, you can argue with Lamar Jackson, historically great running quarterback, designing the offense around that ability, it netted them top offenses year in and year out. So that side was definitely maximized. With Todd Monken, let's say that Lamar Jackson comes back to Baltimore and Todd Monken's the OC and they draft a receiver, and it looks like it's overhauled. passing wise, their numbers will be better, but those rushing numbers that Lamar had with Greg Roman will go down. And ultimately
Still
for
gonna be a great rusher.
Ultimately, for Lamar Jackson to take that, to just have his game have longevity, he has to do that. But I also understand the Ravens because Lamar Jackson has been injured these last 2 seasons at the tail end of the year. That does matter. That matters a lot. And I don't think that they should just cut him a blank check. Josh Allen this year feels like he went from the most loved quarterback to now he was one of the most hated. He just throws all these turnovers. This guy played every game. And this guy was, like Lamar, the engine of the offense, but he showed up every game. If Josh Allen misses 4 or 5 games, the Bills are out of the playoffs. They're not in it. But Josh Allen played every game, and he takes those hits. Lamar Jackson has missed the last two endings to the season, and I think you have to take that into account.
I just feel very strongly that Lamar Jackson does have the leverage here. You say that was a mistake, that it's not a great look. Now you're putting pressure on the organization. You're putting pressure on these guys to get a deal done. Lamar Jackson's making it simple. It's either you give me your money or I'm gone.
I think they're cool.
The Ravens they're cool with letting Lamar go?
No, I think the Ravens right now, I don't think they feel any pressure.
You said they're cooling? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I think they're chilling. They don't feel any pressure right now.
They have an offer on the table.
There's no
probably
pressure for them.
$150 million
Like,
guaranteed.
Lamar is on the non-exclusive tag.
Yeah, I get it. It's one of those situations that I find disgusting that they could take advantage of contracts like this. I get it.
I mean,
get it. It's the
the
NFL.
everyday American workers kind of like living like
They've
that.
been
anyway.
offering Lamar contract offers throughout the process, and he spurned many of them if he wanted the full.
And he's also come out and said he
$450
doesn't
guaranteed.
want fully guaranteed. He's come out and said that.
Shit,
he doesn't
with
want
this-
doesn't
I
want
mean-
250 million. He's guaranteed. He said that.
Like, definitely Lamar Jackson can get a big contract and be set for life, but that $32 million has set a lot of people for life too.
For sure.
So even that,
He deserves the
Listen,
financial security.
But I
I'm not
understand
here
everything's-
scoffing at $32 million. I'm not doing
No, I know that. He's
but
not-
at the same
Lamar's
time,
worth more.
There's
I know that.
security. There needs to be a longevity in his contract.
So for the Ravens, should they be like, you know what, we don't want to give you a fully guaranteed contract because you missed these last 2 seasons at the end of the year. You missed them, and last playoffs we saw you wasn't the best. So should there not be hesitancy on their side as well, just like Lamar and wanting guaranteed money? Why? I don't think the Ravens should just cut a blank check, guaranteed money.
All right,
There's a
that's
happy
fine.
medium there.
If
Like,
you want, if that wants to be your mindset, fine. Let Lamar go. Enjoy not having playoff success at all. Enjoy not even thinking about the playoffs for at least 5 seasons.
They can bounce back though.
Not when Joe Burrow's in your division. Not when the Steelers are improving.
Maybe not next
Not
year.
when the
but
Cleveland Browns are improving.
I think the Ravens would definitely bounce back in time.
And to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Not gonna be Tyler Huntley. There's a happy medium there, though. Like I said, Lamar has come out and dispelled the whole he wants 200 million guaranteed the Deshaun Watson contract. He doesn't. He just wants probably, I'm just guessing here, I don't have any reports, but in the top 3 in terms of guaranteed money. Like I'm sure he's gonna want a 4 to 5 year deal worth $220 million with $150 million guaranteed. He's not gonna want it fully guaranteed, but the Ravens have, like you said, Joel, they have every right to be hesitant about it because the last 2 seasons he had missed time at the end of the season. To be fair, they were the 1 seed both times before he got hurt. All he does is win the regular season.
But him getting hurt, that matters though.
It does, but he was still when he was healthy, and even the
That's
Jags
like the Anthony
won.
Davis conversation. When he's healthy, he's great, but
Even
he'll
still,
be
the
healthy.
injuries are
Kyler
such
Murray got
weird
hurt 2
injuries.
seasons in a row, and
like
they still gave him his
like this
money,
wasn't
no
Lamar
problem.
rushing
What's
out of the
going on?
pocket and getting just destroyed on the sideline. Like he got hurt in the pocket, just on some weird tackles.
I'll tell you what's going on, and I think it's a difference in organization, and that's the biggest thing. The Bengals have no problem giving that money to Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow has given them something they haven't had in a very long time, which was an AFC Championship appearance, Super Bowl appearance, their franchise quarterback. They have not had that level of play in years. Lamar Jackson individually won MVP. As a team, they have not reached the AFC Championship yet. The Ravens have seen more success without Lamar in their franchise's history, and they're comfortable in them bouncing back. Arizona, historically, they got no success. So they're saying our best chance is to win with Kyler, but we're even looking at Kyler's deal right now. And when we talk about Arizona, we talk about how much that deal is limiting them as a team as well because of how much they pay
Now he
Kyler.
got hurt too, so that tore his ACL. It's probably gonna be out all of next year. That makes it even worse. But they're probably gonna have back-to-back top 5
I
picks.
just think Lamar Jackson really got caught in a bad spot with these guarantees being handed out to quarterbacks, and just all of them kind of just falling like dominoes and not working.
If this happened last offseason, the Browns would have given him a fully guaranteed contract probably before, I would argue, before Deshaun Watson.
You would think.
I would think, yes.
Who knows? The Falcons were interested in
But-
Deshaun and not interested in Lamar. So they were going to give him whatever he wanted to.
Like, it's all about situation, I think. Like, for example, the Rams paid Jared Goff without fucking blinking. The Cowboys were hesitant with Dak Prescott.
Eagles
them
paid
to
Wentz.
exactly. Like, it took them to the last minute. And the Cowboys were hesitant because they were like, look at what happened with the Rams and Eagles. We don't want to be that. So they didn't pay Dak. So until it was like they had to. So I think Lamar's just caught in a bad situation right now, just bad timing with it.
I wanted to get settled, man. I want to know where he's playing. I want him to get his money and just move on, because this has just been probably the most annoying topic this whole offseason, because it's like Lamar is without a doubt one of the best quarterbacks in the league who has won an MVP. If you want to, shit talk his playoff success, 1-3, I get it. We know, like, if you really question that Lamar's not going to show up in the big game, this and that, like, listen, he had a couple of rough games to start. One of them is his rookie season. One of them, we come out flat against the Titans. They were the 1 seed that year. Still puts up 500 yards. Most previous one I get against the Bills. I think the Bills were the better team, and he won a playoff game that stretch. So I don't really look at Lamar and the whole playoff thing as anything. The injuries is the only valid concern. But like I said, there was very weird injuries that happened. Not something that he's a running quarterback in his longevity. I remember this past one, Jacksonville was in the pocket. I can't remember the injury before that in the previous season.
Don't you think some of those Lamar's build, like Josh Allen or Big Ben, can take those hits because they're 250, 245 pounds, they're more durable?
Yeah, I think, but like I said, it was just a weird tackle. Like his leg kind of got twisted. It's not like it's not like a Mike White injury where he just gets killed in the pocket and breaks his ribs, right?
But
Even though
sometimes
it's gonna
that be
get
the
hurt.
ones that be the most concerning. Sometimes it's not always a gruesome injury. It's those, like, how many times does somebody get injured with those, like, those are kind of like bullshit injuries. It happens to them frequently.
Just staggers, you're saying?
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
You may have missed it.
You may have missed it is going to be Denver Broncos. So there's been a lot of speculation and rumor that the Broncos were trying to actively shop Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy. Thankfully, Sean Payne came out and completely put that to bed. He said, we have no intentions of trading Sutton and or Jeudy. We're in the business of gaining talent, and we need these two guys to be there. Absolutely, I'm 100% on board with this. I stated that I was okay with trading Sutton. I feel like his ceiling, we've seen it. I could not see a world of trading Jeudy. I didn't want to trade either of these guys, to be completely honest. I want Russell Wilson to have the most talent surrounding him as possible. And Courtland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy together are going to do that. So I'm very happy to see that. And another breaking news, Ben Simmons is not going to play the rest of the season. Now, it's just a continuous downfall of Ben Simmons. It's been very unfortunate more than anything. But this really has just been one of the craziest downfalls of any all-NBA player's career that we've seen in a very long time. So, no doubt about it, it's unfortunate.
Stuff. You may have missed it. I have two. One I just saw on Twitter. The NFL, they're now allowing teams to have 2 Thursday night football games.
Wow.
Before it was 1. Now you're allowed to have 2. There's also some talk about flexing Thursday night games. We know how terrible they've been. It's the running joke that Thursday night you get 1 or 2 good ones a year and everything else is like Jags Titans for the past 5 seasons. But limiting it to, increasing it to 2, I think is a bad move, because Thursday night football, usually the product isn't that good and players complain about it. So I don't know why they did that, but the owners, maybe there's more money in it for them. You may have missed it. I actually saw someone comment how we only talk about our favorite teams on this podcast, which isn't true, but this one's about the Jets or it's about the Broncos.
I use my you may have missed it.
It's
or
always
this
the
week in
Lakers.
NBA Lakers and
It's always the Lakers.
no doubt.
But it came out in the owners meeting. This news dropped like 1 a.m. last night, very random and out of the blue. But with the owners meeting there's rumors going around, people talking to each other. So the Jets and Aaron Rodgers, which has been going on for what feels like years now, the latest report is that it's going to be a second-round pick in 2023, a second-round pick in 2024. This is Jets going to the Packers, obviously. That 2024 pick is going to have some sort of condition on it. If the Jets make the AFC Championship game, host a playoff game, whatever it might be, that would turn into a first-round pick. The thing that is holding it up, though, is that the Jets want a 2025 pick back in case Aaron Rodgers only plays 1 season. The Packers don't want to have to give up any draft picks, which I understand you're giving up Aaron Rodgers, but it sounds like the deal is getting closer to being done. Joe Douglas doesn't like to lose trades, so I'm assuming he's going to want maybe a third or second round pick in 2025. I don't think he'll really haggle over a day 3 pick. Like, I don't think it's going to be a 5th round pick that's really going to stop this deal from getting through. So it does feel like probably a day 2 pick in 2025 if Rodgers retires or leaves after one season.
That's going to be interesting. You may have missed it. The Panthers have been busy this offseason. They brought Miles Sanders. They gave him a decent contract, Hayden Hurst, and then more recently, Adam Thielen. One thing that we talked about very early on in the episode, DJ Chark comes in for a 1-year, fully guaranteed $5 million deal. He's coming off ankle surgery, and he's dealt with injuries the last couple of years. But DJ Chark in his second season wasn't a 1,000-yard guy, a guy that can take the top off. And I think in Carolina, some of the reports are Frank Reich wants to use him similar to that DJ Moore role. Two receivers from the 2018 draft. I'm excited to see if he can stay healthy. DJ Chark and Adam Thielen, that could be just enough, I think, for this season with the rookie quarterback. Because maybe Thielen is more of a 3. He is more of a 3. But Chark has that upside, I still think, in him, if he can stay healthy.
I mean, I think the Panthers have a good, solid unit. I like it a lot. I do.
I was looking at the comment section on our Houston Panthers video. Jesus, everyone was saying Panthers are definitely the better situation.
I feel like I saw 50-50.
No,
I feel like I saw, or maybe not 50-50, but I definitely saw
was like
Texans fans in there.
80-20.
It was a majority. I mean, it's because it hit Panthers fans' algorithm.
The thing is, the question was, which is the better situation for the quarterback? If we're going by team, we understand the Panthers have the better defense as of right now, no doubt about it.
No, for the quarterback, it's the Panthers, though.
You said Panthers, as did Joel. I still feel opposite, where I would go the Texans. I still think that they're building a solid foundation. I'm hopeful that Mechie does return this season. And with that number 12 pick, most likely you could either add an offensive lineman or you go and add JSN, which is what I want them to do with that selection. Add more talent to this unit, because number 2, where it's seeming as if it's going to be Stroud or AR, which was that one we were reporting. Oh, yeah, you're a sicko.
As a chair.
Whatever.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Yeah, go wipe your ass.
Definitely stinks.
Bryce Young, number 2, JSN, number 12. That is a home run draft if I'm the Houston Texans.
You may have missed is John Lynch saying Brock Purdy's leader in the clubhouse to start.
Oh, no.
I think this is just a push for Trey Lance. I really have a lot of doubts that
Yeah, you're not Brock
they're
guy.
moving out. They're moving on from Trey Lance, man. It's just they traded a lot to get him. They're gonna at least give him 5 games to see if he can prove himself. You know what I'm saying? I think at least.
I believe his John Lynch's quote. He was saying how basically like what he did to end the season, the playoffs. Like he has the guys in the clubhouse. They have his back. But I agree. It's gonna be a battle in training camp, but. At some point, if Lance is the backup going into next year, at what point do you just say, okay, Purdy's going to be the guy, let's try to get a 2nd or 3rd round pick
That's
for Lance.
when you worry about a guy, not when he's backing up the greatest of all time in Aaron Rodgers.
Okay.
That's when you start worrying about him.
You saw
when
that,
he's
the
backing
poll
up. When he's backing up.
You saw the post on the Twitter chat?
No.
Oh, I sent it earlier today. It was, I forgot who tweeted it. It was Patrick Doherty. He works for NBC. He said, who has more trade value right now, Zach Wilson or Trey Lance? And it was 97% Trey Lance, 94.
They're sleeping.
It's facts, but it was just funny seeing 94-6.
How do they sleep on Zach Wilson, man?
Everyone's going to be wrong, man.
Everyone's
going to be wrong.
They won't be wrong about Jordan Love, though. You seen Matt LaFleur comments? Matt LaFleur, he was saying that it's going to be a progression for Jordan. Don't expect him to be here on day 1. And I'm excited for. Maybe I'm going to temper my expectations a little bit, but.
And it would be a response from Matt LaFleur being like, yeah, like this guy is going to light it the fuck up.
You saw Andy Reid didn't know who Jordan Love was?
Yeah, man. He's worried about his
he
football
only played
team.
against him.
You know, I hate when people make that a big deal because there was a reporter. His name is Grant Asfeth. He writes for DallasBasketball.com. He does a great job reporting. And by the way, he asked Kyrie Irving a lot of basketball questions. And you can tell Kyrie loves that. Kyrie Irving answers those questions with a level of insight that other NBA players don't. And it's very recognizable. And that's why I think, you know, Kyrie's getting unfairly treated when it comes to his Dallas tenure because I think he's been a model leader.
Teammate.
They're a great teammate, and he's really been great for them. But, yeah, so Grant asked Greg Popovich about Jaden Hardy. And he was like, you know, what do you think about Jaden Hardy and how he's been playing? And Greg Popovich is like, you think I'm fucking watching the Mavericks?
I'm dead.
He was like, you think I know that kid? Like, you think I know him? And it's not disrespectful to Jaden Hardy. It's just like, you know, a coach who's focused on coaching a basketball team isn't worried about the 9th player on a team like Andy Reid, who's coaching for Super Bowls, is not worried about the backup quarterback in Green Bay.
Andy Reid definitely gets a pass, without a doubt.
Yeah, he's not worried about that. No, you know. He leaves it up to me to know who the quarterbacks are, who the stars are. That's Jordan Love, baby. Timberwolves, got to touch on them real quick.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
Because Timberwolves,
Just realize how much left we have of the show.
Oh yeah.
because no, it's not long. You know, we'll finish in like 40 minutes.
Because when I realized we were 2.5 hours or whatever we are deep, and so we have 4 topics left, I was thrilled.
Timberwolves fans wanted the segment on the show, and they're getting the segment on the show.
You wanted
Yeah,
it to be
playback
warranted.
was-
playback
You wanted
wasn't
to say-
enough.
But
We
you
said, hey,
want to
wanted
know
to
why
segment.
it's warranted? It's warranted because they're on a 4-game win streak. Knicks, Hawks, Warriors, Kings.
All close games.
Karl Anthony Towns is back. 22 points versus the Hawks. 14 points and the dagger 3 versus the Golden
that
State
shot was
Warriors.
lit. I'll give it to him. That shot was lit.
And my oh my, I mean, on Twitter, I made a take that it was very controversial, even though it got more likes than quote tweets for sure. You always like that, but it got a lot of quote tweets. I said, you know, Ant-Man and Jaden McDaniels have a similar season to Tatum and Brown. You know, Brown's showing out, no doubt. We know Tatum's that guy. McDaniels in a month of March, and I understand it's insignificant compared to what Jaylen Brown is now. But in the month of March, he's averaged 15.5 points, shooting 51% from the field, 42% from 3. And his recent 1-point outing, because he was in foul trouble versus the Warriors, dropped this number down, but it was much higher. The offensive flashes have been there. And I'm looking forward to seeing this Jaden McDaniels consistent offensive score career arc. You have Ant-Man, who he's just working his way back from injury. There's a 6 seed currently. Listen, man, they can be some trouble in the playoffs. And like I told
They
you,
beat the Lakers in the play-in.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about that.
oh, they could easily beat the Lakers. in the play-in.
That would,
be
we
two
need that. We need that
massive
for
teams
pick a
going
side.
at
We
Jaden
need
McDaniels would
Timberwolves,
lock
Lakers.
up LeBron.
We
That'd be
need
an awesome
Wolves
matchup.
Lakers for pick a side.
LeBron does not want
Basketball
that smoke no
gods, you heard us.
No player ever has locked up LeBron.
McDaniels already
Just
has
don't know
locked up
how
LeBron
Jaden
this season. He's
McDaniels
locked him
is
up.
going to
He's
do
locked
it.
him up. But, you know, when I give my Timberwolves take in the offseason, you know, I like to compare it to a crash, right? Because I've been involved in car accidents before. It wasn't my fault.
More than one.
I stopped at the red light. I'm looking at my surroundings, and bam, a truck hits me from the back. Not my fault, right? Cat being injured is not my fault. My reasonings for the Wolves being so good: Edwards leap. Oh yeah, he took that. McDaniels all defense leap. Oh yeah, he took that. Gobert defensively has really been an anchor for them recently. Their rebounding has gotten better with him. D'Lo is efficient this year. Trading for Mike Conley was a great move. All of the ingredients to the take were pretty correct. But for some reason the ingredients were good, but once I put it to bake, it just came out burnt. But all the ingredients were right.
Never your fault. No way.
All the ingredients. I mean, yeah, Matt Ryan Colts is just a disaster.
Star wings take a while to develop.
Yes.
Kawhi in his third season averaged 12.8 points per game. How many points per game is Jaden McDaniels averaging this year?
12 a game.
So-
What are we
I'm
doing?
not- that-
John,
that's not
why?
insinuating
Don't
that-
feed into this, bro.
That's not insinuating
He
that he's
sees
going to be
talent.
Kawhi. But when you watch Minnesota play, you see their size with Kyle Anderson, Sloma having such a big role offensively. But you also see with Jaden, he's a first-team all-defensive player. The same way Kawhi, by his third, fourth season, was that. But offensively, he's got stop and pop mid-range. You saw that dunk yesterday on Domas. He didn't want no
Yeah.
action. He didn't want no business like that in foul trouble already. I think Jaden has all the tools offensively to thrive as a third piece. I just spit my apologies all over this vicinity. I get excited watching him play because coming out of Washington, no one expected him to be the level of defender he is now. And he's just in year 3. He's just starting to finally realize his potential and come into his own for a Minnesota team that when they acquired Rudy, they needed a wing stopper that Rudy never had in Utah. And Jaden McDaniels has been even more than that. He's been a wing stopper with a ton of offensive polish and upside. And I think it's really, 22 years old, only a matter of time before we start to see him take another step forward, because that's all he's done through 3 seasons.
There's a reason why I didn't trade him.
They valued him over those additional 3 first-round picks and Walker Kessler.
See, and let me just ask this question because, sometimes I guess, hey, you need some time to develop, but
Sure.
Cat was out for how many games? 30?
Basically the whole year.
40. He only played 29 up until he came
Played a
back.
lot.
So
I
like
mean,
40.
he missed a lot.
Why is it that only up until recently, Jaden McDaniels decided to cook up? How many games in between
D'Lo
that?
was on the team.
Okay, all right. It's a fair comeback.
It is. Cat's played 23 games this year.
Yeah, it's not playing at all.
I'll say this, and I'll stop hating.
I'll stop hating 100%. Only reason why I'm not happy at Jaden McDaniels' recent resurgence is because this happened immediately correlated with that statement. Ever since that statement, Jaden McDaniels has been unbelievable.
The energy shifted.
Awesome.
He saw the disrespect.
I definitely did not disrespect him. More so, I praised and raised up
You were one of the
Jaylen
first people
Brown.
to quote tweet my tweet.
I did not. I actually didn't. Oh wait, I did.
You
I
did
said
quote
delete
tweet
this. Absolutely. I was thinking about your Jokic. No,
It was like, what is this?
yeah, no. It's because you disrespected Jaylen Brown blatantly. And again, I'm glad you prefaced it saying these aren't to compare to Jaylen Brown.
No, not to now, but year 3, Jaylen Brown versus year 3, McDaniels is similar.
The one thing I want to give unbelievable praise to is his defense. He most definitely should be first team all defense. He's been special this year. The offense still has its work to do, or he has his work to do with his offensive game. The game against the Warriors was hideous, no doubt about it, but he bounced back very nicely. I'm not going to hate on Jaden McDaniels from here on out. I just still firmly believe he will not reach the ceiling of Jaylen Brown.
It's funny how a guy that loves two-way defense and efficiency.
That's why I'm giving him his respect.
Isn't turned
Giving him
down-
his respect.
Isn't turned down by a win that
John,
can do everything.
I said I'm not hating on him.
John,
Shoots 39%
you know what I just
from three.
You know what I just looked
He's
up?
nice, bro. Get the cab. He's
McDaniels?
good.
Oh,
Yeah.
he's solid.
You know, I looked at the Jaylen Brown year 3 stats because McDaniels in year 3. Jaylen Brown did not have not 1 month where he averaged over 15 points. Year 3.
Listen, Jaden McDaniels defensively clears. He's gonna be all defensive first team this year.
Defense is okay.
Jaylen Brown's good defender last year. This year he's taken it down a notch, but gotten better recently. But defensively, Jaden McDaniels, I'm with you. And Edwards and Tatum, I'm a Tatum guy. I'm always gonna take him in. If you want to say Ant Edwards has a higher ceiling than Tatum, you're talking about him legitimately being the best player in the NBA because that's what Tatum's
Yes,
ceiling is.
yes.
So if you think Ant could be the best
Yes.
player in the league,
Yes.
each their own. I
Fine
mean,
guy.
He
God,
can be that.
Will
but
he
Jaden
ever be
McDaniels-
better than Giannis?
No.
Well, Giannis would probably be. Giannis would be like 30.
28.
Giannis would be 35 when Ant-Man's like 27, bro.
He had to be better with Tatum.
Ant is 21.
Trying to think like the next.
He could be better than Ja. He could be. Will he
like
ever
the
be
young
better
guys,
than
he's
Devin
better than
Booker?
Jaws,
Anthony-
Cades.
Huh? Yes.
He could be better than SGA,
Yes. He can be better than Booker.
God.
than D Book. It's a conversation. I mean, he's
That's
already
pretty
averaging
reasonable.
fucking 27
I mean, this
playing
is a lot more at
defense.
the rim.
But
just
offensively,
just say you
McDaniels has a long
betrayed
way to go.
Devin
And I
Booker.
know the year
He's a
three,
guy.
comparing him to Jalen
Are you
Brown,
loyal to anyone?
you could talk. But Jalen Brown, he's averaging
Honesty?
27.
Yeah.
We're talking about Brown has taken significant leaps. Jalen McDaniels has a long way to go in that regard.
All I'm saying is that when you watch Jaden McDaniels play,
He has flashes.
you can tell that it's there.
He has flashes.
It's not
It
that
is.
it's non-existent. It is there. You can see it.
He's good.
That's why I made the comp, because it's there. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
It's
And-
just Tatum's
and-
Brown's
and-
averaging 27. He's not averaging 22, having a nice season. Brown is averaging
Yeah.
like one
Well,
of the top
Brown-
scorers in the league.
Joel, sorry. We've seen Jalen go from 13 points in his third season to 20 in his fourth. And this year we see him take it to 27 points. He's gotten incrementally better every year.
This guy's
When
trying
I
to
watch-
nitpick year three. You make me sick.
What?
He never averaged 15,
Listen,
not
I-
one.
I
in year
understand-
three.
I understand.
Not a soul cares.
I understand context because people are going to say, oh, Gordon Hayward, Kyrie were there.
Yeah,
Then they
thank
left.
you. Thank you.
I understand. But when we talk about just a player, like if McDaniels was in a similar situation where, let's say magically next year, Cat's not playing and Gobert leaves too, or Conley leaves too, two of their better players, then yeah, McDaniels would take a 20-point leap. That doesn't mean that he's not that level of player, though.
Well,
So
we
the
know
first
Conley's
game-
not.
It's situation.
I apologize.
You're
The
good.
first game, we see Karl Anthony Towns back with the regular lineup. It goes hand in hand with Jaden McDaniels' worst game in that stretch, right?
He played a minute.
Jaden McDaniels played 1 minute.
No, he played 10 minutes versus the Warriors.
Had like 5 fouls.
Oh yeah, because he got into foul trouble very
Yeah,
quickly.
versus the Hawks though, when Cat played and he had 22.
no
McDaniels
doubt.
had 25.
Who didn't play?
No, he played against the Hawks. Cat
Anthony
did.
Edwards.
Oh, Edwards, my bad. Okay.
My point being is when you have Cat in the lineup, the primary offensive responsibility will be Karl Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards. I agree with your statement. Let's say Karl Anthony Towns gets hurt, Jaden McDaniels will maximize that opportunity, but because he would then fall down to the third option, most likely, although playmaking responsibilities is primarily been focused on Mike Conley, although he still gets his whenever he finds the opportunity. Jaden McDaniels most likely will still be the number 3 option.
But I find it hard for him to continue to replicate those performances that we saw without Cat, without Anthony Edwards, when both Anthony Edwards and Cat are on the floor.
Versus in the Hawks game, Nas Reed had 26 in that game.
Nas Reed's another dog too that we haven't
He's a-
that we did not
great-
bring up.
great
No,
either.
he's
player.
amazing. He's the
Mad
best backup
good.
big in the league,
Jersey.
I believe. One of them at least.
No, that's
He could be a
fine.
starter. If Cat is back next
Bobby
season,
Portis.
His
Bobby Portis,
conversation-
Nas Reed.
Conversation, yeah.
Christian Woodby.
next season, if Cat is fully healthy, this team stays healthy and they're all together, McDaniels will average like 17, 18 a game, which it's
see
not
that
20 like Brown, but you also have to
Still
take
good.
into account the context
And
of the situation.
how great his defense
Yeah,
is.
his ceiling
Matters.
defensively clears, but his ceiling offensively, the flashes are there, but Brown has turned to one of the better scorers in the league. That's why I just don't think he'll make up for it in his defense, which is, you could have the argument, if you're an elite defensive player, one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and you could put up 20, does that equate to average defense and 27 on offense?
Yeah, I mean, everything is situational. Like, for Jaylen Brown to take this leap, Kemba Walker had to leave. And Kemba was averaging 20 at a point in time, and that was when
Yeah, I
JB was averaging 20. I'm saying he was around that number. The thing about the Wolves, and this is why I was so high on them in the offseason, is that you have Anthony Edwards, who I think is already a top 20 player in the league.
Yeah.
And Cat is that as well at his best. Like, Karl Anthony Towns and Jaylen Brown is a conversation, and you could lean Cat as the better player when he's fully healthy. You could.
You could.
He's that good.
he is.
So, I mean, when Jaden McGinn is playing behind two guys like that, of course his numbers are not going to look like
That's,
that.
agree.
that's the perfect role for Jaden McDaniels.
For now, yeah.
With Jalen, it probably will always be, because with Jaylen Brown, his ability to get to the rim with his frame, his strength, his athleticism, that gives him that star upside to get to the rim and do it from all three levels. Whereas with Jay McDaniels, he is limited, 185 pounds, smaller frame, thinner frame, I should say, and he's not the same athlete, doesn't have the same pop at the rim, but he does have the body control. He has the feel for the game because he's gotten those reps. Yeah. So Jaden McDaniels will probably be the perfect number 3 for Minnesota. And this year we added Cat into the mix. The question is, Joel, can the Timberwolves shock the entire world and still win a playoff series in spite of all their injuries this year?
They can. They can win a playoff series.
How many playoff series?
They could win 2.
Here we go again.
Oh my God.
Wow.
They would play the Kings. Excuse me, no, because the Kings are the 3rd seed. They would play the Grizzlies, or if they don't
No, they're
win
the
that
6th seed right now. The Timbs.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're
They
right.
play the
'cause
Kings in the first
I
round.
mean, we'll see what happens in a day. But
Are you sure?
yeah, I'm pretty.
I know that Tim's
I checked
fans,
it earlier today.
from what I see on Twitter, Kings fans understand the Wolves are a bad matchup, and they don't really want to face them.
So the Warriors are 7?
Yep, Wolves are 6.
Interesting.
Because the
All
Wolves,
right.
the Wolves own the tiebreaker over the Warriors because they beat them.
Got it.
more
Okay.
times this
Well,
season.
I'm just gonna assume that the Warriors finish above them.
So you think Minnesota could beat Denver or
Memphis for the Kings.
or
They could be Memphis.
Phoenix
For
in a
sure, they
playoff
could be
series.
Memphis. They could smoke Memphis.
Remember last year?
I
when you
guess
said
they.
that?
I guess.
Oh,
they
I
could get
feel
to
I
that.
feel confident this year. Again,
Again, you cannot feel
I
that
like
confident.
I liked my
until you
chances
see-
last year.
You're losing me
Until
now.
you
I
see-
liked my chances last year.
Sorry, who
Would
was
you
talking
say that
Memphis
that game,
versus Minnesota.
the game against the Warriors, was the worst that the Wolves have looked in a long time,
Recently,
offensively? By
I don't
far,
know.
it was horrible offensive performance.
You're gonna have to get shit together
Here's-
quick. You're gonna have
here's-
6
here's
games
the
to get
thing
this
that I
team
They're a
told-
together.
I
defensive
keep
team,
telling
too,
you.
though.
They are, yeah, that's
They
fair.
could lock up.
But the big reason why I am not high on the Wolves is because, again, Karl Anthony Towns was missing. They found an identity, mostly defensively. The offense has lacked. It's been primarily just Anthony Edwards, and as of recent, Jaden McDaniels. Mike Conley obviously is a great initiator of the offense. But the first game that Cat is back with the normal Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, Mike Conley, Rudy Gobert, it's their worst offensive output
It's
against the Warriors defense that has not been good.
well, the Warriors defense at home.
I mean,
Listen, I'm honestly not gonna look too much into a game where Cat's playing his first time with
I
Cat.
just found it
with
ironic.
Edwards
That's
over.
all I'm saying. It was
I-
ironic.
I think. Listen, if like 3-4.
Would you call it
games
irony?
happen- no, I think it's just they're
perfect
getting back
word.
into the mix. They still won the game.
they did. All 4 of these games have been.
And that's one thing.
within a
Hey,
couple points.
I can't discredit that Karl
Ultimately,
Anthony Towns shot
all that matters
because
is you
that
win.
Karl Anthony Towns shot was tough. To have the
Yes.
stones to take that shot in
But
transition was crazy.
The Wolves have better personnel this year. Rudy Gobert, rim protector. Jaden McDaniels, wing stopper, who's grown into that. Kyle Anderson is
Slow-mo.
a do-it-all Swiss Army knife for them. Nas Reed is one of the best backup bigs in the league.
is.
And the Grizzlies last year in the playoff series, who was the one that was really punishing the Wolves? It was Brandon Clark on the boards. Brandon Clark was unstoppable on the boards for them. He's out. And I think that's huge. I think he's definitely a spark.
And it also does depend on Steven Adams' health come playoff time. Obviously, he's been a huge loss for them. And you
but
mentioned
Cat to
Brandon
smoke
Clark.
him either way.
That's gonna get his.
Steven Adams.
Yeah.
I
Last
guess
year he
because of the
guarded
ability
him.
to stretch.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is
Jaren
that
Jackson's gonna pick up.
listen. All I'm saying is that they can beat them, bro. They can beat them.
Would you take him in 7?
Take them at 6.
Calm 6?
Calm.
I don't know.
I
I
mean,
just worry
that-
about this Wolves team getting together with 6 games left of the season. You have to go against a Grizzlies team who, I mean, you missed Ja for the last, 8, 10 games, but for the most part, they have the continuity there. They've been the better team all season long, obviously Cat being out, but I have a hard time thinking all of this could come together. They go win a playoff series or even 2, like you're saying, or even get past the Lakers
Listen,
in the play.
realistically, it's 1. But
You're just talking your shit.
I just think, you never know. Everything could go right.
You talked about Brandon Clark being out. I mean,
Then God
Jared-
forbid I talk optimistically about my Lakers. God forbid.
Jared Vanderbilt was huge, getting 7 rebounds per game. He won't be there. He was huge for them last year in that series, the limited time he got. So I think you're looking at that matchup and you're overlooking that John Moran coming back for the Grizzlies with the continuity they have would beat Minnesota because Minnesota doesn't have the continuity. They have to make things click. And it's hard to say in that environment they're going to be able to make things click with all those starters being reintegrated after a lot of time off for Cat and really no chemistry with all of those guys they're trying to kind of integrate. Like, Conley has no reps with Towns. Towns has very little reps with Gobert. And last year, Anthony Edwards played as good as you could have possibly imagined, averaging 25 per game, as hot as he could be.
No comment?
Listen, this guy roots against the Kings, Wolves. You have something against me or something?
I was advocating for Geno before
I
taking a star
appreciate
leap.
And last thing I'm gonna say,
I love
hating
the
on
anti-Joel
Jaden
push.
McDaniels because this is the only thing you can really nitpick. He fouls a lot. I think he's the
3.5.
second
3,
most.
yeah.
So is Jaren Jackson.
But Jaren Jackson's number 1. Number 2 is Jaden McDaniels.
And they're 2 of the best defenders in the league.
And it's like
to be fair.
if you want your best defender on the court, he needs to be a little bit more disciplined.
Also got to be, he's playing physical.
He is, but that physicality in the NBA is dying.
In the
Some of it's a
playoffs, I
lack
think
of
you get
strength
away
as
with
well,
some of those
make it
fouls.
over
I don't
Harris
disagree
replace.
overly.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, listen, you made a fine take, John. But
We
I still
gotta
got
be
the
on- we
rules.
That's what I was saying.
We gotta
That's
be
exactly
grounded.
what I said.
And,
That's
and
actually
listen,
what-
the
we can
difference
have fun,
and
but
the
we gotta be
difference,
grounded.
and listen, the difference. I still think they could beat the Grizzlies though, and I think if you're fine with being wrong, you can make that take all you want. Just a reasoning was sound, but the conclusion, like my Wolves take, the reason is sound. Conclusion is not going to be. Same thing for you, buddy.
Screw you.
The difference, Drew, between the Lakers and Timberwolves is that I'm not throwing pizza parties once they reach 500.
I'm not throwing pizza parties.
One game over 500,
You said
and,
you don't-
and, and
Every
a
time,
celebration.
every time
You
they
said-
win, Lake Show!
I get hyped.
It's
It's my
so
squad.
fucking
They're my favorite team.
obnoxious.
When have you guys been the 6th seed?
Couldn't tell you, man.
They get to the 9th seed, and it's
The 9 seed right now. You guys play tonight? No.
Now we play Wednesday.
Who do you got? Bulls.
Bulls.
Mm.
I'm
Get
happy.
back?
Revenge.
Yeah.
Immediately.
And Chicago.
Good.
John, talk to me. Mike Tomlin's excited about Kenny Pickett's potential in 2023. He said that I'm excited about Kenny, individually in terms of the growth that he's capable of making and what he's willing to do to realize that. So, what are your thoughts on Kenny Pickett? Somebody that doesn't have the highest of potentials.
I want to. That's what I was going to ask you. What is Pickett's potential? Can he be a top 10 guy?
Can Kenny Pickett be a top 10 quarterback? Joel Dehls. That's a loaded question when your offensive coordinator is one Matt Canada. Now, as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, we really struggled to find a good replacement for Todd Haley, who they fired a couple of years ago. And the NFL coaching is so overlooked when developing a young quarterback. And Kenny Pickett last year showed the intangibles, game winners, a clutch gene, an intangible factor that when he decided to go back to pick for a 5th year, he bet himself, he made himself a 1st-round pick and guaranteed himself almost generational wealth in that decision. There is an intangible to Kenny Pickett where maybe that could, to a degree, supersede his lack of arm strength and then maybe not being the most gifted quarterback. But Kenny Pickett last year did show one skill, creating out of structure, that did impress me. Being able to, when shit hit the fan, get out of structure, make plays on the run, throwing on the move. On the flip side of that, he had Derek Carr-like footwork, a little bit antsy in the pocket, and would be in the pocket often, a clean pocket often. And I felt like in his college tape, he left a lot of meat on the bone as well. Maybe
I
giving
just
up
said pockwork. I was like,
pockwork in the pocket. His footwork was a little bit antsy, and that was something he could develop. Mike Tomlin talked about, look, Kenny has to develop everywhere. His rookie year was terrible on the box score, the stat sheet, but he won them a lot of games and finished 7-2 as a starter. Can the Steelers make the playoffs with Kenny Pickett? There's no doubt in my mind. But can they make the playoffs with Matt Canada as their offensive coordinator? That's where we need everything to go right. Because if TJ Watt misses time the way he missed half of last year, and Najee Harris is not 100%, it won't matter, even if Kenny Pickett plays well, because the Steelers team does not have a wide enough margin of error, because their offensive coordinator is probably the worst in football, and they retain him for one last hurrah, kumbaya for Matt Canada. And for Kenny Pickett, this is going to be the make or break year in many ways. Can he take a step forward? Because if he doesn't, then for Pittsburgh, you have questions. He still needs to get better. Well, he showed a lot of the intangible tools. As a Steeler fan, I believe in Kenny Pickett to overcome Matt Canada. But he has weapons. The Steelers bring in Isaac Seumalo. They add in Nate Herbig, a really good backup guard.
Jets.
For a Steelers offensive line last year that had no injuries, the Steelers have a really good offensive line they've built, especially on the interior. And Dan Moore needs to get better at left tackle, but outside of that, they're clean. There's no excuses really for Pickett. But there is, of course, a pretty big issue in the offensive coordinator, and that's where things get really confusing for Pittsburgh.
And that's why I do give him an excuse. Matt Canada is the worst offensive coordinator in the league. And I tweeted this last night at like 3:30 a.m. I'm just a night owl at this point. I think you guys have a lot of talent offensively. You mentioned your offensive line really came into itself last year. Najee Harris got healthy, and we saw the Najee Harris that we saw his rookie season. Najee was a big part of the 7-2 success as well. You mentioned it as well. Kenny Pickett down the stretch was huge. Definitely in that fourth quarter specifically when you needed a drive, KP was able to give it to you. What is the one thing holding me back is Matt Canada. And for your sake, I hope he's fired after week 2. I hope you guys are one of the worst offenses in the league for weeks 1 and 2 and that he's gone because you guys have too much talent offensively. Deontay Johnson could benefit from Matt Canada no longer being there. I believe that regardless, George Pickens is going to be a solid option. The chemistry that KP and him showed immediately last year was great. Pat Freiermuth is one of the better tight ends in the league as well. And again, I already mentioned it. Najee Harris is one of my favorite backs in the game. His versatility, both rushing, his ability, his vision, his strength, his ability to be a receiving back as well, blocking. Najee Harris is the complete package. It's just a matter of health. That's fine. But regardless, we saw him at his healthiest last season and at his best.
Really good.
When he's healthy, he is amazing. Now, to talk about the defense, you mentioned it. TJ missed some time. I'm confident your defense will be good so long as TJ's on the field. You still have Holcomb. You still have Cam Hayward. And with
Landon Roberts.
There you go.
How good he is,
but TJ Watt, with those 3 guys, the front 7 should be fine alone. Just the attention that TJ Watt draws, it'll open up the field for these guys. The concern becomes corner. I think that in this draft where you might want to add some depth at the skill position players, it never hurts to improve an offense, especially you mentioned at the tackle position, they could use some help. But I see corner as your biggest weakness. Losing Cam Sutton to the Lions, that stings. But you brought in Pat Pete. He's old. He showed that he could still play last season. But regardless, I still think you need to upgrade. Kazi was a solid corner last season, but you need to improve at the corner position, in my opinion. I feel like there are some good draft prospects at the corner position.
And believe me, they love to telegraph where they're going in the draft, whether it's Najee or Kenny Pickett. This year, they're making it clear want a linebacker or more specifically a corner.
I was going to say
need a linebacker.
Linebacker definitely could be of help.
Jack
but
was horrible.
He was.
He's gone now, too.
But in my opinion, I feel like secondary is very crucial to a defense where, yes, I think you just need that one guy, especially after losing Cam Sutton. That really did hurt you guys. But I believe in the talent of this offense. I laughed when you said we can make the playoffs because you said there's no doubt in my mind. It was just the way you came across. I wasn't laughing at the statement.
It's the Joel Moran absolute specialist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I definitely believe in the talent of this team. There's a world they win 10 games. I believe in that. I believe in this talent.
9,
so
back years.
I just say double-digit wins. That's why 10 games was the first number to come to my mind. But it really is dependent on what they do in this draft, and it's also dependent on Matt Canada no longer being in Pittsburgh.
I have a bet with one of my Steelers friends, Jared, I have under 10 wins. He has 10 or more. I have under 10 wins.
10 or more is a very fair bet.
It is. And the one thing that really stood out to me that John said was this could be a make or break year for Kenny Pickett because a quarterback going into year 2, you don't really think of if this doesn't work out this season, he's going to go on to another team or they trade him or whatever. But you also got to think Kenny Pickett's going to be 25 entering his second season. This is a guy who played 5 seasons of college. He was a super senior. So the potential of a guy who is getting drafted at 24, going to be 25, and you already saw to an extent his ceiling in college, I still think it's a fair thing to say that year 2, obviously he could still progress, but you want to see some significant strides, I think, from year 1 to year 2. And Kenny, we know, doesn't have the biggest arm. He's not the most athletic, but I think the biggest thing he can do is almost in a Joe Burrow type, just being mentally smarter than everybody. Because I have a hard time believing Pickett's going to be able to tear up defenses just with his natural ability being a quarterback, whether that's running or throwing. He's accurate. He can throw with anticipation, and he has wheels too. He's not an immobile quarterback by any means. But to talk about the Steelers a little bit too, I like the roster. It's not bad by any means. There's some holes there. When I look offensively, I just wonder what your specialty is going to be in a sense, because I like Najee. I think he's a really good running back. Is he Derrick Henry? Is he CMC that you could build an offense around? I don't know just yet. I don't know if he has the explosiveness enough to do that. And then we look at the wide receivers. I like Deontay, probably wide receiver 2. George Pickens has that wide receiver 1 potential, but you can't really just label him that already. Yeah. And the defense has made improvements. But still, corner is a number 1 need, I think, pretty common. But this is a really good cornerback class you could get throughout the draft, not just round 1, day 2, and day 3 as well. But what I'm really focused on is with Matt Canada, how this offense is going to run, because year 2 with Kenny Pickett, are they going to make it more about him? You just spent a first-round pick on Najee Harris, who, after there was the bye week, I believe, really turned it on and looked like
took
that.
the plate out of his cleat, opened up his game completely.
And looked like the Najee Harris we saw rookie year, Najee Harris we saw at Alabama. It's just tough division. You got Burrow in there. You got potentially Lamar and Deshaun Watson. And Kenny Pickett is pretty comfortably the 4th best quarterback in that division. So it's really, it's not the craziest thing to say, is this a make or break year for him, just because the upside does seem capped with the 25-year-old second-year quarterback.
Second year for quarterbacks is always a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you believe in them too much, and sometimes you believe in them too little.
Sometimes, you know how like rides go like tick, tick, tick to go up? Sometimes it just goes around.
Sometimes it just collapses completely. When I think about the Steelers, I just think about one of the more stuck teams in the NFL.
Wow.
Because the quarterback position is so important.
Welcome to the club, brother. You're on the show. Your favorite team now becomes Joel Moran's least.
The quarterback that you have is just somebody that he's shown some moxie. After the bye week, when you guys went 7-2, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, 84 passer rating, there's some stuff there. But you know what is Kenny Pickett at his best? And to me, when I think about Kenny Pickett at his best, probably a little better than Daniel Jones. Not nothing special though.
At his best, he's Daniel Jones, what he was this past season.
A little better than Daniel. He hates Daniel Jones, so a little better than Daniel Jones, the below average quarterback.
It's an average quarterback.
By the way, Daniel Jones clears KP.
Or a good one. You know, John.
If you gave Daniel Jones, Deontay Johnson, and George Pickens, goodness gracious.
You know, John.
You gave Kenny Pickett,
Brian Dable. It's a fact.
And this is the thing I think about, man, is that the way you just openly felt comfortable disrespecting an MVP in the NFL.
Matt Ryan.
John is somebody
who's
that
9 years old.
He disrespected one of the staples of an organization. He disrespected Carr, Derek Carr.
Did he?
Kenny Pickett would kill to be Derek Carr. And if Kenny Pickett becomes as good as Derek Carr,
this guy was watching last
you're
season.
Dancing. You're hula hooping.
You know, I remember Kenny Pickett outplaying Derek Carr at Heinz Field, beating
that was
him.
A movie.
And that was actually Derek Carr's last game as a Raider, where he had 3 picks, lost in the game.
The last game or the last player's interception.
And Kenny Pickett, Pickett, game-winning touchdown on Franco Harris. You know, so I think Kenny
2016
Pickett,
Derek Carr, familiarize yourself. Now.
7 years ago.
Yes, this is what he did with Matt Ryan.
That really is
Derek Carr is better
just a
than what
year
Matt
ago,
Ryan
he
is.
led a team to the playoffs with a lot of dysfunction.
Daniel Jones did as well, but you're low on DJ.
Daniel Jones did not lead nothing, man.
And why is it? Yo, let me think about this. So you like Baker Mayfield a lot because he's got the intangible. You don't like Daniel Jones, even though he has the intangible, and you don't like Kenny Pickett that much, though he has the intangible. Maybe it's because your pre-draft.
Jones have the
you know
intangibles?
His pre-draft comp for Kenny Pickett, you know who it was?
Who was it?
Taysom Hill. That's why.
Taysom Hill? What's that?
Taysom Hill. I said Taysom Hill, but a better thrower than him.
For Kenny Pickett?
Yes.
I forgot about that.
What is that a bad
So
one?
that's I think
It's a pretty bad
that's
comp,
why-
I'll be honest.
It was a pretty bad comp.
I don't even know what that means. Just,
You know, John is trying to cook me right now. Alice, let me rebuttal John, because it's enough disrespect at this table that's going on right now.
yo,
I'm
nah,
here
the
for it.
Taysom
It's a lot of
Hill shit is
disrespect.
wicked.
Now, let me get into my bag right now. When we talk about Daniel Jones, he just showed out this season. Yes, I like Baker Mayfield. I'm not delusional about Baker. I'm rooting for him in Tampa Bay because I want him to get his career on track. Just like I think we like to root for players to, find their way in the league again. Baker Mayfield had one of the better rookie seasons that we've seen in recent history. Was that Kenny Pickett? Hell no. If Kenny Pickett had the rookie season Baker Mayfield had, you're over here telling me Kenny Pickett's a top 10 quarterback this upcoming season. That's a fact. Baker Mayfield led the Browns to the playoffs and got them their first playoff win since 2002.
Daniel Jones with the Giants their first playoff win in 12 years.
The Giants have two Super Bowl championships while I've been alive.
What's
Doesn't
the
matter.
difference?
What have the Browns been? They've been nothing. Baker Mayfield restored life into a lifeless franchise. They were 0-16 without him. He comes in, they win 7 games. Now that's a guy with moxie. Daniel Jones has not shown
Yeah,
that.
they didn't just add Nick Chubb,
And-
Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett.
Baker Mayfield was also good. He was also throwing dots to Jarvis Landry across the field in his rookie season. Now, John, you would kill for Kenny Pickett to be Baker Mayfield as a rookie. You would kill to have
He won
Kenny
more
Pickett.
games.
You would kill to have Baker. You would kill for Kenny Pickett to have year 3 Baker Mayfield numbers.
What
You
about year
would.
2 Baker numbers?
Freddie Kitchens is the culprit.
Oh.
But John, the disrespect you
so
get
you're
to Derek
for Baker.
Carr,
That's always-
yet you try to prop up a quarterback in Kenny Pickett, who he might not even be a starter in a year.
I
mean,
never
come on.
propped up Kenny.
Let's-
I didn't sound
let's
like you
be
propped
honest.
him up, to be
Let's
honest.
be honest about your team for a second. Yeah, the receivers are cute. George Pickens, Deontay Johnson. Listen, I like the talent. Your linebackers suck. Landon Roberts, Cole Holcomb
Cole
is
is a
average.
run stopper.
He's
Linebackers.
average.
What are we
He
doing
is
here?
average. He's the epitome of average.
I like
Because
Holcomb.
you guys took a fire on Miles
But
Jack,
doesn't-
and he was
Miles
horrible.
Jack
Doesn't
stinks.
And
edge
Joe
rusher matter
Schobert
more?
before that. Then you signed Pat Pete. You might as well kept Cameron Sutton. Why did you sign Pat Pete? It was
They
literally
added Isaac
it was
Samuel
it was
along with that.
it was a
That's big.
it was a lateral move. The only good offseason move this offseason for the Steelers has been Isaac Samalu. Everybody else has been whatever. Nate Herbig, you're gonna sell me on him? I've seen defensive tackles blow by him all season long with the
he's a
Jets.
backup
What are you
guard.
talking about? He's a backup guard. Come on, what are you talking about, John? Your team is cooked. You're not as good as the Browns because they have Deshaun Watson, who I think even if
He hates Deshaun Watson.
I
even
don't know what he's doing
even
right
if
now.
even if Deshaun Watson has a season where we're like, wow, they really give him that contract, that's still better than Kenny Pickett. Let's be honest. Deshaun Watson on a mediocre day is Kenny Pickett at
Don't
his
pull up
best day.
numbers to compare the two.
I'm checking
Don't.
I'm checking the last time the Browns finished above the Steelers in the standings because last time I checked it wasn't a live.
Joe
stat.
Burrow, the Bengals,
But
oh
did
yeah,
they
they're
match
way
up
better
in
than
the
you.
playoffs?
You're in the playoffs.
Didn't they smoke y'all like cigars?
Yeah,
That was
bad.
our down year. The Steelers
Down year?
were
You went
11
11 and 0.
The Steelers down year is a wild card loss. The Browns' best year in the last 25
You
years.
guys missed the playoffs
going to the
last year.
second
Your
round.
down year was this past year when you guys went.
Not to mention,
Oh, you guys went 9-8.
This past year they went out.
That was the rebuilding
This
year.
fucker never
That was
goes
the
under
rebuilding year
500.
when they switched a Hall of Fame quarterback and a Hall of Fame GM and still finished above
Mitch
500.
Trubisky.
and
Lost
not
to the
only
Jets,
that,
lost Zach Wilson.
but I look
And
at the
before Mitch would have won 10, 11 games.
I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Let's calm it down.
be
Even
honest.
if I'm not
Mitch would have
confident,
won 10, 11 games.
We would have without him if Kenny
Oh,
started
oh,
all
my bad,
17.
my bad, my
yeah,
bad.
yeah. If Kenny started all 17,
He wasn't being the Jets.
he would have.
Kenny might have.
Drunk.
You saw the first
Zach
half.
Wilson was
Continue.
dog shit the
Continue.
entire
No, no,
fucking
quarter.
game.
Continue with
about
that
it.
thought on
He
the
was
Browns.
elite.
Let him
Yeah,
finish.
he was.
it's not even the Browns, it's the Ravens. Even if I'm not confident Lamar Jackson starting, Tyler Huntley can be comparable to Kenny Pickett. He was just a Pro Bowl, you know that, right?
Are you going to respect
Pro
Mike
Bowl.
Tomlin, bro? At what point does he
I
get
do
put into
respect
this
Mike
mix?
Tomlin. Eventually, he will have a losing season, and it's gonna be this season.
Sounds like you're praying
What
on
is
it.
he doing?
You're praying
I'm not playing on
it.
that downfall.
I
I'm just
what
saying
did, John,
he has
what
been
did I
amazing.
open his monologue with?
He
I
loves to
said,
hate
welcome,
He's been amazing.
welcome to the show, because now that you're on the show, Steelers are now one of his least
When
favorite
have I
teams.
ever liked the Steelers? What are we talking about
Never
here?
There's
heard you
just
talk
never
this
been this
nasty
agenda
on him.
push to negative Steelers talk.
He
I don't know
said
the
that
last
they can
time
make
the
the
Ravens beat
playoffs.
the
I don't think
Steelers.
you're not making the.
It's
Listen, you're not
unlikely,
making
but
the playoffs.
it's not
You're
out
not
the realm
making
of
the playoffs.
possibility.
Really?
Listen,
I wouldn't bet on it.
Steelers, for some reason, the Mike Tomlin effect is very real because y'all went 500, above 500 with a rookie quarterback who was average. I mean, he was average, and a washed Big Ben. I don't know how you guys get away with mid-ass quarterback play to horrible quarterback play these last couple seasons. But this year, I guarantee you're not getting away with it. You're not going to get away with it.
A mid-Big Ben that won 9 games. And here's the other thing.
The playoffs.
You made the playoffs. Great point. You overlook the fact the Steelers have T.J. Watt, reigning Defensive Player of the Year, Alex Highsmith, a breakout edge rusher across him. This has 13 sacks.
He's great.
That's arguably the best outside linebacker duo in the league. We talk about productivity. You have Minka Fitzpatrick.
No doubt.
Arguably the best safety in the game.
Best safety in the
No
game.
doubt.
Those 3 players right there makes them one of the better defenses at its peak without even including what they're going to do with the 17th overall pick. What happens to the Steelers draft to get Devon Witherspoon out of Illinois or Christian Gonzalez? What happens to that defense now that Patrick Peterson gets to mentor one of those guys? Plus, we have one of our guys in the slot. Whatever I want to call it. The Steelers defense has the upside to be top 5, top 3. We've seen it before.
No, they don't. I'm sorry. No, they don't.
Ooh, top 5, top 3.
All right, if you're saying
They were just top 5 2 years ago and 3 years ago when they were
Because
healthy.
you had a fraudulent schedule. You started 11-0 and you were
That was
ass.
nuts, yeah.
You weren't even a good
You
team.
need T.J. Watt to stay
You
healthy.
lost in the
Watt-
first round to the Browns. I hope you know that.
You need Watt to stay healthy for 17 games to have a chance of that.
No. You said top 5 offense or top 5
5
defense?
Top 5, top 3 defense.
I almost threw up thinking that you said offense. Defense. Just say
You have
top
a better
10, make
you have
it
a
more
better
comfortable.
chance top 5
If
defense.
we
or
get a
top 5
quarterback
offense.
one,
No
if
doubt.
we get a quarterback one like Devon Witherspoon, that's a top 5 defense next season. If T.J. Watt plays all 17 games,
Yeah, rookies don't
and
always
the fact
come to the
he's
elitist
giggling
corner,
him like
though.
that. 2019 was top 3 defense with Duck Hodges and Mason Rudolph under center.
That's a fact.
If we could run the football
It's
and
really
have a halfway
dependent on
decent
TJ.
offense,
Exactly. You need
then we
T.J.
can-
Watt healthy the whole season.
If we can have a better offense earlier in the year, T.J. Watt won't be gassed out. I mean, against the Bengals, we played over 100 snaps in that game, and that led to T.J. Watt getting injured right at the end of the 4th quarter. If T.J.'s on the field less and getting more rest, he's not going to be hurt as much. So that's the difference here.
If Kenny Pickett is Ryan Tannehill for the Steelers,
W.
where do they finish in the division?
Above the Browns.
Is Lamar Jackson on the Ravens or no?
Yes.
3rd place.
He's on the
Maybe
Ravens.
4th. I don't know.
Yeah.
3rd place seems like best case scenario.
That's what I'm saying.
You would think for a Jets fan, right?
Oh,
that-
Coach John.
Oh, now you're coming at the Jets because I just spit some facts at you?
It's never easy.
There's nothing you can tell me about the Jets that I don't already know.
That's
you want
except
to
about Zach
come
Wilson.
and try to slam dunk in the Steelers, who have a head coach.
I
one
wanted
of their
Derek Carr. I wasn't
defenses?
slandering Derek Carr at all. You were saying Derek Carr when you got a mid quarterback yourself.
He didn't slander him. All he
Yes,
said
he did.
just had
He disrespected Derek
not the
Carr.
best footwork.
He disrespected
All he
DC4.
said is that his footwork wasn't
He
good.
disrespected DC4.
That's not disrespect, I don't think.
You
What
disrespected
were you
DC4.
going to say about the Jets?
It's rich coming from a Jets fan to throw all that Steelers when they have a proven head coach, right? Hall of Fame head coach, one of the better defenses, and with Najee Harris, if Kenny Pickett take a step forward this upcoming season, they can win
That
10,
means
11
even
games.
more for Najee as well, though.
So you look at the Steelers team and you feel like they're mid. I understand where you're coming from, where they don't have a top 5 quarterback in the making, but we've seen the Steelers in the past maximize their rosters.
For sure.
And I feel like if you can get a good offensive coordinator in here, they can be the second best team in the AFC.
I
North
hope
for a
you
long time.
know that the
You're-
Jets
oh, man.
the
That's
Jets
a hot
have the
take.
same amount of AFC Championship appearances as the Steelers in the last 12 years.
It's a good
How many
point.
championships?
Neither have won.
And you said
12
12 years.
12.
Well, like screw
Yes,
this guy.
sir.
Since 2009. Since 2009, we've had the same amount of AFC Championship appearances. Whenever people talk shit about the Jets, the AFC Championship appearances are like the
Shout out
trap
to
card.
Rex in 2009.
Shout out to Mark
2010,
Sanchez,
carrying
bro.
us in
Yeah,
2023.
but what happened when you guys played in the AFC Championship to the Steelers?
They lost the Super
They,
Bowl.
they beat us by
He's
it was
not ready
they
for
barely
Omar
beat
Khan.
us.
Oh,
They barely
they
beat
lost
us.
in the Super Bowl.
He's not ready for Omar Khan, fellas. That's
They
the
barely
issue.
beat us. The thing about it, Mike Tomlin can overachieve as much as he wants in the regular season.
I was rooting
In the
for Green
playoffs,
Bay
that does
like
not
that.
happen.
Me too.
In the playoffs, y'all lose.
That's a fact.
In the playoffs, we've had some pretty desolate defenses in the secondary and at linebacker.
Yeah, your defense.
And in
when
the
you
playoffs,
had the
you've also
the big
had some
Bs.
things go your way, like the Vontaze Burfict hit when the Bengals should have won that playoff game.
They should have won that playoff game. And I feel like we would have went to the Super Bowl in 2017 if Ryan Shazier didn't have his injury. And since then, the Steelers have
God bless.
spiraled defensively.
You want to know what also is crazy?
That was the missing piece for Jacksonville.
I will tell
when they
you
ran all down our throat.
the best team that the Steelers had of recent memory was the year that the Broncos won the Super Bowl, because that year when we played you guys, that was the game after the Cincinnati game, I believe. AB didn't play. Le'Veon didn't play.
D'Angelo didn't play.
We won by 2 points. And that was one of the best defenses of all time. We won by 2 points. I believe it was 21-19.
Yeah.
It's weird because the Steelers can have this influx of talent, and then they'll lose to the Browns for the first time since 2002. They won a playoff game, And
Going 11-0 and losing that way was fucking
You
crazy.
lost 7 straight that year, I think, right?
The reason no, we
They win
didn't.
another
No,
game after
they
that
went
one
up-
up.
they
we,
went-
Yeah, we did. We won one of our last 6.
and as much as
One
you
of your
want
last
to,
six?
and as
Yeah.
much as
Oh,
you
my-
want to act,
got one. My bad.
look,
My
John,
bad.
you're the context king. You're gonna add context to all these games. The bottom line is that the Blake Bortles Jags beat you when you had Big Ben, Le'Veon, AB, and Mike
Their
Tomlin.
defense was dog shit.
Yeah, but they still beat them.
But
That
Bortles-
they
offense
should have
put
never
up how
won.
many points?
But they should have
40.
never won.
They
Leonard
scored
Fournette
42.
looked like prime.
And
Damian
that's what you
Tomlinson.
won't. And talking about context, if Ryan Shazier plays in that game, we beat the Jaguars. We play the Patriots in the AFC Championship game. If there's
Injuries
any year
happen.
we could have beaten New England, that would have been the season with Ryan Shazier, in theory. And so you can talk all you want about us losing to the Browns. That one injury really did cost them a Super Bowl.
It was
along
a choke job. And even that season, Drew just showed me you lost 4 of your last 5. That season you went 11-0. Even when you guys went 11-0, I feel like everyone saw it was a bullshit 11-0. The schedule was a joke. You guys played nobody, and it was hard to say an undefeated team of frauds, but we kind of saw it come from a
I
mile
will
away.
never ever forget me and my friend Joey Stasi. Joey Stasi was on the show when he went to Big Ben's last game. I'll never forget that year prior to the
Biggest side
season.
legend, Joe Stasi.
We had a bet that the Steelers. He said that they would win 13 games. They started 11-0. I think we bet $100 on it.
You thought you were cooked.
He was
11-0. He's like, Drew, remember our bet, bro? I said 13 wins. I said, all right. I never rooted against the Steelers so hard in my life. That last game, I think it was against the Browns, ironically enough.
Yep.
They
barely
lose
beat us.
they lose that game, and I remember recording myself clowning Joey. Send me my Benji, because he loves to call a $100 bill a Benji. I stole his money. I was never so happy. Y'all are really sorry for that shit.
You know,
respect the Steelers.
John, when I think about John, I think about somebody who's a tank commander. Whenever teams are mediocre, he's the first one that says to blow it up. He's a tank commander. The Steelers are not far off from the Bulls of the NFL.
That's ludicrous. This is one of the youngest offenses in football. One of the
Quarterback
youngest, one of the
matters
newest.
tremendously.
And he's 24 years old. It's one of the best defenses, one of the best head coaches. And Omar Khan, the con artist of the GM, you don't know nothing about Khan. You know nothing. So watch yourself. Watch yourself. The 17th overall pick this year, the Steelers, they're going to surprise you when they move up in the draft.
They're going to
draft
draft,
a
they're gonna draft a
quarterback
linebacker. Just
If they're
freaking
not.
the stars.
They're going to take one of Witherspoon or Gonzalez. And the Steelers,
So you're manifesting.
the Steelers next year are going to shock a lot of people.
They're winning the
People
division.
Like you,
Say it.
when they have a top 5 defense and they still finish more wins than the Browns.
They can win more games than the Browns. If
And it
Lamar's
will
there, they're
happen.
not winning more than the Bengals and Ravens.
And they're probably going to win more games than the Ravens too.
If Lamar's there,
When's the last time Lamar beat the Steelers? When's the last time Lamar played in Pittsburgh? 2 years ago.
when's the last time?
When's the last time Lamar beat the Steelers? It was when Duck Hodges was under center. So,
That's a W. We'll take it.
and Duck almost beat him too in his NFL debut. So,
Wait, did he?
the Steelers own Lamar.
Who you'd rather have, Kenny Pickett or Lamar? Let's be so serious here. Who the
They're
fuck
regular
cares?
season merchants. The Steelers are regular season merchants. You can only fall back on your history.
That's the God honest truth. I'll be honest.
That's not fair. 6 chips.
Their history.
One of them recently.
They haven't done.
I was
shit.
alive for 2 of them.
People love to talk when they're up.
What, when's the?
You could
when
say
you
they're
win the last
history
four?
merchants. I was alive for 2 of them.
2 of them.
Yeah, Seattle and Arizona.
Ben's rookie year.
Okay.
Second year.
I remember watching that game.
Okay.
Was it 2000?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah, I think 5.
Like fucking 6.
Cardinals should have won that too, man.
Well, yeah, so.
They should have won.
Yeah.
Cardinals choked it bad.
Antonio Holmes.
Go
Jet legend.
Talking about quarterbacks that, I guess, I don't know if they admit here or whatever. We're going to debate it right now.
There you go.
Sometimes in the NFL season, quarterbacks exceed expectations, and they play great. They have amazing statistical seasons. Usually when we have these topics, it's about which quarterback is going to break out because we want to be positive. But sometimes you got to look at the world in a realistic point of view.
Are you capable of that?
Yeah, definitely. I always look at things realistically. The 3 quarterbacks that I think shocked the world, like Rod Wave, this past season, was Geno Smith, comeback player of the year. Daniel Jones led the Giants to the playoffs in 1 playoff game. And Tua was number 1 in a lot of quarterback stats for a majority of the season. Now, which quarterback is most likely to regress after a breakout 2022? Now, Dehls, I'm very curious to hear your answer for this.
I saw this question, thought about it for maybe 10 seconds, and the answer just came to me. It was pretty easy. It's Daniel Jones. Nothing against Daniel Jones, but I'm gonna give
flip aside,
I'm
man.
gonna give
You're just unbelievable.
I'm gonna give your guy credit, so don't disrespect me. Tua has too much talent and too good of a head coach to fail. With all due respect to Tua, he's a good quarterback. Will he ever be elite? Probably not.
No.
Will he always be an upper echelon quarterback with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike
probably
McDaniel? Probably be a above average quarterback. I have a hard time seeing Tua taking a massive step back from last season and just completely going down to the dumps and not being good, not being respectable. There's just too much there for him to work with. Geno Smith, I think, might be the most talented out of all three of these guys. I saw him make high-level throws. I saw him make tight window throws. I saw him have a better year than Russell Wilson did the previous season, leading the league in completion percentage. Winning or being in competition for a half with the 49ers is pretty impressive as well. So that leaves Daniel Jones. And I don't want this to be a shit on Daniel Jones segment because I think for the most part, a majority of NFL fans know what Daniel Jones is. He's an average quarterback. He can have above average moments. He could have below average moments.
Remember when he said he had no flaws? You remember that?
Yeah, but he doesn't do anything exceptional.
Hey, you remember that? I'm talking to you. You like to recall on...
Doesn't ring a bell.
Go to hell.
Listen, Daniel Jones might not have a huge flaw like to his arm strength, for example.
That is also a stupid narrative.
What Daniel Jones doesn't have is he doesn't do anything exceptional.
Turn on the fucking film.
He's a good athlete, but he's not Lamar. He's not Justin Fields. He's not Kyler. He has a good arm, but it's not Josh Allen. It's none of these elite guys. For the most part, last year, he was throwing to wide open receivers on beautiful, beautiful schemed routes with, hey, Brian Dable, coach of the year. He'll still be there. He'll still dial those up. You brought in Darren Waller. Love that move. Hodgins, another year in the system. We're talking about them drafting potentially another receiver in this draft. So he's going to have some weapons. But I look at the other guys in Tua and Geno Smith. They're in better situations. And for Geno Smith, he's just straight up a much better quarterback than what Daniel Jones is right now. The Giants' schedule also gets a lot harder. Last year, they won the easiest schedule in the NFL. This year, they have top 10 in terms of last year's record, strength of schedule. So it's not going to be a cakewalk like it was this previous season. Daniel Jones will have a fine year, 3,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, maybe 10 interceptions or so. But he would probably be the one I would pick out of this group to regress.
Said a lot there, Dehls. Said a lot. Now, Drew, am I mistaken, or are you going to go with Geno Smith?
Here's the thing about this.
And disrespect his name.
Here's the thing. Right.
Come back,
You
Birdie.
came up with this topic directly meant for me. It was obvious. Two of my guys and Geno Smith, who I don't care for too much, but I've given him his respect. Rightfully so. Comeback player of the year. He was amazing. Comeback player of the year because really it wasn't due to injury. It was just due to the fact that he never got burned because he wasn't good. He goes to Seattle and was fantastic. I'll give him his praise, no doubt. You said it, first in completion percentage, well over 4,000 yards. He was great. I'll say this. Give Daniel Jones, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Give him Kenny Walker. Give him Pete Carroll. Well, I can't say that because he has Brian Dable, one of the better offensive coaches in the game. Really?
Said Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, no. I mean, he has to be in that mix. He's a great
you can
skill
give
position
Daniel Jones
player.
that stuff and also tell Daniel Jones to read the field like Geno Smith. He won't be able to.
I just get tired of you saying this narrative that he's not great at reading the field.
Everything's schemed up for him.
Same with Geno Smith.
Nah, Geno Smith made a lot of high-level throws, bro.
And so did Daniel Jones.
Not that one.
Not like Geno, no duh.
Geno made
because
10
their
times
offense,
more
yeah,
big-time
why
throws.
is that? Because their
'Cause he's
offense
better.
was pass first. Why is that? You have DK Metcalf. You have Tyler Lockett. You have that luxury because you have dogs on the outside. Nevertheless, I'm not taking anything away from Geno. Ultimately, you have to go onto the field and you have to produce. No way in hell am I going to say Tua is going to regress. He was fantastic this year. All he's going to do is continue to get better. God willing, he stays on the field. That's the only concern. He was unbelievable. First in terms of passer rating. First in terms of yards per completion. First in EPA. Because people love EPA. So I just got to make sure that we throw that in there.
You hate
Talking about a
EPA.
Tua.
His favorite stat. Oh, I hate it. I hate it. I couldn't stand it.
What are you talking about Tua
Because
right
I
now?
know
Oh, push
people
it.
love it.
Push it. Love it.
Regardless of that fact.
Expected play average.
I can't say that DJ is going to regress because the talent is going to continue to get better. He's now in year 2 of Brian Dable's system. In year 1, he retained it relatively quickly and was still able to have success. So much success that they beat Joel Moran's Minnesota Vikings.
So now you bring in Darren Waller. That is a huge upgrade. Will definitely be his number one target, but he cannot be the only upgrade you make to this wide receiving core this offseason. I need to see the Giants make a big splash on draft day for a wide receiver. At the minimum, you need to try and acquire a receiver, whether it's via trade or through the draft. I need to see it because you can't go into the season with Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, Paris Campbell. I forgot that was a big addition. And Sterling Shepard, who you cannot rely on because of his injury history. I love Sterling Shepard in terms of the Giants' offense. Him and Daniel Jones have an obvious connection. But the one who's prone to regress is Geno Smith. Can he replicate this? Is he really in a position to replicate this type of season?
Yes.
I only look at DJ in terms of, he got knocked for throwing only 15 touchdowns this season. That number's bound to go up. Tua threw 28 touchdowns in 13 games. He plays a full 17. That's going to go up. Geno Smith played the entirety of the season, was phenomenal. But this was the first year that we saw Geno Smith be great. I still think that he's going to be good, but it won't be what we saw this past season.
John, I want to get spicy here. Geno Smith is actually in the best position to replicate what he just did. Seattle's only getting better. DK Metcalf is great. Tyler Lockett is great. I'm looking here, Geno Smith, and let me ask you, what stat did you say was first EPA? Tua, okay. You know, he's a stats merchant. I ain't going to push back. A lot of numbers look great for him.
I'm the stat merchant.
Love stat.
No,
merchant.
I said Tua.
Okay, I almost vomited.
The advanced numbers love Tua. They do. Geno Smith this past season was 5th in big time throw percentage. Daniel Jones was 32nd. Daniel Jones had 8 big time throws this past season.
Why are you talking to me about Daniel Jones' passing when he was throwing to no one?
He's a quarterback.
He had no good weapons.
Let me ask you, Dehls.
Why is it that Lamar Jackson gets the benefit of the doubt of no weapons? But God forbid I try to tag that with Daniel Jones.
Have you seen Lamar Jackson play football?
Lamar Jackson had double the big time throws of Daniel Jones in less games.
All right,
nobody.
All right, coming from the king of Lamar Jackson's done nothing in the playoffs. Who had a better playoff debut?
Daniel Jones. Lamar Jackson has not had the luxury of playing a trash defense like that.
Daniel Jones in year 4.
Daniel Jones is surrounded by the worst supporting cast in the league.
That defense was absolutely dog shit. Lamar Jackson has faced good defenses.
I think it's a matter of
Bills.
arm talent. Where Geno
we saw Daniel Jones. Like, why do we just throw away the Eagles game? He was dog shit.
The Eagles were significantly better.
He was dog shit. Dehls. Daniel Jones was 32nd in big time throws. He had 8. You want to know what other quarterbacks had 8 big time throws? Mike White in less games.
In like 3 games, probably.
Zach Wilson,
Garrett Wilson. Oh my God.
Marcus Mariota had the same.
We're talking about like 3 games of Mike
Baker
Garrett
Mayfield
Wilson, what were his numbers
had the same amount of
games?
big time throws.
How many did Mac Jones have?
Mac Jones. Let me look at Mac Jones. He was 12th with 22 big time throws this past season.
Almost triple.
With the receivers, are they anything great? And
Jacoby Myers would come to the Giants and immediately be their number one.
But he's not a big time player like
Hunter
Henry. He's not a
Henry.
downfield
He's
receiver.
coming to the
Hunter
Giants.
Henry's not a downfield receiver.
Those are not
No one's
take the
saying
top
that.
off the defense.
We're
But
talking
that's
about
not
big time
throws is
that's
also
20 plus yards.
Is that what the status?
Yeah, 20.
Big time throws. I'm just assuming
we're
that it's just
seeing-
a big in terms of like situation.
No, it usually has to do with
Placement.
yardage.
What Joel is getting at is that Daniel Jones doesn't have the arm talent to be able to tight a high level throw in such a tight window.
In terms
Geno
of
Smith.
big time throw percentage, Daniel Jones ranked 60th in the NFL.
Oh, jeez.
60th in the
I'm
NFL.
glad that you
players
guys are going
qualify?
to do this.
Geno Smith is in by far the least position to regress. I think he's a good player, and watching the tape, when you look at Daniel Jones, Tua, and Geno was the best quarterback. He looked the best. The throws he made were the best.
Not better than Tua.
They were the best. The reason why I'm not going to say Tua's going to regress the reason why I'm not going to say DJ is going to regress out of these guys, it's hard to regress from 15 passing touchdowns. It really is.
That's why your answer couldn't be DJ.
It ain't going to be. But Daniel Jones, he might have a little bit better statistical season. It'll be the same quarterback. Daniel Jones won't be nothing special. Tua is going to regress big time. He is. And the reason why is because
It's just so fucking
you look at Tua's best stretch this past season, it was against the Steelers, which they had like 4 dropped interceptions in that game.
We did.
Detroit.
That was his first game back from the concussion that was televised repeatedly.
Okay,
nonstop.
cool. Detroit. He smoked them. They fired the defense. They fired the secondary's coach
Imagine
right
being
after
that good that they fired defensive.
Chicago was a dog shit defense. Cleveland was not a good defense this past season either. They were all right. Stopping the run, they were one of the worst in the league. Like statistically, historically,
Right, stopping the run, but why did Tua light him up for over
and then
300
Houston,
yards?
and then
I'm
Houston,
asking, right? What their run defense was so historically bad. Why did Tua light them up?
and
for
then
a pass?
Houston, he had good stats against Houston.
A secondary that's actually solid too.
The games where Tua padded his stats: Detroit, Chicago, Cleveland, Houston. 11 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in those games. I'm including Pittsburgh in this as well. Tua in December. Man, this was y'all boogeyman. This is what every Dolphins fan was waiting for. The San Francisco game, Chargers, Buffalo. I'm not even going to include Green Bay because of the concussion. It's a bit unfair, right? San Francisco, Chargers, Buffalo. Those 3 games, 49% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 83 passer rating. Now, if I had in the Green Bay game, it looks very bad. It's 6 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in that stretch.
Talk to me. That Bills game, Tua was bad.
Tua wasn't good. He was all right.
Huh? In that Bills
He
game?
wasn't good. He
You're
made one
in the
fucking
snow?
throw, bro. He
In
made
the
one throw.
snow?
He only made one throw.
They lost by 3 points.
The only two-
defense let up 32.
We gonna act like Raheem Mostert was not good in that game?
He
was
was,
great.
but we're gonna pretend like Tua wasn't
We're
either.
not gonna act like Tua threw a ball to a slant to Jalen Waddle and he just took it to the house.
Okay, you
Huh?
act like it's a bad.
Jalen Waddle did everything for him.
my
We're not gonna talk about the deep ball Tua threw to Jalen Waddle where he actually underthrew him. Like Tua had a negative EPA in all these 3 games, by the way. Also, Green
'Cause you
Bay
love EPA, right?
and Tua this year was 12th in turnover-worthy plays, despite playing 13 games. In terms of turnover-worthy play percentage, he had the same percentage as Josh Allen, who led the league in it, and Geno Smith, who also were 1 and 2. They were both 1 and 2. And yes, you might want to knock Geno for the turnover-worthy plays. That's because he's aggressive as hell as well, and there's a balance to
So
that.
Tua being right, if you're gonna say him trying to make passes that you shouldn't and leading to interceptions, that means the aggression. So then why are you knocking Tua for it then?
Because Tua was 20th in big time throws. He was not even top 10 in big time throws. Yet he had the.
How many throws did we see
Yet
him-
he was tied
So
first for the
why
highest
was-
percentage of turnover-worthy plays.
Yards after the catch, yards per completion prior to yards after the catch, Tua was still number 1.
We talking about big time throws though. He didn't make a lot of big time throws.
All right, but that doesn't.
he didn't
mean
make as much
anything
as
to
Geno
me.
or Josh Allen.
He still led the league in terms of that. So
Dehls,
come on,
Dehls.
bro.
This is the Dolphins' schedule this season. Just
It's hard.
defenses. The Jets twice. That's an elite defense, right? Can
Of
you know,
course.
the Patriots twice. The
Oh,
Bills
good defense.
twice.
They're okay. Bills are okay.
Washington.
They're okay. Washington's a good defense.
The Chargers.
They're okay. They
TBD.
gave him hell last time though.
Yeah.
The Broncos.
Hell,
We're dogs.
The Cowboys.
tough,
We'll see.
The Ravens.
tough,
That's a bad defense. Yeah.
The Eagles.
They're really good.
tough.
We'll see.
And now the last 2 that they're not in this group, but the Titans and Panthers, they're not slouches
Could be
defensively
stingy.
either. Tua does not have light games in this schedule. He's not going to be lighting teams up like he did last year.
And we're all going predicated off last season, how these teams look. Think about it. Prior to this season, in terms of schedule difficulty, the Seahawks were definitely catered into these strength of schedules because no one projected the Seahawks to be this good and completely changed the outlook of things. So I really take this strength of schedule shit with a grain of salt, if I'm being completely transparent.
You're overlooking how much better the Dolphins' defense will be if Vic Fangio coming in and their additions of Jalen Ramsey. I mean, that defense is going to take a huge, at least notable step forward, right? And that's going to support Tua as well because he doesn't have to drop 30 to win a game. He can only drop 24, 21. There's going to be less pressure, less expectation. Who is most likely to regress? This has been a generational hate episode by you. I got to admit, bro. Who is most
Generational
likely
hate.
to regress? Daniel Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, or Geno Smith? That's a really hard question because all 3 of those quarterbacks are supported very well. The quarterback with the least amount of support would be Daniel Jones. He
supported
makes
well?
that face. He has
supported well?
Ryan Dable.
Is the coach of the
That's
year.
it.
Ryan
The best
Dable.
one.
Oh my
But
God.
the reason that
Coaching
matters,
Y'all
matters.
swear to God.
Coaching
Y'all swear
matters
to
a
God
lot.
that the
That's
half
coaches
the
are
game.
on the field playing.
But
you
coaching's half the
swear
game.
down that these guys
Dude, Daniel
line up
Jones-
with these guys
Daniel
and
Jones was
play.
throwing to
Scheme
some
is like
wild
80% of the
guys.
NFL.
Oh my
the game.
God.
Like Daniel Jones was throwing up straight up naked guys.
And
no
that's
one's
the
around
thing.
them.
It's a gimmicky offense where Brian Dable maximized Daniel Jones with limited personnel. But we also have to acknowledge, like Joel pointed out before, big time throws. Daniel Jones is not as talented as Geno Smith. Geno fit high-level throws in the tight windows down the field on the run. Some of the
He was
throws he
special.
made were MVP light. Daniel Jones doesn't have that in him. Daniel Jones will improve this year the same way he limited his turnovers, got better on the run, and was tough as shit. Playing 16 games on that offensive line, that's impressive. But as a thrower of the football, I acknowledged before, Kenny Pickett needs to work on his footwork, staying in the pocket. Daniel Jones, there's a limitation, maybe even deeper as a thrower, where he's not going to throw a guy open. He's not going to fit high-low throws in the tight windows. So because of that, I look at these quarterbacks and say, Geno Smith, the same way you said it. Geno Smith's I can't even speak right now. Geno is the least likely to regress because he is the best quarterback out of this group, and he also has two number one wide receivers, or at least two very good wide receivers. I won't say number one for Tyler Lockett. And the offense line's getting better. I think Geno's going to build off of last year. Maybe not play as well as he did in the first half, but we saw a little bit in 2021. This is who Geno is. I would like to think that he's going to continue playing at top 15 level.
That's a fact.
Tua is the quarterback that I do worry about his injury history. If he's not playing enough games, he'd be the least likely to regress.
And statistically, Geno's the easiest to regress because he had played all games. He was healthy and led the league in completion percentage. So if you want to look just statistically, Geno is probably most likely because he had the best season. But I think if you actually watch them play, and also the total wins for teams, like I don't know if the Giants are making the playoffs again. I feel pretty confident about Seattle, and Miami I still think is going to be around that 9-10 win mark.
I agree. And this might be a hot take, but I think Seattle's going to challenge San Fran for that number one spot in the NFC West.
Quarterback, big question mark.
They got two first round picks. They could hit on
Number 5 overall.
I feel very comfortable in the Seahawks just improving this roster.
If they
And I
get in
trust
this
the
draft,
coaching.
they're a Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
I'm not going to shit talk the Seahawks because I did last season, and it was one of the worst opinions I've had ever. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
To Daniel Jones. It's going to be a good year.
You really disgust me.
Why?
You lost me today.
Why?
Fucking guy comes up onto the show and says, Daniel Jones has no flaws. None. Ever since that day, I have never seen someone backtrack so fast in my
I
life.
told you I overreacted. Happens to the best of us.
Not me.
No?
No.
Lakers 60 wins?
Fuck.
Okay. Happens,
And I mean, listen, John, I do agree with your point about Tua and the defense. That's a strong point. That's why I think the Dolphins will overall be a good team.
Stop. Don't try and
But
make
if
this okay.
when we get Aaron Rodgers, we're better than the Dolphins. Like we clear them.
Let's go.
But what I
Tua
will
most
say to
definitely
that
is not the one regressing.
what I will say to that though is that I don't know. I thought the Dolphins defense played pretty well against the Chargers, and Tua was absolutely dog shit. He had a historically bad first
No, you
half.
could say that
and
Waddle wasn't great. You could say Tyreek wasn't great. They weren't getting open, right? Why don't we blame receivers?
They were open.
They were not.
There's multiple film clips that show they were wide open. Tua just missed them.
First off, the pressure was in his face. Tua's offensive line still not great.
It's not great, and I just named you a bunch of defenses that have some pretty good defensive lines.
Uh-huh.
Fact.
And regardless of that fact, he still was lining them up. He had one horrid game. That game against the Chargers was horrible.
The Niners game was pretty ugly, too.
I wouldn't say horrible, though.
He was missing throws left and right.
He was. No doubt. That was the first time you
looked
looked
like
at Tua
really
that season.
uncomfortable.
He did. That
Because of
defensive
that
line.
pressure.
No, I'm not saying you're
The
wrong. The
defensive
defensive
line.
line was not good. The offensive line.
Aaron Rodgers doesn't do that, though.
Okay, we'll see. Because
He steps into those throws,
you're
baby.
right. He's big time, right?
Yeah.
What happened against the Lions?
What happened
He's
against the
big
Dolphins?
time.
Tua had a concussion, bro.
Choke that lead.
He had a
Dolphins'
concussion.
defense is going to be good.
That's going to be
Prior
that's
to
gonna be nasty.
David
concussion,
Long.
he was all world. After the
Phillips.
concussion, it was a completely different game.
That Dolphins defense can be top 10.
No,
doubt in
it
my
definitely
Yeah.
could.
mind.
But
It's
Tua's going to
secondary
have the
is
Jimmy
Vic
G.
Fangio automatically going to do
Tua's
that.
going to have the Jimmy
Oh
G
my
stats,
God,
but you're not
just
going to
stop.
trust him in any big time game
Jimmy
against
G,
any
has he
big-time
ever thrown
quarterbacks.
28 touchdowns in his career?
Yeah, he's done 27 at least.
He was
In
right around that
13
number.
games. Talk to me. I could be wrong.
He's never had Tyreek
Oh.
Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Okay.
Oh, no, Jimmy.
He
Hey,
threw
come on.
27 touchdowns in
Debo, are you
2019.
Kittle, bro.
27?
In 2019.
How many games?
16.
All 16.
Oh, got it. So in 3 less games, he had more touchdowns.
The weapons was not there. Emmanuel Sanders was number one.
George
year.
Kittle, we're just going to
Don't
pretend like he
sleep on
wasn't
us.
good.
Okay,
Bowl
but that's not
champion
Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
No, of course not.
It's not.
Nothing's Tyreek Will. Nothing.
They're historically a great wide
Debo
receiver
was
duo.
also on that team, correct?
So
That
the
was
year was
rookie
hurt.
year
rookie.
Debo.
We've
Rookie
got some
numbers.
clean super chats. I'm not going to front.
All right,
There we
let's read off these super
We got a
chats.
couple of
real
big time
quick.
ones. We got to drop a couple of these. These are awesome.
Okay,
Fed
so
up.
Chris Bass, big fan of Quentin Johnson. He was so good in TCU.
Fact.
Daniel Guerrero. It's sad when someone picks a team as their gen in the offseason and first month of the season, things looking bad, and that people abandon them when things look good. You hop back in like a coward. Oh, man. I wonder who that's directed at, Dehls.
Can't be you.
Adding Aiden Ramirez as the PAS ambassador of San Diego,
Here we go.
I must ask the hard-hitting questions. Do you think the 2020 quarterback class could eventually go down as the best ever?
Yes.
Ever's tough.
It could. I say
Burrow,
with
Herbert,
that,
Tua, Hurts.
we got to be historians. Elway, Marino, I believe that was also Kelly. That
It's
probably,
like 86, right?
yeah,
Ken
that's
O'Brien.
probably number one. Number two probably would be Eli,
Disrespect.
Rivers.
Eli Rivers, Big Ben,
Yeah.
and then we'll see what happens. But this definitely could be in that conversation. We have to see obviously how it plays out. But Burrow already is proven to be one of the best in the game. Herbert's proven to be one of the best in the game. Tua is proven to be one of the best in the game. Jalen Hurts is proven to be one of the best in the game. And then Jordan Love,
You let that slide?
TBD.
So we basically, when we talk about the 2020 quarterback class and the class of Elway, Mahomes is Elway, right? The best one in the draft in that class. Or
That's not
who's better,
2020.
Elway or Marino?
No, 2020 is Burrow,
Burrow, yeah.
Herbert, Tua, Hurts.
Oh, my bad, my bad.
That's the Mahomes.
2020.
Mahomes to
So
Sean.
Burrow-
That was-
Burrow's Elway. Justin Herbert is Dan Marino.
And Jim Kelly is
Jim Kelly is Jalen Hurts because Jim Kelly was running them.
It's more fair to
Them-
say Tua is
them-
Dan Marino.
and
It was
Jets-
running them
Jets
2-minute
legend,
drill
Jet-
offenses.
Yes, legend is
Ken
right.
O'Brien.
Yes.
Ken O'Brien is Tua. That's Ken O'Brien, who just scoffed at, by the way.
I didn't scoff at him.
Respect Ken O'Brien's
I didn't
history.
scoff at him.
You did, bro.
He's one of our better
That's how it came
quarterbacks
across, I
in our
guess. Sorry.
franchise. And Jordan Love is
We're gonna have Aaron
TBD.
Rodgers.
I think Jordan Love is like the separator. If Jordan Love goes crazy, then he's like, yeah, this is probably the best quarterback draft class.
But else is going to see longevity. Elway, obviously one of the best we've ever seen. Marino didn't end up winning a championship, and neither did Kelly.
That's 3 Hall of Famers now.
But
Kelly. just
Eli
looked
won
tiny.
2. Big Ben won 2. Rivers never won any. But Rivers is still one of the all-time greats.
Does Rivers get in the Hall of Fame? I don't know.
He is.
That's maybe 2 Hall
He
of
is.
Famers.
He's
Or
in.
3
3 Hall of Famers.
He probably
Locked.
is. He has all the longevity stats.
Yeah, he does. You know.
This is from Deco. I'll keep sleeping on Wilson. Don't wake me up.
Listen who? Zach?
Zach.
I
I'm
guess.
assuming.
Future NFL MVP.
Russell.
Browns win a division. I don't care. Another super chat from wait till we win the division. Y'all make me sick.
I don't see many Browns fans in our comments ever hating.
RJ the God. Start bench cut. Pat Surtain, Sauce, and Trayvon Diggs. I'm starting
Pat Surtain,
Sauce.
Sauce, and Diggs. Diggs getting cut with all due
Yep,
respect.
starting Sauce,
Starting
benching,
PS2, of course, and
casual.
Sauce
I'm starting
is gonna
Sauce
bench.
and benching PS2.
Me too.
I would be starting. Oh shit, that's tough. Patrick Surtain or Sauce Gardner, maybe the 2 best cornerbacks in football, both in their first and second seasons. I don't know.
Last segment of the podcast, 3 hours, 34 minutes. We're getting close to that
There we
4-hour
go.
mark. Early NFL MVP odds. Now, we're just going to rattle these MVP odds so you don't have
It's
to be
11
here
PM.
all
hate you so much
night long.
right now. Fuck,
Josh-
Josh pissed me off at the worst time of night. Go ahead.
Josh Allen plus 700. He is currently the favorite. It's a tie, 3-way tie between Josh Allen, Burrow, and Mahomes are all plus 700. Herbert is the middleman at plus 900. Then you have Jalen Hurts at plus 1,200. Lamar is plus 1,500. Aaron and Lawrence are tied at plus 1,600 odds.
You already know where I'm going. Aaron Rodgers, the Jet, chip on his shoulder. He could bring the Jets back to the playoffs, back to Super Bowl, dare I say. He's going to rejuvenate the city of New York. He's going to be in the spotlight. Every headline, every show on Monday across America is going to be about the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. Plus 1,600 seems like a great value there.
Hope you know you were my only hope to root for the Jets. Hope you know that. It's gone after today.
My
Fuck 'em.
early NFL MVP pick. I wasn't sure what this guy's odds are, but Trevor Lawrence getting
Plus
Calvin
1,600.
Ridley, Christian Kirk in year 2 with a second-year Doug Peterson. I think Jacksonville is just about to take that step forward to 12, 13 wins. And assuming they do with Trevor Lawrence in year 3, I'm expecting to throw 35 touchdowns, have let's say 12 picks, right? But we'll have the yards and we'll have the wins.
I think I
That's
saw
good
their win
value.
total at like 10.5. Division's really easy. But
That's
Exactly.
good value,
Easy.
though. I
Easy
mean,
to
plus
do.
1,600. That's good value for Trevor Lawrence. And
Oh.
usually those type of quarterbacks break out the third-year guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Trevor Lawrence
People have
plus
forgot how good
1,600
Calvin Ridley
is
was.
really great odds.
he's going to be number 0 next year.
I think
One of the
Calvin's gonna break.
coolest jerseys you'll ever see. Number 0 is so tough.
Plus 1,000 for Justin Herbert. That is all day, especially with Justin Herbert having something to
But
prove.
if he doesn't win that division, he's going to win MVP.
No. Depends.
Seems unlikely.
It feels like a Joe Burrow year for me.
Shocking. It's a Joe Burrow year for every year.
Plus 700.
There's a chance that they could win the division.
There's a chance, yeah.
No,
I mean,
the Chiefs definitely are the favorite, no doubt. But there's a chance, especially Herbert gives any team, with as good as Justin Herbert is, he will give his team a chance to win any given week. Plus 1,000 is great odds. Of course, Tua plus 1,600, great odds. I think, John, though, you might have hit it best, though. Trevor Lawrence plus 1,600, especially for all the hype that's going into him this offseason. With Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk was great last year, and now he's not going to have to see number one corners, which was a huge issue of his last year. Evan Ingram's now back. Zay Jones now becomes your number 3. Travis Etienne in year 2. This is his real sophomore campaign. He was great. His yards per carry, I think, was 5 per carry. He was really good on the ground. Trevor Lawrence is a great pick, plus 1,600, but of course, I love the comeback tour of Tua Tagovailoa, no
I
doubt.
saw Matt Ryan at plus 10,000.
Hey, you laughed at me last year.
Anything on that?
You laughed at me last year.
Matt Ryan,
Plus
I'll
10,000.
think about it. Maybe the 49ers sign him on a waiver, and he comes in and, does his thing with Kyle Shanahan again. Making history,
That's actually
baby.
low-key. And they signed Darnold, so I don't think they signed Ryan. But
Dehls. Don't
Also-
disrespect Matty Ice, baby.
Plus 3,500 for the comeback story of the year. Denver Broncos, Russell Wilson. Plus 3,500. Throw $5 on it and watch greatness.
I mean, the way they're going to build around him with the offensive line, he's going to take a massive step forward this year.
It's going to be
Don't
great
sleep
when
on Russ.
no,
I
but
I don't know if he's
honestly,
going to have the stats.
what I'm
going
going to do is when comeback player of the year odds come out, I'm 100%
It's out.
throwing a lot of
I mean,
Yeah, they're out.
we were talking. DeMar Hamlin's the favorite. He's minus 150.
facts. That's tough. That's going to be tough to beat him.
Exactly.
It's going to be tough to beat him.
He's gonna
But
probably
But when
win.
Russell is historic this season, it's going to be awesome.
Sean Payne does wonder. I mean, the guy won 9 games with
Ian Book.
Ian Book, Taysom Hill, Jameis for 5 games. I think this Broncos offense is really going to take a step forward. And
Talk to
it
him.
can't get worse than last year. It can't. So I think with the offensive line's improvements, you get back your Bulls. And then Jared
Shit
Judy
was
should get
ass.
better as well as the wide receiver number 1 on
And
this team.
you
Tim
compare-
Patrick, Javonte Williams, that
Facts,
Broncos
Patrick Beck is
offense
huge.
is
That's
gonna
something
take-
that no one really
it's gonna
talks about.
take- The Broncos offense last year was outside the room. It's going to be above average for sure this
You
year.
gotta hope Javante comes back. There's been.
I
things
believe in
flying
Samaje.
Samaji's a train.
What are
said
the
Javante.
odds
That
that
was a good pickup. Samaje Piran.
I know. I was talking about Javante.
No, oh no, I know, but
Yeah.
I'm saying in the meanwhile.
It's a good
There's
backup.
What are
there's
the
just been
odds
some
that,
rumors flying around that he might not
know,
be ready
bro.
for the start of the
I would
season.
rather another running back. Take a third.
He could have a J.K. Dobbins-esque season where struggles and then back half of the season he turns it up.
what are the odds that Jared Stidham starts at some point in the year?
Negative.
I'm not
Who
saying
he
it'll
signed with
happen.
again?
Jared Stidham. Sean Payne praised him a lot.
He signed with the
Broncos.
Broncos.
Not at all.
Unlikely.
0%.
Russ
If
gets
I
hurt,
could do
but
negative percent, I would.
you're paying him 230 or how much was it? 230?
Yeah.
He's trying to start.
3 hour and 39-minute podcast. 3 hours, almost 4 hours.
God
you guys
damn.
better. If you guys made it this far,
We gave you guys
please
two,
drop a
we
like
gave you
on the
two
stream.
podcasts in one.
There are 240 people, 45 people watching this live. Please make sure to drop a like on this full episode. Last episode we did a great job. It's almost at 1,000 likes.
Yes.
Let's get this episode to 1,000 likes for real. Let's get it to 1,000 likes.
Go download Mojo. Go download Boom. Our code's in there. Support the show.
Washington.
Yes, sir.
PJ had 43. I was going to be my boom pick. I was thinking about his points.
43?
43
What the fuck?
points. He's
It's
been
the second
killing
time
it
his career.
recently. Versus the Thunder, actually, on the road.
Who won?
And
Please tell me they won.
did the Hornets beat the Thunder? Yes, they won by 3.
I'm gonna climb.
And also drop some get well soons in the chat for Rib. We
Facts,
want him
facts,
back
facts,
soon.
facts.
Get him back into the
Game
fold.
time decision for Friday.
He's
Game
probable,
time.
probable.
So
Recording
this
Friday.
is gonna do it for episode 267
When
of
we
the Pick a
driving.
Side podcast. Make sure to drop a like, follow us on Twitter at Pick a Side Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at Pick a Side Podcast. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.